Chapter 722. She didn't expect Hua Xiaoheng to actually ask about the house. Gu Nianji felt very conflicted. She really wanted to settle the house immediately so she could move all her things from Hua Xiaoheng's place. But did she need Hua Xiaoheng to look at the house with her? She wanted to break up with him, so was it really okay to follow him around like this? Hua Xiaoheng glanced at Gu Nianji and saw that her conflicted expression was written all over her face. Didn't you say it's a second-hand house? I'll help you check if it's safe. You're a young girl and don't know the place well. If you encounter bad neighbors, Hua Xiaoheng said seriously with a frown. He seemed very concerned about the security of the area. Gu Nianji was speechless. But after thinking about it carefully, it seemed like a good idea to ask Hua Xiaoheng to help check if the surroundings of the house were safe. After all, Hua Xiaoheng was a professional in this area, and Gu Nianji didn't want to live next door to a group of unfriendly neighbors. She hesitated for a while and looked down at her phone. Will it affect your work? Aren't you very busy? I'm not busy. Hua Xiaoheng drove and looked at the surroundings of the school as he said nonchalantly, Big Xiong and Little Zhe have been promoted now, so I can leave a lot of things to them. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to rest assured. He had to take care of the Special Operations Forces before he had time to comfort Gu Nianji. He then glanced at Gu Nianji, but she turned to look out the window and said, Okay, it's just around the corner up ahead. There's a Hipingli precinct there. It looks okay. Hua Xiaoheng turned the steering wheel. You've been here before? No. Then how do you know it's okay? Gu Nianji glared at him. I saw it on the internet. Is there anything that can't be seen on the internet now? This kind of information about second-hand houses is everywhere. Hua Xiaoheng didn't ask any more questions and drove to a small road near the precinct before stopping. To look at second-hand houses, one had to contact the real estate agent or the owner before they could enter. Gu Nianji didn't know if she could contact them now. She got out of the car with Hua Xiaoheng first and walked around the precinct. The houses here were about 10 years old, and the residential area even had enclosed walls. The floors were not too high, with the highest being only 12 floors. There was an elevator and there were 4 units per floor. The exterior was well maintained. There were also security guards on duty at the entrance of the residential area. Vehicles entering and exiting had a special pass. If one was not a resident of the residential area, he or she would have to register and leave a copy of the pass. Hua Xiaoheng nodded. It's all right. I'll go back and check the background information of the residents here. If it's about right, I'll buy it. Gu Nianji. He suddenly blushed with shame. She knew that if Hua Xiaoheng wanted to investigate the background information of the residents here, he would probably go as far as the heavens and the earth. He would be able to investigate everything from 3 generations of their ancestors to their collateral relatives. We haven't even seen the house yet. How can we buy it just like that? It was Gu Nianji's turn to object. Hua Xiaoheng glanced at her. Do you have the contact information of the owner or manager? Gu Nianji nodded. Yes. I'll give them a call and see if we can view the house today. Hua Xiaoheng was a man of action. Since he was here, he might as well take a look at the actual house. Gu Nianji felt that it was a bit abrupt and too urgent. The owner hadn't even prepared in such a short time. However, Hua Xiaoheng kept staring at her, so she had no choice but to take out her phone and call the manager first. The manager heard it and quickly said, Miss Gu? I'll help you ask the owner. If they don't mind, I'll take you to view the house. Gu Nianji breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. Thank you for the trouble. The manager acted very quickly and called her 5 minutes later. She said with a smile, What a coincidence. The owner is at home cleaning up the house. You can go up and see for yourself. I've already told them your name. That's great. Thank you. Gu Nianji hung up with a smile and said to Hua Xiaoheng, The owner is at home cleaning up the house. Let's go take a look. Hua Xiaoheng nodded and walked in with her. The security guard at the entrance had already received a call from the owner and knew that Gu Nianji was there to view the house. After asking her to make a copy of her identification, he let her and Hua Xiaoheng in. The two of them went to Unit 602 of Block A in Hipingli Precinct and rang the doorbell. A woman in her 30s opened the door and looked at them. She asked with a smile, You're Gu Nianji? Gu Nianji nodded. May I ask if you're the owner of the house? Mr. Zhao asked us to come. Mr. Zhao was the manager. The woman stepped aside to let them in. Come in. We're packing up and we'll be moving soon. Gu Nianji and Hua Xiaoheng casually looked around the house. It was a 2-bedroom apartment with elegant decor. It had a log floor and light-colored waterproof paint on the walls. The 2 bathrooms were clean and refreshing, and the kitchen was connected to the dining room. It was open plan. There was also a large bay window facing the dining table. Gunyanji walked around and liked the place very much. Although it wasn't as big as the house Wu Xiaoheng had bought for her, it would be the first house she had bought for herself. It had a different meaning. She had spent her own money to buy something and used it with confidence. Although Gunyanji looked happy, she didn't show it. She asked Wu Xiaoheng non-committally, "Are you done looking?" Wu Xiaoheng nodded. "Let's go." The two of them said goodbye and left. The owner of the house felt uneasy and contacted the manager again. She didn't know if the house would be sold. After Gunyanji and Hu Xiaoheng came out, they had more or less decided to buy the house. They got into the car and Hu Xiaoheng drove her back to school. On the way there, he took her to a nearby supermarket to buy some daily necessities and food to go back to school. When they arrived at Gunyanji's dorm, it was already past 3 in the afternoon. Gunyanji got out of the car with large and small bags and said to Hu Xiaoheng, "Thank you for shopping with me today. It's getting late, so I won't keep you." Hu Xiaoheng looked at the large and small bags in her hands and parked the car. He took the plastic bags from her hands. "I'll walk you up." Gunyanji wanted to say no, but Hu Xiaoheng was already striding towards the elevator. Gunyanji could only follow. They returned to Gunyanji's dorm and saw that Ma Qiqi had already returned. She was holding a thermos and watching TV. When she saw Gunyanji come in, she quickly stood up and said, "Nyanji, you're back. Where did you go?" Gunyanji smiled as she put a bag of snacks on the dining table in the living room. "Here, Qiqi, it's my treat." Ma Qiqi cheered and took out a bag of shrimp crackers from the plastic bag to eat. Wu Xiaoheng helped Gunyanji take the rest of the things to her room. Ma Qiqi winked at Gunyanji and Gunyanji smiled and hid her before going in. "Wu Xiaoheng, don't bother. I can clean up myself." Gunyanji took the plastic bag from Hu Xiaoheng's hands firmly and stubbornly. Hu Xiaoheng let go and watched as Gunyanji skillfully sorted the things she bought and put them in the appropriate places. He stood there for a while and saw that Gunyanji was still ignoring him. He took out a cigarette from his trouser pocket and lit it twice on his palm. He said to Gunyanji, "Then I'll go back first. You can sign the contract and pay the deposit after I finish the background check." Gunyanji didn't even look back. "Thank you for the trouble." After a while, Ma Qiqi's farewell came from outside, followed by the sound of the door slamming shut. Gunyanji instantly felt relieved. She jumped out of the room and waved at Ma Qiqi. "Qiqi, come. Tell me what big gossip has been going on at school and in the faculty these days." Ma Qiqi hugged the snacks and went into her room. Gunyanji took out the 2 cups of iced milk tea she bought, and the two of them ate and drank. They happily enjoyed the leisurely afternoon. When He Jichu found Gunyanji's message, it was already 6 or 7 in the evening. He had been investigating Gunyanji's disappearance in Germany for the past 2 days. Many clues had been cut off by others, so his investigation wasn't going smoothly. However, it was this unsuccess that pointed him in the right direction. The more he investigated, the more he seemed to point to the most impossible result. In the afternoon, He Jichu gathered all the evidence together and called his hometown. The person who answered was Wen Shui. He Jichu's voice was very cold. "Wen Shui, are you that free? You're always at my house." Wen Shui's voice was very frightened and trembling. "Mr. He Auntie Qin. Auntie Qin had a miscarriage." He Jichu was speechless. He stood up with a very serious expression. "What did you say?" "Auntie Qin had a miscarriage." Wen Shui said it again. This time, she spoke very slowly, enunciating each word as if she was afraid He Jichu couldn't hear her clearly. "Auntie Qin had a miscarriage? When did she get pregnant?" He Jichu's voice seemed to have been tempered in ice water. Every word was like ice shards that made people shiver. "It's only been 2 months. Wen Shui said very quietly, like she was pressed against the microphone. "Auntie Qin is very sad. Senior Mr. He has been in her room with her for the past 2 days. He Jichu almost sneered. "Are you sure? Does my father know she had a miscarriage?" "Of course he knows." Wen Shui froze. "Is there something wrong? Put my father on the phone." He Jichu kicked the coffee table in annoyance and it moved to the side with a squeak. A few drops of coffee spilled on the table, and He Jichu wiped it with a tissue. Soon after, Senior Mr. He picked up the phone. He Jichu immediately said, "Father, Auntie Qin had a miscarriage? How did she get pregnant?" He Jichu knew that his father had a very serious prostate disease in the past and could no longer have children. But he also knew that Auntie Qin had been infatuated with his father for decades. He couldn't tell that she would cheat on him. Senior Mr. He rubbed his eyebrows and said quietly, "Don't get the wrong idea. Your Auntie Qin used my frozen sperm as a test tube baby." He Jichu was speechless. This was the first night watch. The monthly votes were over 3,600, and it was still the third night watch today. Let me remind you about the recommendation tickets. There were 3,600 monthly votes at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. There was still the third night watch at 7 o'clock in the evening. P.S. Thank you to Bagel16 for the 10,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Moi. Chapter 723. Since that was the case, Hijichu didn't need to say more. Auntie Chin was actually pregnant and had a miscarriage. After Hijichu put down the phone, his brows furrowed for a long time before finally sighing softly. He pinched the slight wrinkle between his brows and checked his voicemail. Gu Nianji's light and crisp voice slipped into his eardrums. Hijichu couldn't help curling his lips. He immediately called Gu Nianji's new number. It was 6 or 7 in the evening. Gu Nianji and Ma Chichi had just returned from dinner and had just gone to the bathroom to shower. It was already very cold in the imperial capital in early October. She came out of the bathroom wrapped in a bathrobe and used a towel to dry her freshly washed hair. When she heard her phone ring, she quickly walked over to check. It was Hijichu's number. Gu Nianji happily swiped the phone to answer. Professor He. You're so busy. Hijichu sat on the sofa in the suite of the professor's building, one hand tapping on the armrest in satisfaction. His expression was still cold, but his voice was very gentle. Nianji, you're back at school? Yeah, I just got back today. Gu Nianji sat on the soft chair in front of her desk and put on her Bluetooth headset to talk to Hijichu. This way she could free her hands. Professor He, can you send me this semester's class schedule? I want to see how many courses I need to graduate. Hijichu froze. Graduate? You want to graduate that badly? Yeah, I've thought about it. A master's in law doesn't require a lot of credits. The key is the graduation thesis. As long as I can finish the credits and complete the thesis, the faculty should be able to allow me to graduate early, right? Gu Nianji spoke and used a pitiful voice to beg Hijichu. Professor He, you're my mentor. You won't allow me to graduate early, right? Hijichu sighed and felt his head hurt even more. Nianji, you're still young. Why do you want to graduate early? I think it's best for you to stay in school for a few more years. Gu Nianji shook her head and looked out the window at the gradually darkening sky. She suddenly wanted to talk to someone. Professor He, I know I'm young, but who says I have to be old to enter society? All these years I've been protected by Hua Xiaoheng too well, and I'm completely out of touch with society. Now that I'm independent, of course I have to get close to society as soon as possible. Without the illusory peach blossom garden that Hua Xiaoheng had created for her, she would rather become stronger so that she could create a peach blossom garden for herself. Independent? Hijichu didn't think much of it. What are you talking about? Would Hua Xiaoheng let you leave him? Gu Nianji smiled bitterly. She didn't mention that she had already broken up with Hua Xiaoheng. She only whispered. Hua Xiaoheng is also very busy. I just want to graduate early and find a job to support myself. No matter how good Hua Xiaoheng was to her, this experience only served to remind her that she was no different from Sister Lin, who was living under someone else's roof. The difference was that little Sister Lin did not have the opportunity and ability to break away from that family and live on her own, but she could. Although Gu Nianji didn't say anything, Hijichu had already sensed something sensitive. He sat up straight and asked slowly, Nianji, did you fight with Hua Xiaoheng? Gu Nianji didn't answer and only said, Professor He, please help me and let me graduate early. This is very important to me. Hijichu saw that she was avoiding the topic and was basically certain that something had happened between her and Hua Xiaoheng. This was also within his expectations. Ever since Gu Nianji cried and complained in Germany, Hijichu felt that Gu Nianji probably wanted to break up with Hua Xiaoheng. Of course, he also knew that Hua Xiaoheng wasn't the kind of person that would break up with just because she said so. Hua Xiaoheng was the same kind of person as Hijichu. They both liked to have everything in their control and wouldn't allow anything to escape their control. But coincidentally, both of them had met someone who had escaped their control, and it was the same person, Gu Nianji. I'll send you this semester's class schedule as well as next semester's. If you can handle it, you can complete 15 credits in the remaining 4 months, which is 5 courses. Then you can write your thesis and do your internship in the second half of next year. Hijichu opened Gu Nianji's class schedule and gave her a suggestion after a brief look. Gu Nianji immediately said, It's not a problem to complete 15 credits in 4 months. I'll try and see if I can write my thesis at the same time. Hijichu sat up straight and said seriously, Think about it carefully before making a decision. Your body won't be able to handle taking so many courses and writing a thesis at the same time. I'm fine. I'm talented. Gu Nianji chuckled and mocked herself. Ijichu was speechless. After putting down the phone, Gunyenji turned on her computer to check her email and study her class schedule. Ijichu sat alone on the sofa and thought for a long time before getting up to contact an American law firm. The next day, when Gunyenji checked her bank account balance, she was shocked to find that there was a large amount of money in her card. The money was enough for her to buy the second-hand house she was interested in cash with some left over. Gunyenji's heart trembled. Her first thought was, did He Xiaoheng give her the money? But after calming down, she carefully checked the source of the money and discovered that it was from an American law firm. Gunyenji called Ijichu. Professor He, I just discovered that my bank card received a sum of money from an American law firm. Do you know why? Ijichu smiled as he stood in front of the window. He held his phone in one hand and used the other to rub breadcrumbs into the fish tank to feed the goldfish. He said, "It's your performance bonus. You helped us win Li Haiqing's lawsuit this time, so this is the first bonus." That much. Gunyenji looked at the balance in her bank account and couldn't bear to put it down. No wonder everyone wants to be a lawyer. What a bright future for money. Ijichu laughed. Little money grubber. You've never been short of money? Gunyenji was embarrassed and secretly made a face at the phone. Ijichu couldn't see it anyway. She smiled and said, Professor He, a gentleman loves money and gets it in a proper way. Why can't I love money? Also, I'm proud to earn money from my own labor. Yes, of course you can. Ijichu smiled without batting an eyelid. Don't forget about Li Haiqing's case. There's still civil compensation. When the trial is over, you can also get another performance bonus. Gunyenji nodded quickly. Yes. Thank you, Professor He, for the opportunity. Please help me in the future, Professor He. You're my assistant. If I don't give you a chance, who should I give a chance to? Ijichu was in a great mood. He dusted off the breadcrumbs in his hands and said to Gunyenji, When are you going back to class? Are you feeling better? I'm fully recovered. I've been recovering for a long time. Gunyenji looked at her schedule. Any time is fine. I want to give it my all in these 4 months. I'm so addicted to studying that I'm losing weight. Ijichu was speechless. After putting down the phone, Gunyenji immediately began to draft a study plan and class selection. She also needed Ijichu and the faculty to provide proof that she could make an exception and choose classes. Because Li Haiqing's case had dragged on for too long, and she had experienced a period of being on the run, she had already missed the deadline for class selection. If she wanted to choose these classes now, she would have to make special arrangements. She would definitely need proof from the instructor and faculty. Then she would have to personally beg the instructors of those classes to allow her to choose classes. By the time she had registered for all 5 courses and successfully started her thesis, it was already Thursday night. Gunyenji returned from the library and saw the familiar silver Bentley Bentayga SUV in front of the dormitory building. It was He Xiaoheng's new car. She took a few steps forward and saw He Xiaoheng smoking under the streetlight next to the car. He was tall and wore a general's uniform. His sleeves were rolled up, and he leaned against the hood of the car with his back facing her. Gunyenji coughed lightly. He Xiaoheng turned to look at her. Gunyenji smiled and nodded. Waiting for someone? He Xiaoheng threw away the cigarette in his hand and said calmly, Yes, waiting for you. What's the matter? Gunyenji held up a stack of reference books. I'm very busy. He Xiaoheng didn't know what to feel. He suppressed his surging emotions and said with a smile, I've checked the background of the people in Hepingli district and the owner of the second-hand house. Not bad. They don't have any bad records. Gunyenji was speechless. It wasn't a criminal record. He Xiaoheng was making a mountain out of a molehill. Gunyenji pouted inwardly and said politely, Thank you. I was planning to sign the contract and transfer the ownership tomorrow. He Xiaoheng nodded. I'll go with you. Chichi will go with me. Gunyenji declined politely. You're too busy. Our home is small and can't accommodate a great Buddha like you. He was so polite and had a slightly sarcastic tone. He Xiaoheng's eyes dimmed. He shook his head. It's okay. I'm happy to. But I'm not happy, Gunyenji almost blurted out. But looking at He Xiaoheng's serious expression, she wondered if he was used to caring for her, or did he treat her like a child. She couldn't buy her own house, drive her own car, or drink alcohol. Gunyenji looked up and took 2 deep breaths to suppress the unspeakable depression. She knew that no one could stop He Xiaoheng from doing what he said he was going to do. She didn't want to waste her energy. Okay, whatever you want. Gunyenji nodded at He Xiaoheng and turned to go upstairs. He Xiaoheng didn't follow her this time. Instead, he leaned against the hood of the car and took out a cigarette from his trouser pocket. He twisted it and watched Gu Nianji's figure disappear from his sight expressionlessly. Yin Shixiang didn't dare to make a sound in the car until he saw Gu Nianji leave. He then poked his head out of the car and asked quietly, "Huoxiao, you guys really broke up? Is that possible? Nianji is young and likes to dream. How old are you to still dream?" Huoxiaoheng glanced at him calmly and lowered his head to light his cigarette. He used the new lighter Gu Nianji had given him. This was the second night watch and the monthly ticket was 3,600 plus night watch. Today was still the third night watch. Let me remind you about the recommendation tickets. There was still the third night watch at 7 p.m. Chapter 724. Yin Shixiang almost spat blood at Huoxiaoheng's words. Am I very old? Very old? Very old. We're the same age, Huoxiao. Yin Shixiang only dared to scream in his heart. He retracted his head and sat in the driver's seat, bored to death, and almost wanted to honk the horn. Huoxiaoheng didn't say anything to get in the car. He just leaned against the hood and smoked in silence. The dim yellow light from the street lamps cast a silhouette in front of him. His handsome back and long legs made people want to do something wrong. All of this in the imperial capital's October night exuded a deep sense of loneliness. Yin Shixiang didn't dare disturb Huoxiaoheng or urge him to get in the car. After waiting for a while, Yin Shixiang had an idea and secretly called Ma Qiqi's phone. Ma Qiqi had just finished chatting with Gu Nianji and returned to her room to sleep. When she heard her phone ring, and it was Brother Xiong's exclusive ringtone, she was so happy that she immediately grabbed the phone and swiped it open. "Brother Xiong? Qiqi, it's me." Yin Shixiang heard Ma Qiqi's clear and crisp voice and his mood instantly improved. He snuck a glance at Huoxiaoheng, who was silently smoking diagonally in front of him. Yin Shixiang lowered his voice and asked Ma Qiqi, "Qiqi, did Nianji go back?" "She did. I just finished talking to her and she went to shower. I'm going to sleep," Ma Qiqi said as she lifted the duvet and got into bed. It was already very cold in the imperial capital at this time of the year. Because it wasn't time for heating, a thick and soft duvet was a must. Was Nianji unhappy or unhappy? Or did she complain to you about something? Yin Shixiang cleverly tried to get information out of Ma Qiqi. They had no choice. The chief's personal life wasn't going well, so as his personal secretaries, they had to take on the heavy responsibility of coordinating. Ma Qiqi shook her head and said in confusion, "No, why do you ask? Nianji's in a good mood and even asked me to accompany her to buy a house tomorrow." She then said enviously, "Nianji is so amazing. She's already working to earn enough money to buy a house. I'm still living off my parents. Qiqi, it's your good fortune to be able to rely on the elderly. Look at how pitiful Nianji is. She can't rely on the elderly so she can only rely on Huoxiao." Yin Shixiang joked with Ma Qiqi cheekily. Ma Qiqi didn't like hearing him say that. She raised a brow and retorted, "Nianji didn't bite Huoxiao. Nianji relied on herself. She earned her money as a lawyer. Don't look down on our Nianji." "How would I dare? Nianji has been our little ancestor since she was young." Yin Shixiang's heart skipped a beat. He knew that he had said the wrong thing and quickly tried to salvage the situation. "I was just joking. You also know that they are lovers. Isn't it normal for them to be biting each other?" Ma Qiqi was silent for a while and said faintly, "I didn't expect you to be like this, Brother Xiong." Damn it. For the sake of Huoxiao, he had completely lost his image. How was he going to woo girls and pursue girlfriends in the future? Yin Shixiang hurriedly laughed a couple of times to dispel his mockery. Then he lowered his voice and said, "Qiqi, I was just joking. I was really joking." "Okay, I got it." Ma Qiqi slid under the blankets and also whispered, "Actually, Nianji has already broken up with Huoxiao." Yin Shixiang was speechless. How did everyone know? Even Huoxiao didn't admit it. Yin Shixiang perked up and asked, "Nianji told you? That they broke up?" "Yes, she said it herself. She said it several times." "Isn't it enough to say it once? What do you mean by several times?" Yin Shixiang suddenly felt that it was unfair for his chief. He had never lowered his head and had never been taken advantage of. Look at what he had become in front of Nianji. Ma Qiqi quickly said, "No, it's my fault. I always didn't believe that they really broke up. That's why Nianji corrected me again and again. I won't ask about it anymore. It's sad that they broke up. Why do I keep bringing it up?" Yin Shixiang continued to fish for information. "But didn't you just say that Nianji wasn't sad? How did it become a sad thing?" "Of course it's sad. Do you think girls aren't sad when they break up?" I'm telling you, as long as the girl didn't cheat and break up, it's definitely the girl who feels worse than the guy. Even if the girl broke up first, it's the girl who feels worse. Ma Qiqi almost sat up and grit her teeth as she gripped her phone. Yin Shixiang was wearing a Bluetooth headset to talk to Ma Qiqi. He wasn't paying attention, and Ma Qiqi's sudden high-pitched voice hurt his eardrums. He rubbed his ear and whispered, "I know, Mississippi. You're missed too. No wonder you're Nianji's best friend. Birds of a feather really do flock together." "What? We're good friends with the same values." Ma Qiqi teased Yin Shixiang with a smile. "Are you jealous?" "I'm jealous. I'm so jealous I'm about to vomit blood." Yin Shixiang smiled as he leaned against the car seat. He glanced in the direction of Gu Nianji's dorm and saw that the lights in her room had just gone out. She was probably asleep? Wu Xiaoheng also saw it. He threw away the almost burnt cigarette butt and turned to get into the car. Yin Shixiang quickly said to Ma Qiqi, "All right, let's not talk anymore. Go to sleep, I'm leaving." "Bye, Brother Xiong." Ma Qiqi didn't ask much and went to sleep after saying goodbye. Wu Xiaoheng got into the car and glanced at Yin Shixiang. "Who are you talking to?" "Ma Qiqi, Nianji's roommate." Yin Shixiang started the car. She said Nianji wasn't in a bad mood. She even made plans with her to buy a house and sign the transfer papers tomorrow. Wu Xiaoheng didn't say anything. He propped up his chin with one hand and rested his elbow on the side of the window. He stared at the night sky outside the car in a daze. Yin Shixiang looked at him in the rearview mirror and asked, "Wu Xiao, why does Nianji want to buy a house? Do you know?" "Got it. I'll accompany her tomorrow." He glanced at Yin Shixiang and said, "Drive properly and don't get distracted by talking. It's against the traffic rules." Yin Shixiang knew that she was telling him to shut up. He didn't dare to speak again, let alone ask this question. This was clearly Hu Xiao's reverse scale. Whoever touched it would die. Gu Nianji still had 2 classes on Friday morning. After class, she hurriedly went to the cafeteria to buy fried rice and ate it. Then she went straight to the real estate bureau in the Hepingli district with Ma Qiqi. When they arrived at the entrance, Gu Nianji was surprised to see Hu Xiaoheng's latest silver-gray Bentley Bentayga SUV parked in the temporary parking space in front of the real estate bureau. Seeing them arrive, Hu Xiaoheng opened the car door and got out. He nodded to Gu Nianji and Ma Qiqi. "Nianji, Qiqi, you're here." Gu Nianji also greeted him. "I didn't think you'd really come. I was actually just being polite. You didn't have to come." Hu Xiaoheng was speechless. He looked at Ma Qiqi and saw that she was looking at him and Gu Nianji with her big eyes. It was like she was watching a good show. Hu Xiaoheng had no choice but to close the door. He gently knocked on the car door. It was actually a series of Morse code. Yin Shixiang, who was in the car, was speechless. However, he still obeyed the chief's orders and got out of the car. He greeted Gu Nianji first. "Nianji, you're here to buy a house?" He made it sound like buying cabbages at the real estate bureau. Gu Nianji glared at him. Yin Shixiang also felt that his conversation was a bit awkward. He turned to smile at Ma Qiqi. "Qiqi, I said I had something to ask you yesterday. Do you still remember?" Ma Qiqi withdrew her gaze from Gu Nianji and Hu Xiaoheng and frowned. "What is it? You don't remember? Then come here. I'll ask you again." Yin Shixiang walked across the road and waved at Ma Qiqi. Ma Qiqi said to Gu Nianji, "I'll be right back." The corners of Gu Nianji's mouth twitched. Go. It's fine. Talk nicely with Brother Xiong." She patted Ma Qiqi's shoulder and raised her chin at Yin Shixiang. Ma Qiqi ran over with a smile. Wu Xiaoheng walked up and said to Gu Nianji, "Let's go. Did you bring everything?" Gu Nianji patted the Cambridge postman bag on her back. "It's all in here." The two of them walked into the real estate bureau lobby. The owners and agents were waiting for them in the lobby. Seeing Gu Nianji walk in with a tall, handsome man, Agent Zhao quickly went up to greet them. "Miss Gu Nianji, you're finally here." Gu Nianji nodded with a smile. "Why wouldn't I be here? You see, I already sent the down payment." "We already received it. You're saying you'll pay in full, right?" Agent Zhao confirmed again. "It'll be much more convenient this way. It'll be very troublesome and time-consuming to get a bank loan." Hu Xiaoheng froze and looked at Gu Nianji. He pulled her to the side and asked quietly, "You want to pay in full? Where did you get the money?" "It was the third watch. Today was the third watch. Let me remind you about the recommendation tickets. Good night, dear friends." Chapter 725. Where did she get the money? Yes, she didn't have parents and was a poor student. Where did she get the money to buy a house? And she was being looked down upon, and she was being looked down upon by the person she once loved deeply. Gu Nianji's eyes stung, and she almost cried. But she held it in and smiled faintly. I earned the money from my work. I went to Germany to help Li Haiqing with her lawsuit. I won the case and the institute gave me a bonus. Wu Xiaoheng was still suspicious. What kind of lawsuit would have such a high bonus? Although the house Gu Nianji wanted to buy was a second-hand house, it was still in the school district. It had one of the best elementary school districts in the entire imperial capital. If it weren't for the average elementary and high school districts, Gu Nianji wouldn't have been able to afford it even if it was a second-hand house. Even a small two-bedroom house cost nearly 2 million. 2 million was nothing to Wu Xiaoheng. He had spent more than that on Hermes bags for Gu Nianji in the past. But to Gu Nianji, especially since she was determined to draw a line with Wu Xiaoheng and return all her bank cards and investment accounts to him, this was a huge sum of money. Seeing that Wu Xiaoheng still didn't believe her despite her explanation, Gu Nianji grew angry. She laughed coldly and flung Wu Xiaoheng's hand away. Then where did Mr. Hua think I got the money? Illegal income? Wu Xiaoheng was silent. Nianji, that's not what I meant. I don't care what you mean. My money is legal income. I paid taxes and was on the payroll. I can't help it if you don't believe me. Now please move aside. Don't stop me from buying the house. Gu Nianji's eyes were almost filled with tears. She pushed Wu Xiaoheng's hand away and hurried over to the real estate agent and the owner. Wu Xiaoheng moved very quickly. As soon as Gu Nianji flung his hand away, he took a step forward and quickly grabbed her. His large hand tightened slightly and wrapped around Gu Nianji's arm like an iron clamp, causing her to feel a dull pain. Let go. Gu Nianji turned around and glared at Wu Xiaoheng angrily. Her large, dark eyes were crystal clear, but she stubbornly raised her head and didn't let the tears fall. Wu Xiaoheng looked at Gu Nianji and felt slightly vexed. His words had hurt her again. The current Gu Nianji was as sensitive as a bird startled by the mere twang of a bough. Even the slightest sign of trouble would make her bristle with thorns, especially in front of him. It was as if the frightened child from 7 years ago had returned to him. Or perhaps the frightened child had never left or grown up. In the past, he had given her a sense of security, so she had hidden very well, and no one had been able to find her. Until her safe haven was broken and she had nowhere to hide. She emerged again and stared warily at the world that made her feel uneasy. He suddenly understood that the more feeling she had invested in him, the more hurt she would receive. Others might not be able to empathize with her fear and despair, but as the person she loved deeply, how could he not know? Wu Xiaoheng suppressed the sourness and pain in his heart and said in a low voice, Nianji, it's not that I don't trust you. Gu Nianji closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Her full, perky chest rose and fell. Wu Xiaoheng glanced at the people next to him who were already staring at them. He was displeased and extended his long arm to pull Gu Nianji into his embrace. He used his broad back to block the people's view, then turned around to look at them. His gaze was piercingly cold and full of pressure. With one glance, the people hurriedly looked away and didn't dare to stare at Gu Nianji again. Gu Nianji didn't appreciate it. She whispered to Wu Xiaoheng, Wu Xiaoheng, I've said it before. You can't hug me whenever you want. You're harassing me. Wu Xiaoheng was speechless. He looked down at Gu Nianji in his arms and slowly let go. I'm sorry. Gu Nianji took a step back and walked out of his warm embrace. Wu Xiaoheng, I'm going to buy the house and transfer the ownership. I hope you won't follow me. Her gaze was vigilant and guarded. It was like an arrow piercing Wu Xiaoheng's heart. Wu Xiaoheng nodded and didn't move. He just watched her walk away step by step to the side of the real estate agent and the owner of the house. The few of them went to the real estate bureau to complete the paperwork. People came and went in the hall. They were all busy with their own things. Only Wu Xiaoheng stood there alone. Although he was in the middle of a bustling city, it was like he was in an uninhabited valley. The people coming and going were no different from plants in his eyes. He could only see Gu Nianji. Her every frown, every smile, every move, even though they were so far apart to him, it was as if she was by his side. As long as he could see her from afar, he would be happy and willing to endure hardship. Yin Shixiang and Ma Qiqi chatted outside for a while before arriving at the real estate bureau's work hall. As soon as they entered, they saw Wu Xiaoheng alone against the wall on the right side of the hall. He stood as straight as a pine tree, and his military posture was unmistakably on display. Wu Xiao, where's Nianji? Ma Qiqi asked curiously. She turned her head to look around the hall. Wu Xiaoheng pointed in a direction. Over there. She went to complete the paperwork. Ma Qiqi quickly ran over. Nianji. Why are you doing the paperwork alone? Why didn't Hua Xiao come with you? Ma Chichi came to Gu Nianji's side and gently patted her shoulder in greeting. Gu Nianji turned around to see Ma Chichi. She smiled and took her hand. Come, help me look at these documents. My eyes are going blind. Gu Nianji was amazed that there were so many documents to sign for the transfer of a house. Ma Chichi quickly took the documents from Gu Nianji and began reading them. Yin Shixiang stood beside Hua Xiaoheng and scratched his head. He looked in the direction Ma Chichi had disappeared and asked Hua Xiaoheng carefully, Hua Xiao, what's wrong? Hua Xiaoheng ignored him. He continued to fold his hands behind his back and simply looked at the people in the real estate bureau. Whether it was the staff or the citizens who came to complete the transfer or purchase procedures, he took in all of them. Yin Shixiang saw that Gu Nianji must be making a fuss again. He said, why don't I go see how they're doing? The two girls have never bought a house before. Be careful not to get scammed. Hua Xiaoheng didn't comment but didn't object. Yin Shixiang knew that he agreed. When he arrived at the small room Gu Nianji and Ma Chichi were in, Yin Shixiang smiled and nodded at the real estate agent and the owner of the house. He extended his hand. I'm Big Xiong. Nianji is my sister. I came to see how things are going. The real estate agent and the owner of the house thought Yin Shixiang was Gu Nianji's cousin. Seeing that he had thick eyebrows, big eyes, and a handsome appearance, they liked him very much. They came over to shake his hand and chatted. Yin Shixiang observed their expressions as he spoke to them. He was relieved to see that they were all decent people. After Yin Shixiang arrived, Gu Nianji and the others obviously sped up. Not long after, all the necessary documents were signed, and the procedures at the real estate bureau were also completed. The sale would be complete once Gu Nianji transferred the balance of the house payment. Of course, it would take at least a month to complete all the procedures, but the main procedures were completed. The owner of the house received the balance and immediately gave the keys to Gu Nianji. She could totally move in now that she had taken the house. Thank you, Miss Gu. You can look for me again if you need anything in the future. The real estate agent gave Gu Nianji a business card before leaving. Gu Nianji nodded and smiled. It was a pleasure working with you. Gu Nianji took the keys to the lobby and immediately saw Hua Xiaoheng standing out like a sore thumb. He was already extraordinarily handsome to begin with, and with the addition of his military uniform, he was so handsome that even God would be enraged. Many women in the lobby looked at him, intentionally or unintentionally, and used the opportunity to borrow a pen or ask for directions to strike up a conversation. Hua Xiaoheng didn't speak much, but he wasn't as cold as ice. He was mildly polite and distant, making it even more irresistible. Seeing Gu Nianji, Yin Shixiang, and Ma Chichi walk over, Hua Xiaoheng went to greet them. It's all done? He looked at Gu Nianji as he spoke. His voice was rare and gentle, and his pleasant voice had the effect of soothing people's hearts. Gu Nianji had just become part of the propertied class, so she was happy. Once she was in a good mood, she became much more magnanimous. She didn't mind Hua Xiaoheng's lack of trust in her just now. She nodded with a smile and carried a large envelope full of documents. It's all done. I'm going over there to take a look now. If you guys are busy, you can go back first. Looking outside the real estate bureau, it was already getting late. Hua Xiaoheng shook his head. I'm free today. He then said, since you've already bought it, let's go take a look together. Gu Nianji didn't object and got into Hua Xiaoheng's new car with Ma Chichi. They headed in the direction of the Hepingli district. When they arrived at the entrance of the district, Gu Nianji took out the key card from the large envelope and swiped it at Yin Shixiang's car entrance. The bar in front slowly rose, and they drove all the way to the underground parking lot. From there they went up to the 6th floor. Gu Nianji bought unit 602. It was one of the 2 units facing south on this floor, and it was the larger one. Opening the door, she saw that everything inside had been moved out. The house was very clean, and it seemed to be more spacious than the last time she saw it. Ma Chichi walked through all the rooms inside and out inside. This house is really nice. The key is that it's well renovated. It's grand and the materials look authentic. Although it's a second-hand house, it's been maintained very well. Gu Nianji nodded in agreement. Yes, I liked this apartment the first time I saw it online. Later, when I saw it in person, I also thought it was very nice. Hua Xiaoheng also looked through it, but he and Yin Shixiang saw it from a different angle than Ma Chichi. The two of them walked around the house, then Hua Xiaoheng said to Gu Nianji, we need to change the locks first. Nianji, I'll help you install some security measures in this house. The things Hua Xiaoheng and his men installed were definitely life-saving items. Gu Nianji didn't refuse pretentiously and said sincerely, sure, thank you very much. I originally wanted to find a security company to install a security system. I'll be more at ease if you guys install it. Yin Shixiang smiled and patted her head. You know what's good for you. Of course we're better than a security company. Gun Yinji pursed her lips and smiled. She suddenly remembered something and stopped smiling. She said to Hua Xiaoheng seriously, "You're not allowed to install bugs and pinhole cameras in my house." Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. This was the first watch. He had to remind them about the recommendation tickets. There was a second watch at 7 p.m. Moi. Chapter 726. Hua Xiaoheng didn't comment. He looked around and said, "When do you plan on moving in? It's best to renovate this place." Gun Yinji didn't let him change the topic and waved at him. "Hua Xiaoheng, did you hear that? You're not allowed to install bugs and pinhole cameras in my house." Hua Xiaoheng looked at Gun Yinji seriously and asked calmly, "Am I that low?" Gun Yinji was speechless. She looked away and muttered, "I was just reminding you. Do I need you to remind me? You're questioning my professional ability." Hua Xiaoheng spread his hands at Gun Yinji. "Give me the key. I'll install it for you before you move in. Then remember, you can't let me install bugs and pinhole cameras in the house. You promised?" Gun Yinji took out the key and shook it. She was very concerned about personal privacy and was very familiar with the infiltration methods of the Special Operations Forces, so she had to be upfront. Hua Xiaoheng was willing to provide her with security measures, of course, but he couldn't cross her bottom line. "Okay, when do you plan on moving in?" Gun Yinji wasn't in a hurry. She just needed to finish the house before she graduated. However, she didn't tell Hua Xiaoheng and only said, "The sooner the better. Otherwise, I won't have anywhere to go during winter break." Hua Xiaoheng glanced at her and took the key. He turned to call Yin Shixiang. "Big Xiong, come out for a second." Yin Shixiang quickly ran over and the two of them went to the door to discuss installing security measures. "Hua Xiao, you're really not going to install it?" Yin Shixiang asked in a very low voice. But he knew that it had to be installed. Hua Xiaoheng looked up at Gun Yinji and continued to say calmly, "Of course. But not in the house. Install it at the door, in the hallway, in the elevator, at the entrance to the residential area, on the walls, and in the underground parking lot. All the windows here have cords that are connected to our alarm system." He looked around the house again. "Redecorate everything here. Find the best renovation company. Get someone to keep an eye on it and tear it down from the inside out. Otherwise they wouldn't be at ease. This was their occupational disease." Yin Shixiang laughed and gave Hua Xiaoheng a thumbs up. "Brilliant. It's too high." If that was the case, there would be no pinhole cameras or wiretaps in the house, but the entire apartment would still be under surveillance. Even if a bird stopped outside the window, they would know. Even if Gun Yinji found out about it in the future, it wouldn't make Hua Xiao look low. Because he didn't break his promise to Gun Yinji, he wouldn't pretend in the house. Key point, inside the house. Gun Yinji watched Hua Xiaoheng and Yin Shixiang discuss something at the door. Both of them had serious expressions on their faces. She blinked, turned around and pulled Ma Chichi to look at the balcony. The balcony of this apartment was enclosed. The previous owner had built a small tatami there. It was very comfortable to step on it barefoot. The large floor-to-ceiling windows were covered with a dark green bamboo curtain that could be rolled up. Then, the primrose yellow soft gauze curtains on both sides of the window would be lowered. Facing the melting moonlight outside the window, the artistic conception would be very beautiful. Ma Chichi pointed at the tatami and said with a smile, "I'll give you a set of tatami furniture, a small cabinet, 2 cushions, a small coffee table and an imperial concubine recliner. Put them here. On the weekends, you and I can drink tea, chat and watch dramas here. Alright, we can put a large LCD TV here." Gun Yinji crossed her arms and listened with interest as Ma Chichi imagined the beautiful future. She couldn't help but be fascinated by it. "Okay, hang a pot of spider plants here, preferably the ones that have already bloomed. Also put a row of succulents on the windowsill." Ma Chichi nodded vigorously. "Succulents are good. I can only raise succulents, the other flowers and plants are all dead in my hands." Gun Yinji laughed. "What a coincidence. Me too. We really have something in common now." When Hua Xiaoheng and Yin Shixiang finished talking, it was already past 6 o'clock. "Let's go have dinner and then send them back." Hua Xiaoheng raised his chin towards the house. Yin Shixiang happily agreed and entered the house to say loudly, "Ladies, please do us the honor of having dinner with us." Before Gun Yinji could refuse, Ma Chichi already burst out laughing. She pointed at Yin Shixiang and said, "Okay. Brother Xiong, you better be prepared to pay the bill. Be careful we don't eat you broke." Yin Shixiang waved at them. Okay, no problem. As long as you can afford it, I'll even take out a loan for you. Brother Xiong, you're too much. You want to take out a loan just to have dinner with you? Do you want to go Dutch? Gu Nianji smiled ambiguously and patted Ma Qiqi's shoulder. Today is my big day to buy a house. It's my treat. Tell me, where do you want to eat? Ma Qiqi immediately said, it's great that Nianji is treating. Our school's #1 cafeteria is pretty good. I really like the chili stir-fry. Let's go to #1? Yin Shixiang knew Ma Qiqi was trying to help Gu Nianji save money, so he couldn't help but nod. He felt that although this girl appeared to be careless, she was actually quite meticulous and considerate. He liked her even more. Wu Xiaoheng checked on his phone at the door and walked in. There's a Cantonese restaurant nearby. Let's go check it out. It's my treat. Ma Qiqi immediately clasped her hands together and said to Wu Xiaoheng, Hu Xiao is treating. Then I'll definitely bother you. Gu Nianji was speechless. Wu Xiaoheng and Yin Shixiang turned to go downstairs. Gu Nianji and Ma Qiqi followed behind them. Gu Nianji glared at Ma Qiqi. Are you looking down on me? I wouldn't dare to look down on you. Ma Qiqi was about to cry injustice. That's because I've never eaten Hu Xiao's treat before. Just let me satisfy you this once. I can brag about it for a year if I eat a treat from a national high-ranking official. Gu Nianji was amused by her and patted her lightly. Look at how capable you are. I'm warning you, don't talk nonsense to other people. Be careful of getting into trouble. I know. I won't say who did it. But you have to satisfy my normal citizen mentality. Ma Qiqi pulled on Gu Nianji's arm and whispered in her ear. I offended him before. I'm trying my best to please him now. I hope he can forget that scene and doesn't think about messing with me in the future. Gu Nianji thought to herself, why would someone like Hu Xiaoheng care about something like that? However, she could understand Ma Qiqi's worries. If she hadn't been lucky enough to meet Hu Xiaoheng when she was young, her mentality now would be even worse than Ma Qiqi's. She would probably have to avoid people like Hu Xiaoheng. They got into Hu Xiaoheng's car and went to a nearby Cantonese restaurant for dinner. Cantonese cuisine was particular about fragrant, soft, tender, thick, and loose. Soup was a must-have. Ma Qiqi also liked Cantonese cuisine. She took the menu and didn't hesitate to order steamed ribs and black bean sauce, peony stuffed with 100 flowers, crab roast stewed with snake soup, and crab balls in clear broth. Yin Shixiang saw this and ordered a white-cut chicken and seafood marinated platter. Gu Nianji looked at it and thought it was enough, so she only ordered a basket of shrimp dumplings as an appetizer. Wu Xiaoheng looked at the menu and ordered the most famous duck soup with winter melon and barley rice. The weather was getting cold, so Gu Nianji needed nourishment. Both the host and guests enjoyed the dinner. Ma Qiqi even drank some wine. Her little face was flushed and her large, watery eyes were very attractive. It was already past 8 by the time they finished eating, so Wu Xiaoheng and Yin Shixiang sent Gu Nianji and Ma Qiqi back to the dorms. Wu Xiaoheng and Yin Shixiang got in the car and left B University after seeing them settle in. Yin Shixiang drove onto the highway. Wu Xiaoheng sat in the car silently for a while before saying to Yin Shixiang, go to the military compound and return to the Hua residence. There was only one military compound in the imperial capital, and that was where the higher-ups lived. Wu Xiaoheng's home was also there, but he hadn't been there for a long time. Yin Shixiang turned onto the highway to the military compound. There was no traffic at all, so they arrived in only half an hour. Wu Xiaoheng got out of the car and looked at the small building with its own front and courtyard. He walked in with an indifferent expression. There were guards on both sides of the large iron gate. When they saw it was Wu Xiaoheng, they all saluted him. Hello, Chief. Wu Xiaoheng raised his hand and walked inside without stopping. When he reached the entrance of the mansion, the orderly standing guard at the door greeted him loudly. Hello, Chief. Wu Xiaoheng nodded. Thank you for your hard work. Wu Xiaoheng's father, Wu Guanchen, was reading the military internal reference in the living room. When he heard the orderlies greeting him, he put down the internal reference in his hand and looked towards the door. When Wu Xiaoheng's figure appeared at the entrance, Wu Guanchen smiled but quickly hid it. He put on a serious expression again and picked up the internal reference to read. Wu Xiaoheng walked to the living room and stood in front of Wu Guanchen. He said calmly, General Hua, I have something to ask you. Wu Guanchen was speechless. He didn't even greet his father. Did he want to die? Wu Guanchen felt uncomfortable. He looked up at Wu Xiaoheng and said coldly, say it here. This is confidential. You'll make a mistake if you say it here. Wu Xiaoheng put his hands in his trouser pockets and stared at Wu Guanchen. I'll make a mistake? Are you kidding me? Huo Guanchen was furious. He threw away the internal reference in his hand and stood up. What kind of attitude is that? Is it not a mistake to violate confidentiality laws? Hua Xiaoheng's voice turned cold. You better have a real secret to say. Otherwise, Huo Guanchen turned and walked upstairs to the study. Hua Xiaoheng looked around. Huo Guanchen was the only one in the large living room. It used to be bustling with people everywhere. Grandfather Hua had brought his head nurse Zhang's son, daughters-in-law, and grandchildren to fill the place. His mother, Song Jining, had been seriously ill at the time. There was a dedicated nurse who lived here 24 hours a day to take care of her. Bai Jini from the Bai family would come here every now and then to spend the night. Hua Xiaoheng's eyes dimmed. He followed Huo Guanchen to the study. What do you want to say? Huo Guanchen sat behind the desk and rested his arms on the armrests of the chair. He frowned and asked Hua Xiaoheng with an impatient expression. Hua Xiaoheng crossed his arms and looked down at Huo Guanchen. He said in a low voice, General Hua, I want to know why you didn't carry out General Ji's order to rescue Gu Nianji when she went missing in Germany. It was the second watch. A reminder for the recommendation tickets. Good night, dear friends. Chapter 727. What do you mean? You haven't been home for so long and you're blaming me the moment you get home. Do you still recognize me as your father? Huo Guanchen was furious at Hua Xiaoheng's attitude. The son he was so proud of had always been at odds with him. General Hua, we're talking about official matters. Please don't change the subject. Hua Xiaoheng knocked on the table to signal for Huo Guanchen to calm down. The corners of Huo Guanchen's eyes twitched. He took several deep breaths to calm himself down. Someone knocked on the door and eased the tense atmosphere in the room. An orderly had come to deliver tea and snacks. Huo Guanchen called out, Come in. An orderly placed the tea and snacks on Huo Guanchen's desk. Hua Xiaoheng didn't make a sound. He waited for the orderly to leave before calmly asking, The Special Operations Forces has already started an investigation into this matter. General Hua, if you have any difficulties you can tell me. This is the best I can do for you as your son. If you have no difficulties, then wait for the higher-ups to deal with it. Are you threatening me? Huo Guanchen narrowed his eyes. Xiaoheng, you're going against your biological father for a woman you have nothing to do with. If word gets out, your career will be ruined too. General Hua, I said this is official business. If you insist on not distinguishing between official and private matters, then let's talk about private matters. Hua Xiaoheng placed both hands on the desk and leaned forward. Gu Nianji will be your daughter-in-law. Is this how you treat your own family? Can't you wait to kill her? Huo Guanchen slammed the desk and stood up. He glared at Hua Xiaoheng. Daughter-in-law? Did you ask your old man for permission? If I say no, are you going to marry her? Hua Xiaoheng straightened and put his hands in his trouser pockets. He smiled. I didn't need your permission to marry her. I was just informing you. Okay, since you don't want to talk about private matters, then let's get back to business. May I ask why you disobeyed General Ji's orders and didn't rescue Gu Nianji with the highest standards? Huo Guanchen glared at Hua Xiaoheng for a long time. Seeing that his son wasn't backing down, he had no choice. He snorted and sat down again. He said angrily, Why didn't I rescue her with the highest standards? Everything I did was in line with the rules. It was just that our field personnel went missing, so we had to temporarily stop the operation. It's useless even if you take him to the military court. So you're saying that you deliberately didn't do anything to save Gu Nianji, right? Hua Xiaoheng's voice grew louder. His voice was deeper and more threatening when he was angry. Of course, Huo Guanchen wasn't intimidated by Hua Xiaoheng, but he was shocked by Hua Xiaoheng's obsession with Gu Nianji. Xiaoheng, how could you do this? You really don't care about anything else. You just want to marry Gu Nianji? Huo Guanchen was so heartbroken that he almost begged Hua Xiaoheng. Wake up. You're not suitable for her. His good son was going to be ruined because of this relationship that should not have appeared. What a sin. How sinful. Huo Guanchen sat down and propped his head on the desk. Xiaoheng, think about it carefully. You were once her guardian. She's been with you since she was 12. Do you know what people will say about you? Just thinking about it makes me blush for you. Hua Xiaoheng snorted and said slowly, General Hua, what you did in the past is even more embarrassing. Since you don't even blush, why would I blush over such a small thing? This is a family tradition. If word gets out, it'll be a great story. You're still blaming me for divorcing your mother, aren't you? Huo Guanchen looked up from the desk and looked at Hua Xiaoheng. His eyes were red. It's not like you don't know what happened back then. When I saw the letters between your mother and uncle, I almost went crazy. I'm human. I'm a man. I can't stand it if I'm a man. Hua Xiaoheng didn't sympathize with him at all. He said coldly, "You believe whatever people say. Did you grow a brain just to listen to slander? Have you ever thought about how Mother felt? Mother was so sick that she couldn't defend herself, but you had already sentenced her. General Hua, other people might be able to gossip about me and Yanji, but you can't. You could even abandon your sick wife and you still have the cheek to criticize me? I've never given up on your mother. If it wasn't for me, she wouldn't have been able to live to see the day she was cured." Hua Guanchen felt a lump in his throat. His voice was already choking. "Xiaoheng, I sincerely advise you not to marry Gun Yanji. I can understand your feelings for her. All the men in the Hua family are infatuated. There's nothing we can do about it. If you like her, love her, or can't bear to give up on her, that's fine. You can keep her by your side for the rest of your life. I won't interfere. When she has a child in the future, I'll allow him to have the Hua surname. He'll still be my grandson. But you have to promise me that you won't marry her. You need to marry a girl from a respectable family, not someone like Gun Yanji." Even though she was Gu Xiangwen's adopted daughter, Hua Guanchen didn't like her. Not to mention the fact that an adopted daughter couldn't be compared to a biological daughter. One only had to look for her when she disappeared at the age of 12 to know her status in the Gu family. Those people in the military disregarded your future and tried their best to get you and Gun Yanji together just for Gu Xiangwen's patent. Do you think they're doing it for your own good? Have you ever thought that as long as you marry Gun Yanji, your future will stop at the rank of a major general? They'll also have one less strong competitor. Hua Guanchen's eyes were red. Only I would truly consider for you. Only biological parents would disregard their own personal gains and losses to consider your future. Hua Xiaoheng frowned. "General Hua, don't add to the drama. I came back to ask you questions, not to listen to your nonsense." "I'm not talking nonsense. I'm telling you the truth." Hua Guanchen slammed the table. "I won't let Gun Yanji become the only stain on your political career. Then you're indirectly admitting that you were slacking on rescuing Gun Yanji because you wanted to get someone else to do your dirty work. You wanted those people to get rid of Gun Yanji for you, right?" Hua Xiaoheng's expression grew even colder. His gaze cut into Hua Guanchen's conscience like a knife. Hua Guanchen gritted his teeth and forced himself to say, "Don't talk nonsense. I never wanted Gun Yanji to die, and I would never get someone else to do my dirty work." He only hoped that Gun Yanji would leave Hua Xiaoheng and never come back. "General Hua, you have a subjective motive and an objective action. It's hard for me to cover for you. When the higher-ups come to investigate, I can only tell them the truth." Hua Xiaoheng saluted Hua Guanchen. "Goodbye. Stop right there." Hua Guanchen wasn't worried about the military's investigation at all. He called out to Hua Xiaoheng. "Your grandfather and Jialan will be returning to the country in 2 days to attend the new Prime Minister's inauguration. Remember to pick them up at the airport?" Hua Xiaoheng left the Hua residence without looking back. Hua Guanchen didn't even know if he heard him. Hua Xiaoheng returned to the car. His mind was a mess and he couldn't help but open all the windows. The cold wind of the late autumn night in the imperial capital finally calmed down his slightly agitated emotions. Hua Xiaoheng propped his chin on the car door and looked at the night view outside. His mind kept thinking about the next step. In Germany, the person who directly abused Gun Yanji had already been executed. Reinitz was a bit strange. Although Gun Yanji was indebted to him, he was the one who set up the entire trap. He didn't know why he let Yanji go at the last moment. That was a mystery for now. Also, his rank was too high, so they couldn't do anything to him for now. In the United States, the director of the CIA's Asian Intelligence Division, James, had become his spy. As long as someone from their side contacted the United States, Hua Xiaoheng believed that he would receive clues soon. In the Huaxia Empire, Hua Xiaoheng had already set up all sorts of listening devices. As long as the other party had the intention of making a move again, he would be able to catch them red-handed. He had already decided that when the time came, he must kill them on the spot. He couldn't leave anyone alive. So before that, he had to quietly observe and see who would be the first to lose control. When the tide went down, he would know who was swimming naked. After going through all the plans in his mind and making sure he didn't miss anything, Hua Xiaoheng finally closed his eyes and rubbed his temples. He couldn't get Gun Yanji's figure out of his mind. He longed for her immensely, but she was so close, yet he couldn't take a step closer to her. Hua Xiaoheng's eyes darkened when he thought about how Gun Yanji was so resistant to his embrace in the real estate bureau's lobby today. Like an eternal night, not a single star could be seen. After returning to the official residence at the headquarters of the Special Operations Forces, Zhao Liangzi came to see him with the invitation that General Ji had sent. Huo, General Ji wants you to attend the inauguration of the new Prime Minister. It's in 2 days. Zhao Liangzi placed the invitation on Huo Xiaoheng's desk. Big Xiong and I also received the invitation. Huo Xiaoheng took it and looked at it before setting it aside. He said to Zhao Liangzi, "You can attend on behalf of the Special Operations Forces. Big Xiong and I have other things to do." "Yes, Chief." Zhao Liangzi accepted the order and said, "What should I say if General Ji asks about you and Big Xiong?" He originally thought Huo Xiaoheng would say he was busy with work or had an urgent mission. He only wanted confirmation from Huo Xiaoheng so he could reply to General Ji. However, Huo Xiaoheng thought about it for a while and crossed his arms in front of his chest. He said calmly, "Yes, I'll have a fever in 2 days and Big Xiong will have diarrhea. Just say it." Zhao Liangzi was speechless. Was it really okay to be so willful? Zhao Liangzi's face turned purple and finally said, "Huo Xiao, this way everyone will know you're being perfunctory." It was obvious that he didn't want to attend the inauguration of the new Prime Minister. If they know, then they know. I didn't want to hide it from them. Huo Xiaoheng's lips twitched. He didn't want to continue this topic. "You and Big Xiong have to carry out your duties as the Deputy Chief of the Special Operations Forces as soon as possible. When I'm not around, you and Big Xiong have to work together. The 3 of us can't leave the headquarters at the same time. What happened last time cannot happen again." "Yes, Chief." Zhao Liangzi saluted to show that he remembered. He put down his hands and said angrily, "Huo Xiao, are we just going to forget about what happened last time?" They had obviously been lured away from their base. If only he, Yin Shixiang or Huo Xiaoheng had been in the Huaxia Empire at that time, Gunyinji wouldn't have had a narrow escape and almost lost her life in a foreign country. This was the first watch. A reminder about the recommendation tickets. There was a second watch at 7 p.m. Moi. Chapter 728. Huo Xiaoheng didn't reply to Zhao Liangzi's question at all. He only silently turned on the computer on his desk and threw a memo to Zhao Liangzi at the same time. There were 4 words on the cover: "Leave no one alive." Zhao Liangzi nodded heavily and sighed softly. He clenched his fist and punched the palm of his other hand. "I'm relieved to know that you won't let them go. We can't let Nianji suffer for nothing. Also, I want to vomit when I think about these people stabbing us in the back while we're out on a dangerous mission." All the field personnel at the Special Operations Forces headquarters base were furious about this incident. They weren't afraid of bloodshed, sacrifice, or the cunning of their enemies. What they were most afraid of and most pained about was being betrayed by their own people. Huo Xiaoheng was also angry, but he couldn't express it as openly as Zhao Liangzi. He only waved his hand and told him to go make arrangements without worry. At the same time, he called Yin Shixiang in and said, "General Ji wants you and Little Zhe to attend the inauguration of the new Prime Minister. Do you want to go?" Yin Shixiang froze. "I'll go if Huo Xiao goes." He was working for Huo Xiao anyway, so he would go if Huo Xiao wanted him to go. As for General Ji, there was still a layer of separation. Huo Xiaoheng grunted. "I'll have Little Zhe attend on behalf of our forces. You don't have to go. Come with me on a trip in 2 days." "Yes, Chief." Yin Shixiang had no interest in the inauguration of the new Prime Minister at all. In reality, the Special Operations Forces ran as far away as possible from such public events. They didn't want to get involved at all. General Ji actually didn't want them to go either, but Tan Dongbang's Prime Minister's office repeatedly called him. Later, even the Prime Minister's wife, Kai Sangyin, personally visited him and solemnly expressed her gratitude to the Special Operations Forces for specially rescuing her daughter, Tan Guerin. That was why she specifically asked the Prime Minister's office for 3 tickets to the best seats. She even emphasized that these 3 tickets were with the Tan's VIP seats and wouldn't arouse any suspicions. General Ji was very uncomfortable, but because of the Tan and Kai families, he didn't reject her outright. However, when the invitation was sent to the Special Forces, Zhao Liangzi reported to him that Huo Xiao and Big Xiong were not feeling well, so he was the only one who could attend. General Ji smiled with satisfaction and said kindly to Zhao Liangzi, "Since Xiaoheng and Big Xiong are both sick, you are the only person in charge of the Special Forces. It wouldn't be good to transfer you away to attend the inauguration, so you have to stay. How about this? I'll help you tell Mrs. Tan that we appreciate their good intentions, but it's a pity that the heavens don't follow our wishes. We have no other choice, ha ha ha." Zhao Liangzi was speechless. After hanging up, Zhao Liangzi thought about it carefully and couldn't help but admire Huo Xiaoheng even more. If they could win General Ji over to their side, it would be convenient for them to do anything. This was the convenience of using the tiger's skin as a flag. On Saturday night, General Ji personally called Prime Minister Tan Dongbang's wife, Kai Songyin. Mrs. Tan, what a coincidence. Xiaoheng and Big Xiong are both sick. One has a fever and the other has diarrhea. They won't be able to attend Prime Minister Tan's inauguration tomorrow. Please apologize to Prime Minister Tan on our behalf. And little Zay, because Xiaoheng and Big Xiong are both sick, little Zay can't leave. This is confidential, so please understand. Kai Songyin frowned. General Ji Huoxiao is sick? What illness? How come two people are sick at once? Is there anything serious? Do you want me to bring a doctor to take a look at him? Dr. Kai from the Imperial Capital Harmony Hospital is my cousin. Her medical skills are very good. The corners of General Ji's mouth twitched. He couldn't stand Kai Songyin's overbearing attitude anymore. Things in politics were all about a tacit understanding. Basically, they wouldn't openly fall out with each other. Xiaoheng was using such an obvious excuse to not attend the inauguration to express his dissatisfaction with the Tans, so he wouldn't help them. Ever since Xiaoheng's conversation with General Ji that night, General Ji had accepted his point of view. He believed that someone was indeed trying to drive a wedge between him and Xiaoheng. Therefore he was even more dissatisfied with the Tans. He was even more unwilling for his own general to be their bearer. Most importantly, one was the military and the other was the cabinet. They needed to avoid suspicion, and it was best not to get involved if possible. Xiaoheng was General Ji's designated successor. He absolutely didn't want Xiaoheng to leave the impression that he was currying favor everywhere. He was a soldier and he relied on his own abilities and risked his life for his future. He was completely different from the Tans who relied on their glib tongues and tricks to get elected. Haha, Mrs. Tan, are you saying this because you don't trust the doctors from the military 314 General Hospital? You might not know, but our national miracle doctor, Little Chen, is currently working as a resident doctor at Xiaoheng's base, General Ji said sarcastically before hanging up. Kai Songyin hadn't reacted yet when she realized General Ji had already hung up. She couldn't help but be very unhappy. That's so rude. As expected, soldiers are all uncouth. Kai Songyin secretly criticized General Ji. Of course, she wouldn't dare to say it out loud even if she had 10 times the courage. She went to the study to find her husband, Tan Dongbang. Dongbang, Huoxiao and the other two won't be coming tomorrow. What do you think is going on? Kai Songyin sat on the sofa angrily and took a sip of tea. I took special care of Huoxiao, so I asked someone to call and invite him first. Then I sent an official invitation for General Ji to pass on, but they actually said they were sick and couldn't come. Kai Songyin didn't believe that Xiaoheng and the others were sick at all. She thought it was an excuse. Xiaoheng didn't waste any effort to find an excuse. He wanted to express his attitude and let them know that he didn't want to come. Why didn't they want to come? Figure it out yourself. Tan Dongbang was nervously preparing for his speech at the inauguration tomorrow. When he heard Kai Songyin's complaints, he felt that she was going overboard. He coughed and said, "Forget it. It's reasonable that they don't want to come. Think about it, they're a subordinate organization of the military. General Ji and the others are already here, so why do you need Huoxiao and the others to come? Also, Huoxiao personally helped us save our daughter. We can't thank him enough, so don't be so calculative." Kai Songyin was feeling very unhappy. She didn't expect Tan Dongbang to not only not comfort her and share the same hatred for the enemy, but also criticize her. She twisted her body and said unhappily, "How can you say that? Am I doing it for my own pride? I'm doing it for our baby daughter." Someone? Tan Dongbang frowned. What's wrong with her? Is she sick? I haven't seen her come out for meals for the past 2 days. She's sick. Kai Songyin beamed at the mention of her daughter. That's why I'm looking for medicine for her. What's wrong with her? Tan Dongbang was nervous. Although he only had one daughter, he loved her dearly and had truly raised her like a princess. Of course, Tan Guirin was also very sensible and obedient, so she never caused trouble for her parents. This time she had suffered greatly in the United States, so Tan Dongbang pitied her even more. His fatherly heart didn't know how to dote on her. What's wrong with her? Of course it's mental illness and lovesickness. Kai Songyin picked up the small round fan on the coffee table and waved it. Your daughter has fallen for you, but you won't help her as a father, so I have to do it. Tan Dongbang raised his head and stared at Kai Songyin for a long time before saying, You say she really likes Huoxiao? How could it be fake? Our daughter really has good taste. Kai Songyin clapped her hands together. I just spoke with Huoxiao's father, General Hua, on the phone yesterday. General Hua is very modest and refined, much better than General Ji. I didn't have a good impression of these soldiers to begin with. You know, both our families are centuries of scholarly families. Now that you're the Prime Minister, both of our families will be able to rise to the next level, so we have to be even more cautious when it comes to the marriages of nobles. But the Hua family is different. I got someone to investigate. Did you know? Although Hua Xiao's grandfather was of average birth, Hua Xiao's grandmother is actually a member of the Xie family. I really didn't know before. The Hua family is really low-key. Tan Dongbang's eyes lit up. Really? That's Xie family? In terms of established aristocratic families, the Tan and Kai families could only carry shoes for the Xie family. I understand. I've really troubled you all this time, madam. Tan Dongbang walked out from behind the desk with a smile and sat on the sofa next to Kai Songyin. He reached out to massage her shoulders. Come, Mrs. Tan, you must be tired. Your husband will help you loosen up. The couple had been childhood sweethearts since they were young, and their families were well matched. When they grew up, they naturally got married and had a good relationship. Kai Songyin was full of smiles as she patted the back of Tan Dongbang's hand. It's good that you understand me. This time, I originally wanted Hua Xiao to stand together with the nobles like a family. That way, if we broadcast it live on national television, it'll basically be a done deal. Who would have thought that Hua Xiaoheng would completely ignore such a great honor? Tan Dongbang thought about it for a while and said after careful consideration, your idea is good, but Hua Xiaoheng is probably not someone who is willing to use his wife's connections. Also, think about it, his grandmother is the daughter of the Xie family, so why would he need to use our connections? So we have to change our method. We can't push him too hard. More haste makes waste. Okay, I'll listen to you. Anyway, it's for our daughter's lifelong happiness. Although the Prime Minister's inauguration was the next day, the husband and wife who loved their child dearly still spent most of the night discussing how to help Tan Guiren win over Hua Xiaoheng, the son-in-law. At 10 o'clock on Saturday night, Gu Nianji rode her bike and carried her backpack as she returned from studying at the library. Under the dim yellow streetlights in front of the dormitory building, Gu Nianji saw the silver Bentley Bentayga SUV again, as well as the handsome man leaning against the SUV's door smoking. She sighed and parked her bike in the parking lot next to the dormitory building. Then she slowly walked over and stood in front of Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng threw away his cigarette and smiled at her. You're back so late? You don't even have a day off on Saturday? His expression had originally been solemn and silent, and there was an indescribable majesty in his handsome features. However, the moment he saw Gu Nianji, a faint smile appeared on his face. It was like a beam of warm light that illuminated the cold autumn night. This is the second watch. Let me remind you about the recommendation tickets. You should be able to get them tomorrow. I'm very anxious. Chapter 729. I told you on the phone that I'll be studying late. Gu Nianji considered her tone and words helplessly. Hua Xiaoheng had called her around 5 in the afternoon to say that he would pick her up for dinner and to celebrate her birthday at his official residence. Gu Nianji declined. She hadn't expected Hua Xiaoheng to still come and wait for her. She couldn't help wondering if he was worried about her or if he thought she was lying and had come to stop her. Either way, Gu Nianji didn't think she could bear it. She was also puzzled as to why she used to have the courage and ruthlessness to put all her heart on Hua Xiaoheng. Now it was like a dream. When she woke up, she was still familiar and close to him, but she no longer felt that she could only love him. The smile on Hua Xiaoheng's face didn't fade because of Gu Nianji's alienation. He took a step forward and reached out to her. Nianji, don't work too hard. Tomorrow. Gu Nianji interrupted him and looked up. Her expression was calmer than ever. Hua Xiaoheng, don't be like this. Don't waste any more time with me. Hua Xiaoheng's hand froze in midair and didn't land on Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji looked at his hand. His slender fingers were almost seductive. She remembered the temperature of his palm. It was dry and warm, but she didn't want to stay. Hua Xiaoheng, I know you can't let go of me right now. Believe me, you're just used to it. After so many years, you're used to taking care of me and protecting me. I was a mission given to you by the military. You completed it well. Really, you can retire now. I have to walk my own path in the future. You should have your own life and not revolve around me. Perhaps it was because she was young, but Gu Nianji's voice still had a tinge of innocence. The words that came out of her mouth were blunt and cruel, like a child who didn't know the ways of the world. Hua Xiaoheng slowly put down his hand and looked at her deeply. Gu Nianji also stared at Hua Xiaoheng. This was the first time she could clearly see what he looked like. As soon as she saw him, she didn't feel her heart beat faster and her eyes glaze over. She found that the shape of his eyes was really nice. His pupils were full and dark, bottomless, and the corners of his eyes were straight and firm. They did not slanted upwards, but they were very long, making his eyes look even deeper. When he looked at you quietly, there was a different kind of charm. Perhaps to him, this kind of posture was just out of politeness, but in the eyes of women, they couldn't wait to take this kind of charming eyes for themselves and not let him look at others. As Gu Nianji thought about this, the corners of her lips curled up into a relieved and mischievous smile. Hua Xiaoheng pursed his lips and acted like he hadn't heard what Gu Nianji had said. He continued what she had just interrupted. Tomorrow is your birthday. How do you want to celebrate it? Gu Nianji shook her head. I haven't decided yet, but I want to be alone. Are you really going to be so heartless? Hua Xiaoheng watched as Gu Nianji moved further and further away from him. It was very likely that he would only be able to look at her up close through satellites in the future. His eyes darkened, and the tumbling emotions were hidden in his dark eyes, like all the things on his mind that no one knew. Gu Nianji looked down. Let go. I know how painful it is to let go because that's how I got here. But it's better to get the pain over with. After the pain you'll know that it's no big deal. In this world, there's no such thing as a person who can't live without another person. Hua Xiaoheng quietly stared at Gu Nianji, from the top of her dark hair to her lowered neck. She was slender and charming like a white swan. Her shoulders were slanted, which was commonly known as a beauty's shoulders. She was tall and slender with a slender waist and long legs. She was one day away from turning 19, the age where she was as fresh as a flower. You really want to break up? Hua Xiaoheng narrowed his eyes, which had already turned dark. Are you sure? Yes. Gu Nianji nodded firmly. I'm very sure, very sure. I want to break up. Hua Xiaoheng sighed deeply and stared at Gu Nianji. Fine, if you promise me one thing, I'll break up with you. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving me for the rest of my life. Gu Nianji was speechless. She slowly looked up into Hua Xiaoheng's eyes. They were pitch black like a pitch black night. She couldn't tell what he was thinking. Promise you one thing? Yes, as long as you promise me one thing, I'll break up with you. I'm a man of my word. Hua Xiaoheng knocked on the window as he spoke. His posture was cold and stern. Qinlai, you testify. Qinlai, who had been huddled in the car, felt a chill from the bottom of his heart when he heard Hua Xiaoheng's voice and tone. Hua Xiao was going to make a big move and dig a big hole for Nianji to jump into. Was he going to pray for himself? Or was he going to risk his life to warn Nianji? Qinlai slowly poked his head out of the window and gave Gu Nianji a smile that was uglier than crying. Nianji, hello? Gu Nianji couldn't bear to look at Qinlai like this. She only glanced at him before looking away. Brother Qin, you're here too? She muttered to herself and blushed. She was very embarrassed. Hua Xiaoheng had come to see her and brought Qinlai with him. Wasn't he here to pester her like she thought? After all, who would bring a friend to do something like this? Even normal men wouldn't do something like this, let alone a man like Hua Xiaoheng. Could she have been wrong? Was what she said just now just an unrequited love? Gu Nianji was speechless and nodded slightly. Hello, Brother Qin. Hua Xiaoheng took a step back. Nianji, as long as you promise me one thing, we'll break up. Qinlai will be the witness. If I go back on my word. Gu Nianji quickly raised her hand to stop Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng, I believe you. You don't have to swear. In her heart, Hua Xiaoheng had always been a good man who kept his word. Of course, whether a good man was a good boyfriend or not was a different matter. Although she didn't love him anymore, she didn't want him to swear such an uncomfortable oath. Okay, what about you? Do you promise? Promise me one thing and we'll break up. Hua Xiaoheng said slowly and calmly as he leaned against the car door. Qinlai's round head poked out of the car window and looked at Gu Nianji worriedly. However, Hua Xiaoheng was standing right next to her. He wouldn't dare warn Gu Nianji even if he was beaten to death. Gu Nianji was a bit hesitant. She wasn't stupid and felt a bit strange about Hua Xiaoheng suddenly making such a request. Because in her impression, Hua Xiaoheng had never been that kind of person. Gu Nianji thought about it and didn't reply. You don't want to? Then that means you still have feelings for me. Hua Xiaoheng took a step forward and walked to Gu Nianji's side. He raised his hand to stroke the hair hanging down her forehead. His fingers were warm as they swept across her cheek. It was like a breeze blowing across the surface of the water, causing ripples. Let's not break up. It's your birthday tomorrow. I sent you a scarf as a birthday present before. I haven't asked if you received it in the past few days since I came back. It would have been better if he hadn't mentioned the scarf. Now that he mentioned the scarf, Gu Nianji remembered her days in Germany where she couldn't call for help every day. She also remembered the scene in the video that caused her to break down emotionally and then make up her mind to cut the Gordian knot. Tell me what your conditions are first. Gu Nianji gritted her teeth. She was indeed angered by Hua Xiaoheng, but she still had a trace of rationality left. It was impossible for her to agree to the other party's conditions without knowing anything. Moreover, even if she wanted to break up, what could Hua Xiaoheng do to her? It would just be an ugly fight between the two of them in the end. Hua Xiaoheng was stating his conditions now to give himself a dignified way out. Gu Nianji also didn't want the fight to be too ugly. She was still grateful to Hua Xiaoheng. If it wasn't from the perspective of a boyfriend, and only from the perspective of a guardian or a normal friend, Hua Xiaoheng was truly impeccable to her. She couldn't find any fault with him. I haven't thought about it yet. Hua Xiaoheng's voice was slow like the murmuring of a mountain stream. It had the power to cleanse people's hearts. I'll go back and think about it. I'll tell you tomorrow morning. Is that okay? He looked at Gu Nianji with a pleading look in his deep eyes. Gu Nianji couldn't help nodding. Okay. But I have to remind Mr. Hua not to make any requests that go against the law and morality. Even if I agree to these conditions now, the court will rule it invalid. Qinlai closed his eyes in the car. He knew what kind of person Hua Xiaoheng was. Even those veteran international spies had fallen at his hands. It would be a piece of cake for him to achieve his goals for a rookie like Gu Nianji. He just didn't expect Hua Xiaoheng to actually use this kind of method on Gu Nianji. He thought he loved her so much that he couldn't help himself. Now he realized that he loved her so much that he would do anything for her. He didn't know which one was more acceptable. But in Qinlai's cold eyes, no matter which one it was, Gu Nianji didn't care anymore. Hua Xiaoheng's actions would only push Gu Nianji further and further away. But when it came to relationships, it was like drinking water. Only one knew whether it was warm or cold. At the end of the day, he was just an outsider. He couldn't continue to get involved in other people's relationships. He wasn't a very good person when it came to relationships anyway, so he wouldn't blindly come up with ideas. Qinlai thought of Yi Zidan, and a faint sense of loss flashed in his eyes. Hua Xiaoheng sighed deeply, and a hurt expression appeared in his eyes. You really want to break up with me no matter what? Can't we go back? Gu Nianji pursed her lips and increased the distance between them. Mr. Hua, although I don't love you anymore, I still respect you. You won't destroy the last bit of good impression you have in my heart, will you? Hua Xiaoheng stopped smiling and nodded. His expression had already turned cold. Okay, I'll come find you at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning and tell you my conditions. Gu Nianji glanced at him and turned to leave. Hua Xiaoheng silently watched her silhouette disappear into the dormitory's lobby before turning to get into the car. He slammed on the accelerator, and the Bentley SUV roared and shot forward like an arrow. Speeding. Qinlai was so scared that he quickly fastened his seatbelt and grabbed the handle at the same time. He was almost thrown out. This was the first watch. It was the third watch today, so he had to first remind people about the recommendation tickets. The monthly ticket was 3,900 plus the first watch at 1 p.m. There was still the third watch at 7 p.m. Moi. Chapter 730. Hua Xiaoheng's expression was grim as he sped the entire way, even running several red lights. It took him less than 20 minutes to complete the 1.5-hour drive back to the Special Operations Forces headquarters. Qinlai got out of the car with a pale face and covered his mouth as he ran to the trash can outside Hua Xiaoheng's official residence to vomit. Hua Xiaoheng casually tossed the car keys to the orderly and walked to Qinlai's side. He asked dryly, "Car sick?" Qinlai wanted to roll his eyes. Are you driving a car or a fighter jet? Even a roller coaster isn't as fast as you. Qinlai vomited for a while before taking a tissue from his pocket to wipe his mouth and follow Hua Xiaoheng into his official residence. They sat down in Hua Xiaoheng's study. Hua Xiaoheng looked at Qinlai's expression and asked the orderly to make him a cup of black tea. Black tea warmed the stomach and could also relieve the nausea from car sickness. Qinlai drank a cup of black tea and slowly recovered. He slumped on the sofa and said weakly to Hua Xiaoheng, "Hua Xiao, please spare my life. I think I'll be the first to die in this relationship of yours." Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. He quietly turned on the computer and sent out orders. The person who received the orders immediately contacted the relevant personnel. Hua Xiaoheng lit a cigarette as he waited for a reply. He looked down and asked Qinlai, "How do you think Nianji's mental state is? Does she need counseling?" He had brought Qinlai to see Gu Nianji today because he wanted Qinlai to do a preliminary psychological evaluation of her and then decide on a treatment plan. Gu Nianji's experience in Germany had a huge psychological impact on her. Hua Xiaoheng would never forget that Gu Nianji had even had autistic tendencies when she was 12. However, because of her unusual trust and dependence on him, she hadn't completely closed her heart. Chun-Li recalled seeing Gu Nianji outside the graduate student dormitory today and mused, "From her complexion, I really can't see any psychological problems." "You can see psychological problems from her complexion?" Hua Xiaoheng frowned. "Are you sure?" "Hua Xiao, you don't understand. Psychological problems are also a type of illness. They definitely don't only manifest on the mental level. People with mental illnesses have different pupils, white of the eyes, skin color, and body movements from normal people. They can be diagnosed by looking, listening, questioning, and feeling the pulse." Chun-Li sat up straight, one hand on his knee, the other waving in the air, talking non-stop. These words were somewhat meaningful. "Go on." Hua Xiaoheng listened intently, deep in thought. "Nianji's pupils are round, the whites of her eyes are clear, and her skin is rosy and delicate. She has strong control over her own body. Although she is still very sad, it is not to the point of being out of control. In short, she has already gotten rid of her feelings for you. Hua Xiao, are you sure you want to stay with her?" Chun-Li asked carefully. Hua Xiaoheng had been his best friend for more than a decade, and he had watched Gu Nianji grow up. He had taken good care of her. Chun-Li didn't know who to persuade. What could he do? He was also in despair. Hua Xiaoheng replied calmly. His slender fingers flew across the keyboard as he typed out a series of commands. "You really won't let go?" Chun-Li stood up from the sofa and walked to the soft chair in front of Hua Xiaoheng's desk to sit down. He supported his head with one hand and slammed the table with the other. He frowned and said to Hua Xiaoheng, "You have to think this through. I'm afraid Nianji won't love you like before. Or rather, she doesn't love you at all. You still want to be with her? You can't force it to be sweet." Hua Xiaoheng's hand paused. He didn't know what program was running on the computer screen, but the flickering light reflected on his face. Chun-Li found that he couldn't see Hua Xiaoheng's expression at such a close distance. After a long time, Hua Xiaoheng glanced at Chun-Li and smiled faintly. "Deep love doesn't last long. It doesn't matter if Nianji loves me less. That way she can always be with me. Her pain and the knot in her heart were all because of him. If he didn't let her untie the knot, she would never be happy in this life." Emotions that were too intense and intelligence that were too sharp were like double-edged swords that hurt others and oneself. But Hua Xiaoheng felt that he was a man and so much older than her. In order to prevent her from hurting herself, he would rather be stabbed by her. As long as she was by his side, it was fine. Chun-Li was speechless. He suddenly felt like crying and pretended not to care as he looked up at the ceiling of the study. "Fine then. What do you want me to do?" Hua Xiaoheng continued tapping away on the keyboard as he said, "Are you going to the Prime Minister's inauguration tomorrow?" "They sent me an invitation, but I've already rejected it." Chun-Li was also a person who didn't like to show his face in public. In the past, his favorite hobby was medical research and his second favorite was Yi Zitan. But Yi Zitan's actions had disappointed him immensely. At the same time, he began to doubt his own taste. So now, his favorite and second favorite were medical research. He had even made up his mind not to get married for the rest of his life. Hua Xiaoheng nodded. "Yeah, I'll wait for you tomorrow. I have something to talk to you about." Hua Xiaoheng didn't say what it was and Chun-Li didn't ask. He and Hua Xiaoheng's friendship didn't require too many words to understand each other. Gu Nianji returned to the dormitory. She wasn't in a good mood, but she also felt an indescribable sense of relief. This was her first love and it was actually going to end on her 19th birthday. She thought that she would never celebrate her birthday for the rest of her life. After taking a shower, Gu Nianji wrapped a damp towel around her hair and turned on her computer to continue working on the outline of her thesis. She had to complete 5 courses in 4 months and also write her master's thesis. She didn't have enough time. Ma Qiqi knocked on her door. "Nianji? Are you free?" Gu Nianji looked at the outline that was halfway done and closed the document. She raised her voice to say, "Yeah, Qiqi. Come in." Ma Qiqi opened the door to see Gu Nianji in her pink coral velvet pajamas and fluffy white wool slippers. She turned around in front of her desk in her computer chair and smiled at her. Ma Qiqi suddenly felt that Gu Nianji was like a cute, pink doll. She went up to hug her and rub her body. Gu Nianji laughed so hard that tears came out. She quickly pushed Ma Qiqi away. "Qiqi, don't touch me. My hair isn't dry yet." Ma Qiqi smiled and pinched her small, fair face. She sat down on the chair next to her and asked, "What are you doing? I didn't see you all day on Saturday." Gu Nianji pointed at the computer. I went to the library to study. There was a lot of homework. I was busy finishing it. That much? Did Professor He give you special attention? Ma Chichi asked curiously. She and Gu Nianji didn't have the same tutor, so she didn't know about Gu Nianji's classes. Gu Nianji hesitated before telling Ma Chichi the truth. I want to graduate early, so I'm working hard on my classes. You still want to graduate early? Ma Chichi couldn't help but pat her shoulder. Nianji, I feel more and more inferior living with you. What do you mean I'm better looking than you, younger than you, smarter than you, and more hardworking than you? That's exactly what you're like. Gu Nianji was amused by Ma Chichi. She hugged her arm and shook it. Chichi, you're too good with words. I'm not that great. I just want to graduate quickly and find a full-time job so I can support myself. Ma Chichi knew what Gu Nianji was worried about, so she considerately avoided touching her sore spot. She said to Gu Nianji, Nianji, it's your birthday tomorrow. Do you have any plans? Gu Nianji looked at Ma Chichi. You know. Ma Chichi giggled. Of course I know. The counselors have all our classmates' birthdays. Oh, I see. Gu Nianji tapped her cheek with her finger. Tomorrow. I'm actually planning on studying. She didn't want to celebrate her birthday. Not in this lifetime. Come on. You want to study on your birthday? Can't you graduate early if you don't study for a day? Ma Chichi was unhappy. Come on, Nianji. It looks like you don't have any plans tomorrow. Come to my house. I told my parents that it's your birthday tomorrow. They said if you don't have any plans you can come to my house. My mom makes delicious longevity noodles. Really? Gu Nianji hesitated. Ma Chichi was special to her, so it was hard to refuse her invitation. So she would just treat it as a meal at her roommate's house. After thinking about it, Gu Nianji nodded. Sure, when? I might be busy tomorrow morning. Hua Xiaoheng said he would see her at 9 tomorrow and had a condition for her to agree to. She had already promised to wait for him at 9, so she couldn't go back on her word. Come to my house for dinner in the afternoon. After dinner, my dad will drive us back to school. Ma Chichi put her hand on Gu Nianji's shoulder. Nianji, this is the first time I'm inviting a classmate to my house. You have to do me the honor. Gu Nianji nodded vigorously. I will. The two of them agreed on tomorrow's itinerary, and Ma Chichi happily returned to her room. Gu Nianji closed the door and looked at her laptop. She realized she wasn't in the mood to write anymore, so she turned it off and went to bed. Lying in bed, Gu Nianji couldn't fall asleep, so she raised her phone to play games. It was just past midnight when her phone suddenly rang. It was He Jichu's exclusive ringtone. Gu Nianji answered with a smile. Professor He, it's so late. What's up? He Jichu's cool voice came from the phone. Nianji, happy 19th birthday. This was the first happy birthday she had received that day. Gu Nianji said, Thank you, Professor He, but please don't wish me happy birthdays anymore. I've decided not to celebrate birthdays anymore. I want to be 19 forever. How childish? He Jichu curled his lips and asked her slowly, Okay, forever 19-year-old girl. What plans do you have for tomorrow? Gu Nianji gripped her phone and looked around the dark dorm room. She yawned. I don't have any plans. I wanted to go to the library to study, but Chichi invited me to her house for dinner tomorrow, so I agreed. He Jichu knew that Ma Chichi had helped Gu Nianji a lot, and he trusted that Gu Nianji and Ma Chichi were friends. He said, Then remember to bring some gifts to Ma Chichi's family. Don't go empty-handed, okay? Gu Nianji smiled. Oh, thank you for the reminder, Professor He. I almost went to Chichi's house with nothing but a mouth and a clean sleeves. Hearing Gu Nianji's crisp and innocent laughter, He Jichu couldn't help laughing. Naughty. Okay, go to bed early. After your birthday you'll be 1 year older. I hope you can fulfill your wish soon and graduate early. This was the second update, and the monthly ticket was 3,900 plus updates. First, a reminder for recommendation tickets. There was still the third update at 7 p.m. Moi. Chapter 731. Putting down the phone, He Jichu sat in front of the window with a glass of red wine and looked out at the endless night sky. He was unexpectedly relaxed. Finally, the day he had been waiting for had arrived. He didn't need to take out his preparations anymore. Subduing the enemy without a fight was the best strategy. He raised his glass to the night sky. Happy birthday to you, my princess. Gu Nianji fell asleep after hanging up. She didn't sleep very well. She didn't dream, but she didn't feel very comfortable either. Her heart was hanging in midair, and she felt unreal, as if she couldn't reach the sky or the ground. When she woke up in the middle of the night thirsty, She suddenly remembered that Hua Xiaoheng said he would break up with her if she agreed to one condition. So why did she agree? She was the one who suggested breaking up. It didn't really matter if Hua Xiaoheng agreed or not. She only agreed to his request because she wanted to end things peacefully and put an end to his years of careful parenting. Love was gone but respect was still there. Hua Xiaoheng was a good man worthy of respect. Having him in the Huaxia Empire was a blessing to the country and its people. Gu Nianji rolled over and fell asleep again. When she woke up again it was already past 8 in the morning on Sunday. Gu Nianji rubbed her eyes and slowly got out of bed. She put on her pajamas and went to the bathroom to take a shower before completely waking up. She opened the closet for a long time and picked out a red high-collared cashmere dress with loose sleeves. It matched it with her favorite Stuart Weitzman boots. Her long hair draped over her shoulders. She didn't have any makeup on, but her skin was clear and fair with a hint of pink under it. Her eyes were bright and clear and looked around freely. She would definitely leave the best impression on each other like this. She hurriedly put on some moisturizer when her phone rang. The rain is falling, the grass is deep in the old hometown. I heard that you've always been alone. This was Hua Xiaoheng's exclusive ringtone. Gu Nianji took the phone and swiped it open. She heard Hua Xiaoheng's deep and rich voice coming from the phone. Nianji, I'm downstairs. I'll be right down. Gu Nianji quickly put on the Hermes Veru bag she bought in Germany and pushed the door open. Ma Qiqi was eating breakfast in the living room when she saw Gu Nianji come out and read. She quickly covered her eyes and pretended to scream, "My eyes! My eyes!" Gu Nianji kicked her lightly with a smile and hurried out the door. When she arrived downstairs she saw Hua Xiaoheng standing ramrod straight next to his silver-gray Bentley SUV. He wasn't wearing a general's uniform, but a proper military uniform. The stars on her shoulders almost blinded Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji blinked and thought to herself, Hua Xiaoheng actually had the same thoughts as her. Both of them wanted to give this relationship a perfect ending. As expected of the Hua Xiao she knew. This clean and neat was more like him. Gu Nianji walked over with a smile and said, "You look good in the military uniform." Hua Xiaoheng raised his eyebrows and didn't try to hide his awe. "You look great in a red dress too." He opened the car door like a gentleman and let Gu Nianji inside. Gu Nianji sat in the passenger seat. This time she realized that there was no one else here. It seemed like he was really going to break up with her. Chen Lai wasn't there, and neither were Brother Xiong and Brother Zhe. The anxiety in Gu Nianji's heart disappeared. If she had known that Chen Lai was in the car yesterday, she wouldn't have said such heartless words. She had to save Hua Xiaoheng some face in front of others, right? But later she thought it through. They were going to break up anyway, so it didn't matter if she saved face or not. Hua Xiaoheng got in the car and drove her out of the school. "Where are we going?" Gu Nianji looked in the direction of the car. It seemed to be the road to the Special Operations Forces headquarters. She was a bit uneasy. "To the headquarters." Hua Xiaoheng glanced at her. "It's not like you haven't been there before. Even if you want to break up with me, you won't be completely cut off from us, right?" Gu Nianji was speechless. Actually, she really didn't want to have any personal contact other than necessary work contact. Today would be her last day at the Special Operations Forces headquarters. To be honest, she still had feelings for that place and the agents there. They had protected her for 7 years and were still protecting her now. Suddenly, she thought of the 2 field agents who had died in Germany because of her and felt bad again. Gu Nianji averted her gaze and looked at the other side of the car. She did not speak again. Hua Xiaoheng also didn't say anything else. The 2 of them drove in silence until they arrived at the office of the Special Operations Forces headquarters. Gu Nianji secretly sighed in relief that they didn't stop at the entrance of Hua Xiaoheng's official residence. Hua Xiaoheng opened the door and let her out. Gu Nianji looked up at the 10-story building. "Why did you bring me here?" The 2 of them stood in the empty space in front of the office building of the Special Operations Forces headquarters. There were fiery red maple trees all around, and white clouds floated in the blue sky above. Occasionally, a few pigeons flew across the sky, their whistles echoing in their ears. Hua Xiaoheng took her to the small conference room next to his office. He looked at her and asked for the last time, "Nianji, do you really want to break up with me?" Gu Nianji looked up at his handsome face and nodded quietly. She had already said it many times and didn't want to say it again. Hua Xiaoheng stood in front of her and stared at her. Finally he said, "I said yesterday that I would agree to break up if you agree to one condition." Gu Nianji nodded again and said softly, "As long as it doesn't violate the law and morality, I will agree to it." Hua Xiaoheng pursed his lips and picked up a file from the long conference table beside him. It was stamped "Confidential" in red. Okay, we can break up as long as you agree to give me another chance. Hua Xiaoheng placed the file in front of Gu Nianji. What did you say? Gu Nianji couldn't believe her ears. She looked at Hua Xiaoheng in a daze. Her mind was a mess, and her intuition told her that Hua Xiaoheng wasn't playing by the rules. I said we can break up as long as you agree to give me another chance. Hua Xiaoheng said slowly. His posture was relaxed but his eyes were a bit nervous. But we've already broken up. Why should I give you another chance? Gu Nianji clenched her fists. Hua Xiaoheng, you're not the only one who knows how to play word games. This isn't a game of words. Hua Xiaoheng stood in front of her. The strong suppression of his height made Gu Nianji feel suffocated. He looked down at her. If we break up, it means that everything in the past is over, and it also represents a new beginning. Can't we be together again after breaking up? You won't accept my pursuit? Gu Nianji instinctively took a step back. Her eyes widened. You're going to pursue me? It was like hearing the most ridiculous thing in the world. It was unbelievable. For some reason, Hua Xiaoheng's heart ached slightly when he saw Gu Nianji's reaction. He controlled his emotions and continued to say calmly, Yes, I'm going to pursue you. As long as you agree to give me another chance, I'll agree to break up. Gu Nianji spent a lot of effort to calm herself down. Hua Xiaoheng actually said he wanted to pursue her. If she had heard this before going to Germany, how happy would she have been? Gu Nianji covered her chest with her hand and looked at Hua Xiaoheng for a long time before shaking her head. No, that's not fair. You can seduce me but you won't allow me to pursue you. Hua Xiaoheng folded his hands behind his back and took a step forward to get closer to Gu Nianji. How can there be such a thing in the world? Since you won't agree to my conditions, then we won't break up. Of course we have to break up. Gu Nianji stomped her feet and pointed at Hua Xiaoheng as a warning. Don't come any closer. Hua Xiaoheng didn't stop walking. He took another step forward. Then tell me, do you agree or not? Gu Nianji stared at Hua Xiaoheng blankly. Her full, curvy lips opened and closed. After a while, she composed herself and reasoned with Hua Xiaoheng. Mr. Hua, I'm very happy to hear you say that. However, the problem between us isn't that simple. It can't be solved just by you pursuing me. So your solution is to break up once and for all. Hua Xiaoheng narrowed his eyes. That doesn't seem like a very smart solution. But it's the only solution I can think of. Gu Nianji was very determined. She wasn't good enough for him, so she was ashamed of her inferiority and chose to leave. What if I have a better solution? Hua Xiaoheng extended his right hand in Gu Nianji's direction. Come, let's go back to our original topic. You agree to my conditions and I agree to break up. How about that? Deal. Gu Nianji looked at Hua Xiaoheng suspiciously. What was he trying to do? You don't agree? Fine, we won't break up. Hua Xiaoheng took another step forward and already had Gu Nianji trapped between the wall and his embrace. Gu Nianji quickly pushed him. Mr. Hua, this is your office building. You don't want me to scream something bad, do you? Scream all you want. I don't care what you scream unless you agree to my conditions. Hua Xiaoheng watched with interest as she struggled, hesitated, and hesitated. He also watched as she gradually became determined and brave. Fine, I agree. You can pursue me, but I don't have to accept your pursuit. Gu Nianji raised her head and looked at Hua Xiaoheng, unwilling to be outdone. But you promised to give me a chance. If you don't accept my pursuit, how is that considered giving me a chance? Hua Xiaoheng's words were watertight, and his logic seemed to be self-contained. Gu Nianji also realized for the first time that Hua Xiaoheng was so eloquent. She looked at Hua Xiaoheng tongue-tied. Her brain had a vague feeling that something was wrong, but she couldn't figure out what it was. If she wanted to defeat Hua Xiaoheng's argument, she had to find the loopholes in his logic. However, his logic was as perfect as a circle drawn with a compass. She couldn't seem to find any loopholes. If she had to refute, it seemed like the only way was to go back on her word. But if she went back on her word, Hua Xiaoheng also said he wouldn't break up. What was she going to do? Just as she was at the end of her rope, Hua Xiaoheng opened the folder stamped "Confidential." He took out 2 documents and 2 little red booklets and opened them in front of her. Nianji, give me another chance. This time we won't be dating. We'll get married directly. I've already prepared the marriage certificate. This is a marriage application that has already been approved. This is the marriage registration form that I've already signed. As long as you sign it, we'll be officially husband and wife. Hua Xiaoheng took out a pen and stuffed it into the hands of Gu Nianji, who was already at a loss and pale. Don't panic. There's also a divorce application here. I've already signed it. Give me 3 years. After 3 years, if you still feel that we can't be together, you can sign this divorce application and our marriage will be dissolved immediately. Gu Nianji was bombarded by Hua Xiaoheng again and again. Her smart brain had already stopped working. She didn't understand. She was clearly here to talk about breaking up with him. How did it suddenly jump from breaking up to marriage? This was the third watch. Let me remind you about the recommendation ticket. P.S. There's a surprise in the next chapter. Guess what it is? Moi. Chapter 732. Gu Nianji closed her eyes and pinched herself hard to clear her mind from Hua Xiaoheng's bombardment. She took a deep breath and gathered her courage to say to Hua Xiaoheng, "But I don't love you anymore. How can we get married without love?" She knew that everyone had their own reasons for getting married, and for her, the reason was simple. She only wanted to marry the person she loved. It's not contradictory. We can get married first, then date. Hua Xiaoheng's voice was low and gentle, very comforting. But what if we still can't love each other in the end? Gu Nianji was confused. Even if we can get a divorce after 3 years, wouldn't I go from a good unmarried girl to a divorced young woman? Hua Xiaoheng, I'll only be 22 years old after 3 years. Do you think that's fair to me? Although Gu Nianji was young and had lived with Hua Xiaoheng in the Special Operations Forces base for a long time, she didn't have much contact with society. She had learned online technology from Zhao Liangzi when she was young and had been on major forums, Weibo and other social media for a long time. She roughly knew that society was harsher on women. Even if Hua Xiaoheng got a divorce after 3 years, he would still be a quality man and might even be more popular. But what about her? Her value would only plummet. Hua Xiaoheng smiled slightly and guided Gu Nianji patiently. His voice became even deeper and more magnetic. The demon in his heart grew wings and wanted to take her under its wings. Don't worry. Our marriage status is confidential. The Special Operations Forces has a special department to handle special marriage registration. Our marriage information will be recorded in a confidential file and will not be recorded outside. Until you are willing, no one else will know. If we dissolve our marriage in the future, I promise this marriage will not be recorded in your personal information. As long as you want, you can still write unmarried on any form. Think about it carefully. As long as you agree, we can break up. From now on, she was no longer his girlfriend and he was no longer her boyfriend. From now on, she was only his wife and he was only her husband. How great was that? Gu Nianji heard something different. She raised her eyebrows and looked at Hua Xiaoheng. You want to hide the marriage? No, I don't. If you want, we can have a public wedding today. I can invite all the guests right away. Our wedding will be grander than today's Prime Minister's inauguration. Hua Xiaoheng bowed forward and whispered into Gu Nianji's ear, "Did you know that I planned our wedding when I was in the United States? No matter what happened, nothing could stop him from marrying her. Even if this accident was her." Gu Nianji was shocked. She stared at Hua Xiaoheng in a daze. She was so conflicted that she couldn't speak. Should she believe him? Is she willing to go public? Gu Nianji knew her answer very well. She didn't want to make it public. She had no intention of getting married at all, so why would she suddenly make it public? Hua Xiaoheng seemed to know exactly what she was thinking and asked sharply, "Nianji, are you willing to go public? I told you the decision is yours. I just want a fair chance to woo you." For this opportunity he was willing to bet everything he had. Now it was Gu Nianji's turn to hesitate. Would she be willing to get married? Of course she didn't want to, but she was stumped by Hua Xiaoheng's words. If she insisted on going back on her word, what would Hua Xiaoheng do? Gu Nianji realized that she actually didn't understand Hua Xiaoheng. She had thought that he was stubborn and proud. He would never drag things out and he would never beg a woman without principles. However, what he was doing now had completely subverted her understanding of him. In order to be with her, he had even put the decision of divorce in her hands. Gu Nianji's heart was in a mess. All the things Hua Xiaoheng had done for her replayed in her mind. His neglect of her and the hurt feelings he had caused her replayed in her mind. Two different feelings were fighting in her mind. A moment of kindness won out, telling her not to hesitate and to agree to his request. A moment of disgust won out, and she clamored for her to flip the table and leave. "I don't want to play anymore." Gu Nianji, who couldn't make up her mind, fell into a long silence. Hua Xiaoheng looked at her and slowly reached out his right hand to hold her hand. In his hand was the pen he had just stuffed into her hand. This was a Cartier platinum pen he had specially made for her. It was for their big day. The slender and delicate body of the pen was as smooth and soft as silk in his hand. There was a small heart at the top of the pen cap, which was carved from a whole 3-carat flawless diamond. In the middle of the diamond heart, 4 words were engraved with hairpin-style small regular script, "My heart's thoughts." It was so small that one needed a magnifying glass to see it clearly. The entire design was simple and smooth. The delicate and moving parts were hidden in a low-key luxury. The door to the conference room opened silently. Zhou Qiyuan and Chen Lai, the leaders of the disciplinary team of the Special Operations Forces, walked in with a smile and quietly closed the door. "Come on, sign it," Hua Xiaoheng whispered in Gu Nianji's ear. Gu Nianji pursed her lips. Her face darkened and she stubbornly refused to bow her head. Hua Xiaoheng reached out with his left arm and steadily wrapped it around her waist. His right hand held her hand and his arm pressed gently. He bent down with her at the long conference table. Gu Nianji really wanted to resist. Her fingers were stiff and she refused to write properly. However, Hua Xiaoheng held her hand gently, patiently, and persistently. At the same time, he held her hand with an irresistible force. Like an adult teaching a child to write, he wrote her name stroke by stroke on the marriage registration form. Gu Nianji. She wrote it next to the already signed Hua Xiaoheng. They were like a perfect couple. Clap, 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 clap. There was a sudden burst of applause in the conference room. Gu Nianji looked up as if she had just woken up from a dream. She saw that there were 2 more people in the conference room. Zhou Qiyuan and Chen Lai stood in front of them and clapped with smiles. Both of them were wearing well-ironed military uniforms. They had shaved and were clean and tidy. It was obvious that they had dressed up for the big day. Hua Xiaoheng let go of Gu Nianji's hand and sighed in relief. His entire aura was different. He handed the signed marriage registration form to Zhou Qiyuan. "Qiyuan, this is within your jurisdiction. Take it and file it." Zhou Qiyuan carefully checked all the forms and confirmed that all the information was verified correctly. All the required proof and materials were in the document bag. He then nodded and took out the organization department seal. He solemnly stamped the marriage registration form with a red stamp on the department in charge. Chen Lai also came over and said with a smile, "I wish the 2 of you a lifetime of love and happiness." Then he signed his name in the marriage witness column. After Zhou Qiyuan stamped the document, he immediately took the document bag to the confidential file room to file. For this document and to get through all the procedures, Hua Xiaoheng had been working non-stop since last night. Because it was the weekend, everyone involved was on vacation. Zhou Qiyuan got up in the middle of the night and went everywhere to wake people up from their beds. He didn't give any reason and used the excuse of the chief's orders and his authority as the leader of the disciplinary committee as a deterrent. He used both carrot and stick to get the necessary seals and file cabinet keys. Because Hua Xiaoheng had instructed that this marriage must be kept secret, even though its true legal authority was much greater than a typical military marriage, Hua Xiaoheng was willing to temporarily give in to Gu Nianji. Other than Hua Xiaoheng and Gu Nianji, the only 2 people who knew about this marriage were Chen Lai and Zhou Qiyuan. In the future there would be General Ji. After the marriage procedures were completed, Hua Xiaoheng would take the initiative to report to General Ji. At the same time, according to the confidentiality regulations, he would ask General Ji to keep it a secret. Gu Nianji watched as Zhou Qiyuan took the documents away. Only the 2 marriage certificates and the divorce application were left on the conference table. Chen Lai smiled at Gu Nianji. "Today is your 19th birthday. Nianji, you're the one at a disadvantage if your wedding anniversary and birthday are together." He looked at Hua Xiaoheng meaningfully, but Hua Xiaoheng pretended not to see it. He picked up the 2 marriage certificates from the conference table and looked at them. Not long after, Zhou Qiyuan returned. He didn't have the document bag in his hand, but he had an SLR camera around his neck. "Come, I'll take a wedding photo for you and put it on the marriage certificate. Then I'll stamp it with a steel seal and it'll be considered a ceremony." Zhou Qiyuan, who had always been serious, actually cracked a joke. Chen Lai looked at him in surprise. "Zhou Qiyuan, so you don't have facial paralysis?" Zhou Qiyuan was speechless. He put away his smile and ignored Chen Lai. He strode in front of Hua Xiaoheng and Gu Nianji and calmly raised the SLR camera. Hua Xiaoheng put one hand on Gu Nianji's shoulder and led her to an empty wall in the conference room. The display screen of a projector hung on the empty wall. It was smooth and white, exactly the same as the background wall of the photo room in the Civil Affairs Bureau's marriage registration office. Chen Lai's gaze was attracted by Gu Nianji and Hua Xiaoheng. Gu Nianji was wearing a red cashmere dress and looked delicate and charming. Hua Xiaoheng was wearing a major general's uniform. He was tall and handsome and he even had a military cap on. They looked like a perfect couple standing together. It was pleasing to the eye. Qinlai smiled and said, "Huh? Nianji, why are you wearing a bright red dress? It really looks like a wedding dress." Gu Nianji was speechless. Damn it. If she said it was a coincidence, would Qinlai laugh at her? Gu Nianji's long brows furrowed and she glared at Qinlai unhappily. Zhou Qiuan saw it from the camera and coughed. The expression in the wedding photo should be more relaxed. Gu Nianji's face quickly stiffened. Hua Xiaoheng looked at the camera with a smile, but one hand quietly crept up Gu Nianji's waist and gently pressed on the most itchy part of her body. Gu Nianji was caught off guard for a moment, and the itch made her smile subconsciously. Zhou Qiuan quickly pressed the shutter and quickly captured this moving expression of a smile that was as natural as the blooming epiphyllum under the moon. This was the first update. I heard that the double monthly votes have begun. Dear friends, 1 vote and the system will double it to make 2 votes. In the past we had 300 votes for 1 update. Now that it's doubled, it should be 600. But it's the end of the month, so I'll give everyone a little benefit. During the double monthly votes period, 500 votes will add 1 update. Actually, it means 250 votes will add an update, dear friends. Yes, dear friends, hurry up and vote if you still have monthly votes. If you don't, remember to vote for recommendations. I believe in everyone's fighting spirit. Monthly votes will add 4,400 early updates at 1 p.m. There's still a 3rd update at 7 p.m. P.S. If you want to kiss, 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 kiss. It's in the novel. Do you see it? Chapter 733. Gu Nianji snapped back to reality and her smile froze. She pushed Hua Xiaoheng's hand away with all her might and looked away angrily. However, Hua Xiaoheng had already left her side unhurriedly and went over to Zhou Qiuan to look at the photo taken by the DSLR camera. Amazing. Zhou Qiuan, you're really amazing. You're at the level of a master. Qinlai also came over to look at the wedding photo. Both of them were smiling happily in the photo, especially Hua Xiaoheng. His facial features were exquisite, and he was the kind of handsome that made people breathless. Because he had been in a high position for a long time and was a soldier in a special position, he often wandered between life and death, so he had an indescribably strong aura compared to normal soldiers. However, his smile in the wedding photo was very gentle. That smile dispelled the murderous aura and coldness, and it made people think of the word happiness. Zhou Qiuan sent the photo to the printer in the conference room and printed it on photographic paper before pasting it onto the marriage certificate. Hua Xiaoheng personally stamped the 2 marriage certificates with a steel seal. Gu Nianji looked at the marriage certificate that was sent to her hand and silently opened it to look at it. She knew that her expression had been very solemn from beginning to end today. In the beginning, because she had received too much shock, she was a bit dazed. Later, she gradually understood and had a mocking smile on her lips. It wasn't until the 2 of them took the wedding photo that she was caught off guard and was tickled by Hua Xiaoheng that she couldn't help but laugh. However, it was this last laugh that was captured perfectly by Zhou Qiuan in an extremely short moment. This person really wasn't simple. Gu Nianji looked up slightly and glanced at Zhou Qiuan. Zhou Qiuan was also Hua Xiaoheng's personal secretary. He was one of the 2 personal secretaries who worked in the dark and had never been in public. There was no need to talk about his abilities. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to sit in the position of leader of the disciplinary team in the Special Operations Forces, which was full of talents. He also became Hua Xiaoheng's capable candidate to help him stabilize the Special Operations Forces at the most critical moment. But when Gu Nianji glanced at such a person, he actually felt a chill run down his spine. Deep down, he even felt a little scared. He wasn't used to staying here anymore. He looked down and didn't dare to look at Gu Nianji again. He said to Hua Xiaoheng, "Hua Xiao, if there's nothing else, I'll leave first." They were newlyweds, so he had to be tactful. Hua Xiaoheng nodded. "Yes, thank you for today. You're too kind, Hua Xiao." Zhou Qiuan smiled at Gu Nianji again and turned to leave the conference room. "Alright, you 2 are already husband and wife. Although it can't be made public, you are legally husband and wife." Qinlai smiled and patted Gu Nianji's shoulder, then glanced at Hua Xiaoheng. "Hua Xiao, you're really thrifty with your marriage. What about the ring? What about the banquet? Where's the betrothal gift? Where's the new house? How could he trick such a great girl like our Nianji into his hands empty-handed? Even I, Qinlai, can't stand it. You're bullying our Nianji. I'm from her family." Hua Xiaoheng pursed his lips. Hua Xiaoheng had expected that Gu Nianji wouldn't give in, so he didn't even take out the ring. Anyway, if he took it out, it would be thrown to the side by this heartless little girl, showing her determination and willpower to break up. If Gu Nianji was still unwilling after 3 years, Hua Xiaoheng rationally decided not to think about it for now. To him, he would never admit defeat before he gave it his all. Hua Xiaoheng turned to Gu Nianji and said, "When you decide to make it public, we'll hold the wedding immediately." He also glared at Chen Lai. "You're from Nianji's family, so you have to remember this. When the time comes, you have to give Nianji a dowry. At least it can't be worse than my betrothal gift. That way it can show that you really care for Nianji. Right, brother Chen?" Chen Lai's gloating face immediately collapsed. Oh my god. He wanted to give a dowry equal to Hua Xiaoheng's betrothal gift. That was competing with Hua Xiaoheng for money? Even if he sold his entire family, he wouldn't have that much money. Chen Lai wanted to slap himself a few times. Who told you to talk too much? Now you know that a loose tongue can cause trouble, right? Hua Xiao, since you're already married, can I leave now? Chen Lai interrupted with a red face and pretended not to hear the rest of Hua Xiaoheng's words. Hua Xiaoheng raised his eyebrows and said calmly, "Yes, thank you for today too." His "thank you" was more pronounced than Zhou Qiyuan's. Chen Lai said dejectedly, "You're welcome, you're welcome." Then he went out while sticking to the corner of the wall. When he went out, he was especially considerate to close the door of the conference room. After Chen Lai and Zhou Qiyuan left, Gu Nianji finally looked up at Hua Xiaoheng. From the moment Hua Xiaoheng held her hand to sign the marriage registration form, she hadn't looked him in the eye. Hua Xiaoheng knew that he had done something wrong, but he didn't regret it. With both hands in his trouser pockets, Hua Xiaoheng stretched out his long legs and leaned against the conference table. He nodded at Gu Nianji. "If you have anything to say, you can say it now." He could see that Gu Nianji couldn't hold back the words in her heart. It was probably because Zhou Qiyuan and Chen Lai were there that she didn't say it to save him some face. Although Hua Xiaoheng didn't really care about these things, Gu Nianji's actions still made him feel very touched. The emotions that had been suppressed for a long time were finally unrestrained. He no longer restrained himself and let the warmth flow from the bottom of his heart and out of his eyes. Gu Nianji's anger accumulated step by step until it reached its peak. She picked up the marriage certificate and slapped it on Hua Xiaoheng's chest. Her expression was cold. "This is the condition you want me to agree to? You know, if there is no love, the marriage certificate is just a piece of paper. This marriage certificate exists because I gave you face. You know what my major is? Do you know how much of what you did to me just now violated the law? I said that the prerequisite for agreeing to your condition was not to violate the law and morality. But did you do it? As long as I want to, I can apply to the court to invalidate this marriage certificate at any time. There's no need for a divorce at all." "I know." Hua Xiaoheng nodded slightly and didn't refute a word. He looked at Gu Nianji with admiration and held her hand that was slapping on his chest. He lowered his head and kissed it. "But you won't. You promised to give me a chance. I know there won't be a second chance like this, so I will cherish it." This kind of Gu Nianji, full of vitality and fearlessness, was the woman he loved the most. Cowering and crying, not even daring to love, was not his Nianji. If he wanted to get rid of the knot in her heart, he had to ignite her fighting spirit. "Okay then, I also have a condition." Gu Nianji retracted her hand, her fair face flushed. "This can't be made public before I'm willing. I'm still a single woman in front of others, so you can't force me to fulfill my marital obligations." Hua Xiaoheng looked deeply at Gu Nianji, his Adam's apple bobbing up and down as he gulped. "I won't force you to fulfill your marital obligations, but if I pursue you, you can't accept me?" "Hua Xiaoheng, you're thinking too much." Gu Nianji crossed her arms and looked at Hua Xiaoheng coldly. "I still want to act like I'm not married. I go to school, study, get my degree and find a job. You can't interfere and you can't interfere with my personal life." Hua Xiaoheng nodded. "Okay, but you can't stop me from pursuing you. Don't forget you promised." Gu Nianji pursed her lips. She still felt that Hua Xiaoheng pursuing her was a fantasy. She thought about it for a while and asked, "Actually, if you want to pursue me, it's fine without a marriage certificate. Why do you have to get a marriage certificate?" What? She felt that there had to be another reason. However, Hua Xiaoheng didn't explain it to her. He wouldn't tell her that the most important reason was that he didn't want to lose her, so even if it wasn't right, he would do it by hook or by crook. Of course, there was also a more important practical reason. Only if Gu Nianji became his wife could he immediately propose to General Ji to raise Gu Nianji's security level to A level, which was only slightly lower than her previous special A level. If they weren't married, he could also raise her security level, but he couldn't just go through the special confidentiality procedures through General Ji. In practical terms, that would be a lot more troublesome, and he would have to explain it to other agencies or at least to the Senate. And he didn't want the slightest opportunity for Gu Nianji's uniqueness to be discovered by other agencies. Hua Xiaoheng still didn't say a word. He only reached out to her. "Give me your phone. Now that you're my wife, your phone's security level needs to be raised." Gu Nianji was speechless. She didn't take out her phone, so Hua Xiaoheng had no choice but to walk to her side and personally take out her phone from her small bag. He glanced at Gu Nianji's new Hermes bag. "Did Reinitz buy this bag for you?" Gu Nianji was furious. "Of course not. I bought this with my own money. Do you want me to show you the bill?" At the time, she and Hua Xiaoheng were still lovers. How could she accept such an expensive gift from another man? She was a very principled person. Hua Xiaoheng didn't say anything. He took her hand and pressed it to the phone. He used her fingerprint to unlock her phone. He planned to use his own phone to set up some security procedures for Gu Nianji's phone. As soon as he called Gu Nianji's phone, it started ringing. "The rain is falling, the grass is deep in the old hometown. I heard that you've always been a human." Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. He looked at Gu Nianji and tilted his head. "This isn't the ringtone you used to use." Hua Xiaoheng remembered that Gu Nianji's ringtone on her phone was clearly this. "Whose past did the priest and temple battle bow and arrow belong to? I like the image of you only belonging to me in the crowd." Gu Nianji smiled and said slowly, "Well, ever since I decided to break up with you, I changed your ringtone." She felt that this was more in line with her mood. Hua Xiaoheng's fingers tapped on her phone a few times, and it instantly returned to his previous ringtone. Gu Nianji was speechless. This was the second update, and the monthly votes were 4,400 plus updates. My dear friends are indeed very powerful. It's not even noon and it's already 4,400. Give a like to my dear friends who voted. My dear friends, hurry up and vote if you still have monthly votes. The double has already begun. If you don't, remember to vote for me. There's still the third update at 7 p.m. P.S. Thank you to Heaven, Beggar, Beige 116, PP1 RPP1, and Raindrop 66 for the 50,000 Chidian coins each this morning. I've written down the four of you in my little notebook. Thank you to Phylan Emperor Phoenix and Hate Haya for the 10,000 Chidian coins each this morning. Thank you to all my dear friends who subscribed, voted, and rewarded. Chapter 734. Seeing Hua Xiaoheng's slender fingers flying across her phone, Gu Nianji felt a little angry. This was her own phone and she couldn't make the decisions? Gu Nianji looked at Hua Xiaoheng and clenched her fists. Glaring at him, she said, "Hua Xiaoheng, don't go too far." Gu Nianji's attitude wasn't very good, and she looked like she was about to start a fight. Where she couldn't see, Hua Xiaoheng secretly curled his lips. He would rather Gu Nianji quarrel with him or even roll on the ground and throw a tantrum. It was better than the previous few days when she appeared polite, but in reality she was becoming more and more distant from him. Hua Xiaoheng quickly installed the security software and returned the phone to Gu Nianji. When he looked up, his expression was calm. "See for yourself, these programs are only to prevent Trojan horses. They aren't meant to monitor your phone." Actually, speaking of monitoring phones, Hua Xiaoheng could enter any phone if he wanted to. Did he need to install a special surveillance program on Gu Nianji's phone? Of course not. Gu Nianji took the phone and really started to seriously check it. Her delicate fingers quickly tapped on the phone. As she looked at the various software installed on the phone, Gu Nianji suddenly remembered Hua Xiaoheng saying that Reinitz had bought her new Hermes bag for her. Her face darkened as she opened the bank app and entered her bank account to look for the spending records from 10 days ago in Germany. To her surprise, she didn't see the spending in her bank statement no matter how hard she looked. What was going on? Did the bank make a mistake? They didn't take her money? But how could that be? It wasn't like it was $100 or $200. The bag was worth $8,000 and Hermes wasn't doing charity. How could they not take her money? Gu Nianji looked for a long time and her face gradually paled. Her fingers clutching the phone weakly, she recalled all the details of buying the bag at the Hermes flagship store in Germany. She suddenly remembered something she hadn't paid attention to at the time. Could it be that Hua Xiaoheng was telling the truth? Reinitz had paid for this bag. Gu Nianji suddenly didn't like the bag. Her face darkened as she poured out the contents of the bag. Carrying the empty bag, she asked Hua Xiaoheng, "Can I borrow a plastic bag?" Hua Xiaoheng straightened up. "You still have some bags at my official residence. Go get another one." He didn't ask Gu Nianji what was going on. She was a shy girl and she had just said that she had integrity. Now she obviously knew that she had lost her integrity, so she was extremely embarrassed. Gu Nianji bit her lower lip and was very angry with herself. She didn't even check her bank records after she came back and was too busy splitting assets. With Hua Xiaoheng turned to walk out of the conference room. Gu Nianji hurried forward and tugged on his sleeve. Hua Xiaoheng stopped and turned to look at her. What's the matter? I'm sorry. Gu Nianji blushed and stammered an apology. I really didn't know. I gave my own bank card to the clerk. It must have been when the clerk took the card to pay the bill that Reinitz switched. Although she was unhappy that Reinitz had lied to her, she had indeed done something wrong. Reinitz had probably bought this bag for her. Hua Xiaoheng grunted. Return the money to Reinitz in 2 days. Return it? Gu Nianji turned around to pack her things and stuffed the small items back into the bag. She carried it and walked beside Hua Xiaoheng. I'll have little Zay send you Reinitz's bank account number. You can just call him. Hua Xiaoheng curled his lips and looked very happy. He took Gu Nianji out of his office building and strolled all the way back to his official residence. Late autumn in the imperial capital was the time of year when the weather was the best. It was neither hot nor cold and the sky was always a deep blue. White clouds floated indistinctly, and the maple trees by the side of the road were as red as fire. However, when Gu Nianji walked on this path, all of this became her background. Her red dress was like fire and her eyes were clear. There seemed to be a trace of anger on her face. It was this trace of anger that made her even more beautiful. At least that was what Hua Xiaoheng thought. Although he walked beside Gu Nianji without looking sideways, he kept looking at her face from the corner of his eye. When they returned to his official residence, Hua Xiaoheng took Gu Nianji straight to the suite she used to live in. Everything here was exactly the same as before Gu Nianji moved her things away. There were only a few empty spaces in the closet. Hua Xiaoheng walked into the closet of the suite and took a bright red Hermes Berlin bag from the bag rack. It matched the color of Gu Nianji's dress very well. Use this. Hua Xiaoheng placed the bag in front of Gu Nianji. This is this year's new model. Gu Nianji was speechless. She hesitated for a moment before silently taking the bag. Then she put her belongings into the new bag Hua Xiaoheng gave her. While she was packing, someone knocked twice on the suite door. Hua Xiaoheng turned on the video intercom inside the door and saw that it was his orderly. He asked, "What's the matter?" The orderly quickly said, "Hua Xiao, the Prime Minister's office is calling. Do you want to take it?" They didn't call his cell phone, but the landline of his official residence. It should be official business. Hua Xiaoheng glanced at Gu Nianji and said to the orderly outside the door, "Bring me to this room." Gu Nianji's room also had a landline. The orderly replied, "Yes." Not long after, the landline in Gu Nianji's suite rang. Hua Xiaoheng picked it up. A crisp, middle-aged woman's voice came through the phone. "Is this Major General Hua? I'm Kai Songyin. I heard you were sick. Are you feeling better?" Hua Xiaoheng's brows furrowed slightly but quickly relaxed. "I'm not feeling better yet. May I ask who you are?" Kai Songyin didn't expect Hua Xiaoheng to act like he didn't know who she was. She didn't believe him at all and smiled. "I'm Tan Gairen's mother. Thank you for saving my family's Guirin in the United States," Hua Xiaoheng said calmly. "You've got the wrong person. I didn't save your daughter. If there's nothing else, I'll hang up now. My head hurts when I hear people talking. I'm sorry." Hua Xiaoheng hung up and looked up to see Gu Nianji looking at him strangely. "What is it?" Hua Xiaoheng walked over to look at her. "Did you pack everything? Was it Mrs. Tan who called you just now?" Gu Nianji asked without batting an eyelid. "You clearly saved her daughter. How can you lie to her face?" Hua Xiaoheng picked up a strand of hair that had fallen off her shoulder and threw it into the trash can. "I didn't save her daughter. How can I admit to something like this if I didn't do it?" He couldn't admit to anything if he did it. Kai Songyin was talking nonsense on the phone, so who knew how much information had been leaked just like that? However, Hua Xiaoheng remained calm and didn't want to alert the enemy. The Tans and the Bays were both under his surveillance now. The more they said and the more mistakes they made, the tighter his net would be. He wouldn't let any fish slip through the net. Gu Nianji understood that the missions of the Special Operations Forces could only be done and not talked about. No matter how dangerous or urgent it was, he wouldn't say a word. Gu Nianji looked down and carried the small bag Hua Xiaoheng gave her. At the same time, she used a cloth bag to wrap the one Reinitz had paid for. "What other plans do you have today? Do you want to go back to school for self-study or go out to play?" Hua Xiaoheng walked towards the door. "Wait for me. I'll go change." He was wearing his Major General uniform today, especially for today's big day. Gu Nianji said, "I want to go back to school. Chi-Chi invited me to her house for dinner today." Hua Xiaoheng paused in his steps and grunted before returning to his room to change. Not long after, Hua Xiaoheng came out in casual clothes. Then I'll take you back to school. Gu Nianji sighed in relief. She was really afraid Hua Xiaoheng would insist on going to school with her to self-study. The two of them got into the car and drove to B University. Hua Xiaoheng took many calls on the way, but he hung up after a few words. Later, he even instructed his operator not to take any calls unless it was something important. He told him to block all calls. Gu Nianji couldn't help but say, Hua Xiaoheng, if you're really busy, you really don't need to take me. I can take the subway over there. There was a subway entrance not far ahead. Hua Xiaoheng shook his head nonchalantly. It's fine. I'm not busy today. Why are you calling me when you're not busy? Do you think I'm stupid? Gu Nianji rolled her eyes countless times and sighed. You're urging me to attend the Prime Minister's inauguration. Hua Xiaoheng thought about it. Now that Gu Nianji was his wife, there were some things he could tell her without breaking confidentiality laws. Gu Nianji was shocked. The new Prime Minister's inauguration. You're not going to such an important event. This was the third update that was uploaded in advance. A reminder to everyone about the monthly and recommendation votes. The monthly votes were doubled today. Chapter 735. Gu Nianji was well aware of Hua Xiaoheng's status, which was one of the reasons she wanted to retreat from their relationship. In his position, it was only right for him to attend the inauguration of the new Prime Minister. Not to mention that so many people had been calling him. However, Hua Xiaoheng held the steering wheel and said calmly, I don't want to go because I have more important things to do. Marriage. How was it not important? This was the most important thing in his life, second to none. Gu Nianji pursed her lips and looked out of the car. She said sullenly, Look, there's really nothing good about being with me and it'll affect your work. I hope you'll think it through in a few days. Let's part on good terms. Attending the Prime Minister's inauguration isn't my job. Hua Xiaoheng reached out and wrapped his arms around Gu Nianji's neck. He turned her head to look in his direction. Don't even think about it. Even if we still have to part in the future, it definitely won't be on good terms. What do you mean? Gu Nianji felt her anger rising again. She was a little exasperated. We're all adults. Don't you understand that? In the past, she didn't have any temper in front of Hua Xiaoheng. She was absolutely radiant when given a little sunshine. However, in the past 2 days, she found that she was losing control of her temper more and more. You still know you're an adult? Hua Xiaoheng's lips curled into a hint of mockery. Would an adult not solve a problem but only want to avoid it? How am I avoiding the problem? I've been trying to solve the problem with you. Gu Nianji forcefully pried Hua Xiaoheng's hand away. Don't touch me. How many times have I said it? If you keep this up, I'll apply for a court injunction to not let you appear around me. Is breaking up the solution to the problem? You're still saying you're not avoiding it. Hua Xiaoheng withdrew his hand and glanced at her. You're even applying for a court injunction? Are you sure? Nianji, you're a lawyer, not an unscrupulous reporter who uses headlines to attract attention. Gu Nianji snorted and turned her head to look out the window. She refused to be outdone. Actually, our problem can't be solved at all, so the only way is to break up. But you stubbornly refuse. You even got a marriage certificate. Are you sure it won't get worse in 3 years? That's why I said that there's no such thing as good separation between us. Hua Xiaoheng looked straight ahead, and his tone became indifferent, as if he was talking about something irrelevant. However, his words were very forceful. Don't think about what will happen in 3 years. It's useless to think about it anyway. Gu Nianji couldn't help biting her fingernails. Hua Xiaoheng's strength had once made her tremble in submission, but now she was overwhelmed. Glancing at Gu Nianji, Hua Xiaoheng sighed softly in his heart. It seemed like she had been forced into a corner. She hadn't bitten her nails in a long time, and now she was biting them again. He knew that when she was nervous, she could not help but bite her fingernails. Hua Xiaoheng stopped talking and focused on driving. After a while, his phone rang again. This time it was his father, Hua Guanchen. Xiaoheng, your grandfather and Jialan came back today. Did you pick them up? Hua Xiaoheng put on his Bluetooth headset and said calmly, I'm sick. I can't answer the call. However, he still paused and said, I'll send someone to pick you up. And as long as you don't forget. The flight is at 1 p.m. Hua Guanchen's voice was very unhappy. Also, I heard that you won't be attending the Prime Minister's inauguration tonight? What? Are you that sick? Yes, I'm so sick that I can't even pick up my grandfather. How can I attend the Prime Minister's inauguration? Hua Xiaoheng turned the steering wheel and skillfully made a turn to get off the highway. You can go. Isn't grandfather going too? What does it matter if I go or not? Hua Guanchen was silent for a moment. How do you know your grandfather will be going too? Hua Xiaoheng's grandfather, who was Hua Guanchen's father, Hua Xuanong, was also a general, but he had retired a few years ago. Generally speaking, people like him wouldn't be invited to this kind of occasion unless he had been a top commander like General Ji. However, Hua Xuanong had never been a top commander. His highest position was only the second in command of the Supreme Military Council. So Hua Guanchen was still very surprised when Hua Xiaoheng said that Hua Xuanong would be attending the Prime Minister's inauguration that night. After all, Kai Songyin was the only one who contacted him about this in private. When she found out that Hua Xuanong was recuperating at the Sieyès Manor in France, she warmly invited him back to attend the Prime Minister's inauguration and even sent the invitation and plane ticket to France. Hua Xiaoheng still didn't know about this because it happened before he started monitoring the Tans. Also, the monitoring of the Tans was done in their office. Private residences couldn't be monitored. So he was only making deductions based on common sense. Grandfather has been in France for so long. If he didn't have something to do, why would he come back? Hua Xiaoheng didn't think much of it. 2 people from the Huas are already attending. If I go too, how would it look? Does the Huas have to bow down to the Tans? Father, I don't know when we've been so lowly. Hua Guanchen was embarrassed into anger by Hua Xiaoheng's words. Of course he wasn't doing it for the Tan's sake. He was doing it for the sake of the Tan's daughter, Tan Guren. He felt that she was qualified to be his daughter-in-law. In Hua Guanchen's eyes, a woman who could marry Hua Xiaoheng must have a good temper and filial piety, in addition to a good family background, outstanding character and appearance. Especially the last one, which Hua Guanchen thought was the most important. In the past, Prime Minister Dou's daughter, Dou Qingyan, had a good family background and good looks. However, Hua Guanchen was still dissatisfied because the girl was stubborn and disobedient, much less filial. He knew that Hua Xiaoheng wasn't very obedient, much less filial. If even his wife wasn't filial, then he would be even more distant from the Huas. His impression of Tan Guren was that she had a good family background, was obedient and intelligent. She was also a great beauty. He heard that she had never had a boyfriend, and was especially obedient to her parents. She was a filial child. What do you mean by bowing down to others? Xiaoheng, when did you become so impulsive? This is basic etiquette. Hua Guanchen's expression darkened. Your grandfather and I will be there tonight. Your mother will be there too. If you don't have anything else to do, it's best if you come. I said I'm sick. Hua Xiaoheng was just short of honking. I don't have any obligation to the Tans to come and go as I please. If you keep forcing me, I'll have to block your number. Don't you dare. Hua Guanchen stood up angrily in his study, but the next moment his phone was already beeping, indicating that Hua Xiaoheng had already hung up. He quickly called again and discovered that Hua Xiaoheng didn't block his number. He just didn't pick up the phone and transferred his call to voicemail. Hua Guanchen finally sighed in relief. Gu Nianji also fell silent when Hua Xiaoheng called. She could tell that it was Hua Xiaoheng's father calling her. But she didn't ask. She only thought of Gu Xiangwen, who was recuperating at the headquarters of the Special Operations Forces. After thinking about it for a while, Gu Nianji took out her phone to call Chen Lai. Brother Chen? Are you busy? Chen Lai was reading some papers in his office. Seeing that it was Gu Nianji calling, he quickly answered and smiled. No, I'm reading some papers. What's wrong, bride? Gu Nianji calmly ignored the word bride, and only asked Chen Lai, how's my father, Mr. Gu? I actually forgot to visit him when I went over there today. She reflected on herself and felt that she was really incompetent as a daughter. Chen Lai froze for a moment and chuckled. It's fine. Mr. Gu is still in a vegetative state anyway. He won't know even if you go. Then, in order to ease Gu Nianji's guilt, Chen Lai added, actually your sister Gu Yanran hasn't been coming lately, let alone you. Take care of your body and don't let your imagination run wild. Gu Nianji smiled and said, Gu Yanran isn't my father's biological daughter, but I'm different. Chen Lai's brows immediately furrowed. Didn't Gu Nianji know that her DNA didn't actually match Gu Xiangwen's? Nianji, wait a moment. I'll take a call. Chen Lai pondered for a moment and quietly called Hua Xiaoheng from the landline. Hua Xiaoheng quietly answered with his Bluetooth headset. Hua Xiao, do you want to explain Nianji's background to her? We can't hide the DNA for long. Gu Yanran has already told others. I don't want Nianji to be the only one in the dark. Qinlai whispered. Okay, go ahead. Wu Xiaoheng agreed. They were already married anyway, so he didn't have to worry about Gu Nianji's security anymore. Qinlai tactfully said to Gu Nianji, Nianji, there's something I should tell you. What is it? Gu Xiangwen's DNA doesn't match yours. You're not his biological daughter. After Qinlai finished speaking, he heard that the phone was especially quiet. Gu Nianji seemed to have even stopped breathing. Then Qinlai braced himself and said, But Gu Yanran and Gu Xiangwen's DNA is completely the same. They're biological father and daughter. Gu Nianji felt her face burn as if she had been slapped in the face. Although she didn't have much affection for Gu Xiangwen, she had always thought that she was his biological daughter, and Gu Yanran was adopted. She had always known that her DNA didn't match Gu Yanran's, but she didn't know that her DNA didn't match Gu Xiangwen's either. This was King awkward. Gu Nianji pursed her lips. Got it. Thank you, Brother Qin. After hanging up, Gu Nianji looked at Wu Xiaoheng. Did you know that Gu Xiangwen isn't my biological father? Wu Xiaoheng glanced at her. Yeah, I only found out not long ago. But there were still some unexplainable parts about this, so we didn't say anything. It wasn't until Gu Yanran suddenly revealed this when Gu Nianji went missing. Gu Nianji's thoughts were almost the same as Wu Xiaoheng's. She quickly thought of this question. Since no one said anything, why did you suddenly tell me? Wu Xiaoheng didn't hide it from her. Gu Yanran revealed this when you went missing. Gu Nianji was speechless. This is the first update. My dear friends, your combat power is even more powerful than I thought. Come on. It's the 4th update today. It includes 2 monthly votes and updates. Today is Monday, so don't forget your recommendation votes. Monthly votes of 4,900 plus updates at 1 p.m., 3rd update at 7 p.m., and monthly votes of 5,400 plus updates at 11 p.m. The double monthly votes are continuing. My dear friends, don't stop. P.S. Thank you to Qian Mo for tipping 100,000 Qidian coins. Congratulations to Qian Mo for becoming the 16th Major General. I've already written down the 2 updates in my notebook. _ Chapter 736. Gu Nianji silently digested Wu Xiaoheng's words and slowly pieced the whole thing together. When I went missing in Germany, Gu Yanran told others that I wasn't Gu Xiangwen's biological daughter? Gu Nianji seemed to be talking to herself. Wu Xiaoheng nodded. Yes, that's exactly what happened. Under what circumstances did she make such a remark? And then? What did she want to achieve? Gu Nianji's meticulous brain started working again as she asked a series of questions like she was debating in court. Wu Xiaoheng glanced at her with a smile on his face and said quietly, I'm not sure what she wanted to achieve at the moment. At the time, my father happened to tell her that you went missing in Germany and that we were going to rescue you with the highest standards. She then said that you had a good life and that although you weren't Gu Xiangwen's biological daughter, Gu Xiangwen loved you as much as he loved her. He calmly told her about the incident and sure enough, he caught a glimpse of a moment of shock on Gu Nianji's face, as well as a faint sense of disappointment in her eyes. Wu Xiaoheng sighed in his heart and couldn't help but reach out to touch her head. What are you thinking about? You have me. Gu Nianji lowered her eyes and pursed her lips tightly. Her plump, curvy lips were almost a thin line, revealing only a hint of pink. She was silent for a moment before saying, You call this having a good life? What a weird way of thinking. She really thinks I'm her sister. Shouldn't she be worried about my safety when she found out that I went missing in Germany and even the country's security department came to rescue me? But her first reaction was to say that I had a good life. Then did she say that she didn't mean it and that she didn't know you guys didn't know I was the Gu's adopted daughter? Wu Xiaoheng laughed and looked at her with approval. Yes, you guessed correctly. Gu Nianji was depressed for a while before shrugging and murmuring, That's good. I didn't know how to get along with that father and daughter anyway, so this is good too. If they were really blood relatives, she would have to think of ways to force herself not to be too distant with them. Because they might be her only family. Now that she knew she wasn't related to the father and daughter, she couldn't help but relax. Then where are my biological parents? Gu Nianji muttered to herself. She blew on the car window and used her finger to unconsciously draw thin lines on it. Wu Xiaoheng's heart thumped. This was probably the first time he had heard Gu Nianji mention her biological parents. Because Gu Nianji didn't have any memories from before she was 12 years old, she grew up with Wu Xiaoheng and the others. It was as if she had been with them since she was born, and her biological parents had no place in her daily life. Now, she finally wanted to know where her biological parents were. Hua Xiaoheng drove in silence as he recalled Gu Nianji calling him dad and uncle when she was unconscious. She had said that her father was Gu Xiangwen, so who was her uncle? If Gu Xiangwen was her adoptive father, then in her memories, there was only her experience as an adoptive daughter? Was she adopted by the Gu family when she was very young? Hua Xiaoheng felt the fog in front of him rise again. Some things that he thought he had investigated clearly pointed in an unexpected direction. Also, they had tested Gu Nianji and Xie Qingying's DNA and confirmed that they were related. As far as Hua Xiaoheng knew, Xie Qingying's mother was Gu Tian, the daughter of the Gu family. Apparently, she was Gu Xiangwen's younger sister. This was the biggest doubt in Hua Xiaoheng's mind when he found out that Gu Nianji and Gu Xiangwen's DNA didn't match. Either Gu Tian wasn't the Gu family's biological daughter, or this Gu Xiangwen wasn't the real Gu Xiangwen. But if Gu Tian wasn't the Gu family's biological daughter, then why was her daughter related to Gu Nianji? Could it be that the two adoptive daughters of the Gu family were related by blood? How could it be so coincidental? This string of doubts echoed in Hua Xiaoheng's mind and gradually pointed in one direction. They should first investigate the authenticity of this Gu Xiangwen. Hua Xiaoheng and Gu Nianji were both thinking about their own matters. They didn't speak again on the way to school. It was already noon when they arrived at Gu Nianji's dormitory. Hua Xiaoheng parked the car and got out. You haven't had lunch yet. Let's go eat together. Not only had Gu Nianji skipped lunch, but she hadn't even had breakfast. She had overslept in the morning and had been so busy cleaning up after waking up that she hadn't had time to eat breakfast. After experiencing 2 scares from Hua Xiaoheng and Chen Lai, her stomach was rumbling now. It would have been better if Hua Xiaoheng hadn't mentioned it, but as soon as he mentioned food, her stomach growled. I'm really hungry. Hua Xiaoheng nodded. Should we go to a Cantonese restaurant or a Hubei restaurant? Both restaurants were near B University, so it was more convenient. Gu Nianji shook her head. She looked a little dispirited. I'll just grab something in the cafeteria. We'll be going to Chi-Chi's house soon. Gu Nianji suddenly remembered that she hadn't bought Ma Chi-Chi's parents a present yet. Hua Xiaoheng seemed to know what she was thinking. Then let's go have lunch first, then go to the supermarket nearby to buy some presents for Ma Chi-Chi's parents. Gu Nianji forced a smile. It's okay. I'll go back to the dormitory to put my things down, then go to the cafeteria to eat. I'll go to the supermarket outside the school to buy some presents. You can go do your things. Don't worry about me. Hua Xiaoheng stared at her for a while and sensed her faint resistance. He didn't insist. Okay, then go. Call me when you're there. Gu Nianji clutched the cloth bag in her hand and refused. That's not a good idea. I'm at someone else's house. Okay, up to you. Hua Xiaoheng took out his phone to look at it. I'm going back. He turned around and got into the car. He didn't look like he was reluctant to leave. The car quickly started and sped away. Before long, it disappeared from Gu Nianji's sight. Gu Nianji couldn't tell what she was feeling. She turned around to look at the tall graduate dormitory. When she left in the morning, she was still an unmarried young girl. When she returned, she was a married woman. Although Hua Xiaoheng said that if she still wasn't willing after 3 years, he would erase all traces of her information. However, that could only fool others, not herself. She knew that she had been married before. Also, when she left, she thought that her identity had been revealed. When she returned, she realized that she was still a mess. Shaking her head, Gu Nianji walked to the dormitory's elevator. Opening the dormitory door, Gu Nianji looked up to see Ma Chi-Chi talking to a man in the room. The man heard the door open and turned to look. His shimmering, sultry eyes flashed with a smile. It was Hijichu. Nianji, where did you go? Ma Chi-Chi smiled and waved at her. Did you have lunch? Professor, he said he wanted to eat at my place with us. Gu Nianji was speechless. What's wrong? Nianji, you don't welcome me? Hijichu stood up and smiled at her. Gu Nianji wore a bright red cashmere dress. The loose, tulip sleeves made her look even more charming. However, her face was a bit pale. Oh no. As long as Chi-Chi doesn't mind, I have no objections. I'm a guest too. Gu Nianji smiled slightly and suppressed the waves of emotions that were rolling in her heart. Of course I don't mind. It's my family's honor to be able to invite Professor He to my place for lunch. Ma Chi-Chi said happily. She walked over to pat Gu Nianji's shoulder. Did you have lunch? Gu Nianji shook her head. I was just about to go to the cafeteria. What about you? I just ate. Ma Chi-Chi turned to ask Hijichu. Professor He, did you have lunch? Hijichu glanced at Gu Nianji and shook his head. I didn't have time to eat. I'll go to the cafeteria with Nianji. Chi-Chi, you have to tell your parents that there will be an extra person coming. No problem. I'll make the call right now. Ma Chi-Chi smiled and waved at them before returning to her room to make the call. Gu Nianji put down her cloth bag and purse. She only took out her keys and meal card. She asked Hijichu, Professor He, you really didn't have lunch? Of course not. I came to have lunch with you anyway. Hijichu walked beside her. I know you're going to Chi-Chi's place for dinner tonight, so can you have lunch with me? After he arrived and chatted with Ma Chi-Chi for a while, Ma Chi-Chi took the initiative to invite him and Gu Nianji to her place as guests. Hijichu went with the flow and agreed. Gu Nianji had been seeing Hijichu every day for a week after she came back. If it wasn't for classes, it was to discuss the teaching assistant and assistant job. Sometimes they would have lunch together. Therefore, Gu Nianji only agreed to Hijichu's suggestion and went downstairs with him. They walked to the cafeteria and ordered 2 lunches. They carried their trays to an empty corner on the second floor and sat down. Hijichu ate halfway and said he had to go out for a while. He told Gu Nianji to eat alone. Gu Nianji didn't mind and waved at him to help himself. Unexpectedly, Hijichu returned after a while with a cake box in his hand. He placed it in front of her and smiled. Nianji, happy birthday. Gu Nianji didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she looked at the pink cake box and the little princess-like person on it. She nodded at Hijichu. Thank you, Professor He. No matter what, this was her first birthday cake of the day. Gu Nianji opened the cake box and breathed a sigh of relief when she saw that it was only a palm-sized cake. This cake looks delicious. Gu Nianji picked up the spoon and scooped a bite to put it in her mouth. The silky and fragrant taste instantly filled her mouth. It was indeed delicious. Gu Nianji's eyes narrowed as she enjoyed the delicious food. Her gloomy mood gradually improved. I found someone to order it. The recipe is exclusive. Hijichu moved the cake box away with a half-smile. He looked at Gu Nianji's satisfied expression and said, Looks like you still like this kind of cake. There was a hidden meaning in his words again. Gu Nianji didn't want to ask Hijichu about herself in the past. Or rather, she wouldn't believe him even if he told her. However, after what happened in Germany, her trust in Hijichu increased to another level. She glanced at Hijichu and wiped her mouth with a tissue. Leaning back in her chair, she looked at Hijichu quietly and said, Professor He, you knew a long time ago that I wasn't Gu Xiangwen's biological daughter, didn't you? This is the second update. Monthly votes of 4,900 plus updates. Today is the 4th update. That includes 2 monthly votes plus updates. Today is Monday, so don't forget your recommendation tickets. 3rd update at 7 p.m. Monthly votes of 5,400 plus updates at 11 p.m. Double monthly votes are continuing. Don't stop, dear. P.S. Thank you to Sister Ting 1010 for the 10,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Chapter 737. Hijichu was speechless. Is that so? Gu Nianji asked with a hint of urgency in her eyes. But legally, you are the real daughter of the Gu family. I don't think there's any dispute about that. As for whether you're biological or not, is it really that important? Hijichu also wiped his mouth with a tissue. His movements were elegant and proper, like a true aristocrat. Gu Nianji sighed. It's very important to me. What? Hijichu stared at her, seemingly confused. How did you know? In his impression, not many people knew about this, and these people should not have told Gu Nianji for various reasons. Gu Yanran said it herself. Gu Nianji's expression was a bit blank. Her impression of this cheap sister was getting worse and worse. Gu Yanran. Hijichu seemed very surprised. Are you sure? She really said it herself? Hijichu had originally thought that Gu Yanran would never have the guts to say this, but he had underestimated her. These women were really digging their own graves when they went crazy and ignored everything. Hijichu pursed his lips, a hint of ruthlessness flashing in his eyes. I didn't hear it myself, but the person who heard it is very reliable. I choose to believe him. Gu Nianji didn't say who it was because this matter involved Hua Xiaoheng's father, Hua Guanchen. I see. Hijichu frowned, his shimmering, sultry eyes flashing coldly. If you don't like hearing this, I can ask Gu Yanran to swallow what she said. That's not necessary. Gu Nianji spread her palms, her expression helpless and melancholy. How do I say this? Everyone says that giving birth is not as important as raising. But I don't have any memories from before I was 12, so I really don't have that kind of affection for the Gu family, Gu Xiangwen and Gu Yanran. And I originally thought that I was Gu Xiangwen's biological daughter, and Gu Yanran was an adopted daughter. But it turned out to be the opposite. I'm an adopted daughter and she's the biological daughter. Do you know how embarrassed I am? That's okay. You don't have to treat them as family. Hijichu finally understood Gunyenji's concerns. He sighed in relief and said nonchalantly, I'm just giving you someone to rely on. Gunyenji froze. What do you mean? Hijichu realized he had made a slip of the tongue. He picked up the glass of juice beside him and took a sip. He covered it up and said, You are indeed a daughter of the Gu family whether Gu Yanran admits it or not. You don't have to worry about her. I don't care about her but she cares about me, Gunyenji said sarcastically. Does she care about you? Yeah, I'm an eyesore. I feel like I'm a thorn in her side. She can't ignore me and can't get rid of me. Ha ha ha. Gunyenji knocked on her bowl and laughed so hard that tears were about to come out. Hijichu laughed and shook his head. You're overthinking it. Even if you were a thorn in her side, she wouldn't dare to do anything to you. I'm here, don't be afraid. Gunyenji's smile faded as she stared at Hijichu. Professor He, you must know about my past. May I ask what you're hiding? After experiencing life and death in Germany and seeing her relationship with Hua Xiaoheng come to an end, Gunyenji suddenly had a strong desire to uncover her past. Perhaps it was because she no longer saw Hua Xiaoheng as her only support. Gunyenji wanted to be independent, so she needed to have her complete self. This complete self included the present, the future, and her past. The present was in her hands and the future was in her efforts. Only the past existed in the black hole of her memory. How could she uncover her past? Gunyenji knew that she had to find her roots in order to truly feel at ease. Otherwise she would always feel empty. She didn't know who she was, where she came from, or where she was going. This feeling of not having roots and no memories was terrible. Hijichu's posture was still elegant and the expression on his face didn't change. However, when he looked down, a complicated emotion flashed across his eyes. His hand holding the chopsticks was a bit stiff. Gunyenji didn't see Hijichu's momentary wariness. She held a glass of freshly squeezed mango juice and persistently asked, Professor He, today is my birthday. Can't you tell me about the past you know? You'll believe me if I tell you now? Hijichu quickly composed himself, and a smile gradually appeared in his eyes. Would you believe me if I told you that you were engaged to me the moment you were born? Gunyenji had just taken a sip of mango juice and immediately spat it out when she heard that. If Hijichu hadn't dodged quickly, his light-colored suit would have been sprayed with yellow juice. Aha, you don't believe me, right? Hijichu smiled faintly and shook his head. So why ask? I said you're a daughter of the Gu family, so you're a daughter of the Gu family. Why do you care if you're adopted or biological? Of course, if you really care about whether you're Gu Xiangwen's biological daughter or not, you can find the answer yourself. I'll provide you with any assistance you need. Hijichu clasped his hands together and rested them on his chin. His shimmering, sultry eyes focused on Gunyenji. Not a trace of emotion was left in them. Gunyenji quickly wiped the small dining table with a tissue and complained, Professor He, you don't usually joke around but this time it's an international joke. I can't take it. Just treat it as a joke. Therefore, the things that others tell you, whether they are true or false, you still have to verify them yourself. Just like I taught you before, as a lawyer, you have to defend your client to the best of your ability, but never take what the client or witness say as the whole truth. The complete truth only exists in rigorous logical reasoning. Don't think that just because many things in life are inconceivable, they don't have logic. In fact, they all have extremely rigorous internal logic. It's just that most people don't see the internal logic and only see the absurd appearance. Hijichu helped Gunyenji clear the table as he spoke. Gunyenji nodded and said sincerely, I understand, Professor He. I'll investigate this myself. Even if I'm adopted, I have to find out where they adopted me and who my biological parents are. Hijichu's hand trembled imperceptibly when he heard that, but he quickly recovered and smiled. Okay. But if that's the case, can you still graduate in 4 months? Investigating the truth of one's parentage was a huge project to begin with. If you added 5 more courses and a master's thesis, even Gunyenji wouldn't be able to complete it. She frowned and thought about it, then quickly brightened up and smiled. Thank you for your advice, Professor He. I was being stubborn. My most important task now is to finish my studies, graduate early and find a full-time job. It won't be too late to investigate my parentage when I can settle down. That's right. Hijichu squeezed her hand with satisfaction. Nyenji, I'm looking forward to the day you graduate early. He would only be able to pursue her openly after she graduated. They were still teacher and student at the moment. Although Hijichu didn't care about other people's opinions, Gunyenji couldn't. Hijichu wouldn't give anyone a chance to tarnish Gunyenji's reputation. He would rather wait until the day he could officially pursue Gunyenji. Besides, he had already waited for so many years. A few more months didn't matter. After lunch, they left the cafeteria together and walked to the warehouse supermarket outside the school. Hijichu remembered Gunyenji's attitude from before and asked casually, "How are things between you and Hua Xiaoheng?" Gunyenji was speechless. She hesitated before saying, "We broke up, but I don't plan on finding a boyfriend for the next 3 years. I want to work hard in my career." Hijichu looked at her meaningfully. "It's good to have a career, but are you sure you won't find a boyfriend for the next 3 years?" "Yeah, I don't want to, and I hope people won't harass me," Gunyenji said solemnly. That was indeed what she was prepared for. Her marriage with Hua Xiaoheng couldn't be made public, but she didn't want people to think she was still with Hua Xiaoheng. Therefore they had to break up in front of others. Of course, she didn't want Hijichu to misunderstand, so she simply said she wouldn't find a boyfriend for the next 3 years. After 3 years, when her marriage with Hua Xiaoheng was dissolved, she would only be 22 years old. It wouldn't be too late to seriously consider her marriage then. And after 3 years she would also be 3 years older and definitely more mature than she was now. It was the third watch. It was the fourth watch today. It included 2 monthly votes and more updates. Today was Monday, so don't forget the recommendation votes. There was a fourth watch at 11 p.m., and the monthly votes were 5,400 plus updates. The double monthly votes were still going on. Don't stop, dear. Chapter 738. Gunyenji instantly remembered Hua Xiaoheng saying she didn't have the maturity of an adult. Gunyenji's eyes dimmed as she reminded herself that her studies were the most important thing right now. She couldn't afford to be distracted. After making up her mind, Gunyenji turned to talk to Hijichu about her graduation thesis. The two of them chatted as they walked. Soon they arrived at a large warehouse supermarket outside the school. Gunyenji bought a set of health supplements for middle-aged and elderly people and a set of Lancome skincare products. She had someone wrap them up and planned to give them to Machichi's parents as gifts. Hijichu helped her carry the health supplements while Gunyenji hugged the Lancome gift box. They chatted and laughed as they walked back to school. When the two of them returned to Gunyenji's dorm, Machichi greeted them with a smile. "I called my parents and they're very welcoming of Professor He. He also said, why don't we go there earlier? We can go to my house to play. My house is in the suburbs and it's very big. It even has a backyard." Gunyenji looked at Hijichu and smiled. "Professor He, are you free? If you don't have time now, Chichi and I will be leaving first." Hijichu nodded slightly. "I have time. Let's go together." "That's great. Professor He, are you driving? Let's have a ride." Machichi quickly returned to her room to grab her backpack and sent her address to Hijichu's phone. Gunyenji also looked at Hijichu and said, "Thank you, Professor He." "Don't mention it." Hijichu's shimmering sultry eyes flashed. "I'll go get the car. You guys wait. I'll call you when we get there." Hijichu quickly drove his Bentley to Gunyenji's dorm. Gunyenji and Machichi were already waiting at the door. The two of them chatted happily as they got into Hijichu's car. Hijichu sat alone in the driver's seat in the front while Gunyenji and Machichi sat in the back. Machichi looked around excitedly and asked Hijichu, "Professor He, don't you have a really cool Maserati?" Gunyenji. Hijichu didn't mind and replied dryly, "Yes, but that's a sports car. It can only seat 2 people. There were 3 of them now. Of course, this spacious Bentley was more suitable. Gunyenji noticed that the Bentley was also silver in color. Of course it wasn't an SUV. Hijichu entered Machichi's address into the car's GPS, turned on the navigation and drove out of the school. At that moment, a plane from France slowly landed in Terminal T3 of the Huaxia Imperial Capital International Airport. In the first-class cabin of the plane, Hua Jialan, dressed in the latest Chanel autumn travel suit, approached Hua Xuanong and whispered, "Grandfather, we've arrived." Hua Xuanong opened his eyes. "We're here? So fast? I only slept once." "Yes, just arrived. This plane is not bad. It's very stable." As Hua Jialan spoke, she put on her Chanel double C bag and grabbed Hua Xuanong's cane. "You can use this." Hua Xuanong nodded. Through the porthole of the plane, he saw the familiar late autumn scenery of the imperial capital outside the window. His expression was a little unpleasant. A few months ago he was stripped of his rank of general and forced to retire because of what happened to the head nurse. For a moment he felt ashamed and hurried abroad to avoid the limelight. He hadn't had a good time in the past few months abroad. The Xies had a lot of complaints about him because of his wife, Xiezian. However, they were all civilized people and wouldn't slight him just because of the discord between him and his deceased wife. Of course they didn't treat him very well either. Hua Xuanong had been a senior official for most of his life. One could imagine how depressed he was when he suddenly fell from the highest position. In the past few months, his hair had gone from gray to completely white. He looked more than 10 years older. "Grandfather, let's get off the plane." Hua Jialan considerately held Hua Xuanong's arm and walked out of the cabin with him. However, when he thought about the Prime Minister's inauguration that night, Hua Xuanong felt that he had regained some of his dignity. After all, the Prime Minister's wife had personally invited him. He felt that he would be regaining some of the dignity he had lost. The new Prime Minister's wife, Kai Songyin, was indeed a smooth talker and was very good at reading people's expressions. She flattered both Hua Guanchen and Hua Xuanong very well. When Hua Xuanong received Kai Songyin's call from the Wuxia Empire, along with the express delivery invitation and plane ticket, he instantly straightened his back from bending down in the Sieyès manor in France. Hua Jialan was also secretly happy. She had lived in the Sieyès manor in France for a few months and had truly witnessed what it meant to be an aristocratic family. The Sieyès wealth was currently unmatched by any other family in the Wuxia Empire. It was a pity that such a family had migrated abroad a long time ago. However, although Liang Yuan was nice, it wasn't a place to stay for long. Hua Jialan had wanted to return to the Wuxia Empire a long time ago, but just like Hua Xuanong, her reputation was almost ruined because of her mother's lawsuit. She could barely survive in the Hua family, so she followed Hua Xuanong abroad to avoid the limelight. She was able to come back this time because Kai Songyin had promised to help Hua Jialan find a creative director position in the media she was familiar with. Therefore, Hua Jialan often spoke well of the Tans in front of Hua Xuanong and helped Kai Songyin. The grandmother and granddaughter got off the plane and went through customs before going to collect their luggage. They had practically brought nothing when they left the country, but when they returned they had 4 large suitcases full of things. Most of it was luxury goods that Hua Jialan had bought in France, and a small portion was Hua Xuanong's daily necessities. The two of them stood in the airport lobby where luggage was collected and looked around for a long time, but didn't see Hua Xiaoheng. "Grandfather, didn't eldest cousin say he was coming to pick us up?" Hua Jialan was especially nervous and kept asking if Hua Xiaoheng was coming to pick them up. Hua Xuanong was getting impatient and waved his hand. "Your second uncle said he was coming to pick us up. Would he dare to disobey?" Hua Jialan smiled sheepishly and held Hua Xuanong's arm to look around. After waiting for a long time, Hua Xiaoheng still wasn't there. Seeing that there were fewer and fewer people collecting luggage, Hua Jialan could only say to Hua Xuanong, "Grandfather, wait here. I'll go get the luggage." Hua Xuanong nodded. "Hurry up. I'll call your second uncle." Hua Xuanong dialed Hua Guanchen's number and said sternly, "Guanchen, did you tell Xiaoheng that you're back?" Hua Guanchen was pleasantly surprised. "Have you arrived at the airport?" "Yes, it's been a while since I got off the plane." Hua Xuanong looked at his watch. "It's already 2 o'clock. Why haven't I seen Xiaoheng yet?" Hua Guanchen's heart skipped a beat. He remembered what Hua Xiaoheng had said and quickly said, "Wait, I'll ask Xiaoheng." He dialed Hua Xiaoheng's number again, but just like last time, his call went straight to voicemail. Hua Guanchen had no choice but to say to the voicemail, "Xiaoheng, your grandfather has already arrived at the airport. Why haven't you picked him up yet?" Hua Xiaoheng had already sent his head orderly, Fan Jian, to pick up grandfather Hua. In the past, when Fan Jian went to the airport to pick people up, he would always wait outside the T3 terminal. However, Hua Xuanong was always used to people picking him up from the airport. Because of this, he had been delayed for a long time. When Hua Xuanong and Hua Jialan pushed 4 suitcases out of the terminal gate, Fan Jian, who had been waiting for a long time, finally saw them and quickly waved at them. "This way. This way." Hua Jialan's eyes were sharp. She turned around and saw Hua Xiaoheng's driver, Fan Jian. She immediately smiled like a flower and said to Hua Xuanong, "Grandfather, isn't that cousin's car? Let's go." "Yes, don't run around. Follow me." Hua Xuanong had now become a very caring elder and spoke to Hua Jialan sternly. Hua Jialan obediently moved to the side and waited for Hua Xuanong to get into the car first before she got in. Fan Jian's driving skills were very good and he was also very eloquent. He explained to grandfather Hua. Xiao suddenly had a fever last night. The fever didn't subside this morning, so he was in a hurry to pick you up. The doctor strongly urged him to rest at home, so he didn't come. However, he specifically told me to pick you up. Sick? What kind of illness? Is it serious? Hua Jialan immediately became nervous. She wanted to call Hua Xiaoheng herself. I'm not sure about that. I heard it's just a fever. Fan Jian's answer was very clever and did not arouse their suspicions. Hua Xuanong even snorted and said, "It's not late or early, but we just had to get sick when we came back." Grandfather, you can't say that. There's no choice when it comes to illness. Hua Jialan said and looked at the driver Fan Jian. The doctor said to rest at home? Doesn't that mean he can't walk around? Did you know that my cousin will be attending the Prime Minister's inauguration tonight? Fan Jian smiled and said, the chief is sick. He can't attend even if he wanted to. He wants to, but he doesn't have the strength. It was the 4th update, and the monthly tickets had arrived at 5,400 plus updates. It was the 4th update today. That included 2 monthly tickets plus updates. Today was Monday, so don't forget the recommendation tickets. The double monthly tickets were continuing. Don't stop, dear. Chapter 739. Elder cousin isn't going today? As Hua Jialan spoke, she glanced at Grandfather Hua. Grandfather, should we visit eldest cousin brother? Fan Jian's heart quivered when he heard this. He wondered if he had gone too far with his words and caused the opposite effect. He coughed and said, the chief ordered me to take you back to the military compound. Please understand, Miss Hua, I have to obey orders. Obeying orders was a soldier's duty. Grandfather Hua thought for a moment and nodded. Then take us back first. I'll call Xiaoheng to ask after we get back. Even Grandfather Hua had said so. Hua Jialan had no choice but to be sent back to the Hua Manor. Hua Guanchen greeted them at the door. Seeing Grandfather Hua get out of the car, Hua Guanchen greeted him happily. Father, you're back. Yes. Grandfather Hua looked around proudly with his walking stick. It was 3 or 4 in the afternoon. The military compound was quiet with no one coming or going. Evergreen trees lined both sides of the tree-lined path. The leaves rustled when the breeze blew. Although it couldn't compare to the Xia Manor in France, it was the scene Grandfather Hua and Hua Jialan were most familiar with. After living here for so many years, the scenery had become sentimental. It wasn't just beautiful scenery. Hua Guanchen held Grandfather Hua's arm as they walked into the Hua Manor. Fan Jian quickly drove back to the Special Operations Forces base to report to Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng looked up from his desk and glanced at Fan Jian. Yes, I know. You did well. There's nothing else today. You can go rest. It was Sunday and Fan Jian was supposed to have the day off. He breathed a sigh of relief and told Hua Xiaoheng about the situation outside before saluting and leaving Hua Xiaoheng's office. Hua Xiaoheng worked on his computer for a while before looking at his watch. It was almost 4:30. He was about to call his mother when the landline rang. He picked up the phone and asked, "What is it?" It was the operator on the other end. "Mr. Hua, your grandfather is calling to ask about your health." Hua Xiaoheng didn't want to answer Grandfather Hua's call. He replied dryly, "I still have a fever. I'll call back when I'm better." "Yes, Chief." The operator knew what was going on and said tactfully to Grandfather Hua, who was waiting to speak to Hua Xiaoheng, "Grandfather Hua, the chief is still ill and can't answer the phone for the time being. When the bureau chief recovers, he will give you a call." Grandfather Hua was so angry that he almost threw the phone on the floor. However, he couldn't vent his anger on the operator, so he could only suppress his anger and say in a low, muffled voice, "All right, let him rest well. When he's better, let him come home and we'll have a family reunion." "Yes, Grandfather Hua." After Grandfather Hua hung up, the operator relayed his words to Hua Xiaoheng's voicemail. Of course, Hua Xiaoheng didn't pick up because he was calling his mother. "Are you going to the Prime Minister's inauguration today?" Song Jining was talking to Hua Xiaoheng through her Bluetooth headset. She was still typing on the keyboard and looking at the simulation experiment data analysis on the computer. She said, "I'm going. I'm one of the leaders of the subject. The Minister of Education is coming with us." Hua Xiaoheng knew that his mother didn't like to show her face in public and had always avoided such occasions. He didn't expect her to attend today. He thought for a moment and said, "If you're busy, you don't have to go. That should be fine, right?" "Why not? It's a big problem." Song Jining couldn't help but rub her temples. She had almost lost 16 years of her life. When she woke up after 16 years, she realized that everything was very different from before. 16 years ago, when her father was the director of the Institute of High Energy Physics, the funding for the institute was directly allocated by the state. They only needed to do research and didn't need to worry about themselves. Now, the funding for the Institute of High Energy Physics was stuck in the hands of the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Finance. If they needed funding, they had to submit a report and apply for it. Whether they could get it or not depended on their relationships. Song Jining wasn't used to it in the beginning, but she had always been a top student. She learned everything very quickly, including interpersonal relationships. She wasn't very good at interpersonal relationships in the past because it wasn't necessary, so she didn't spend her energy on it. Now it was a practical need. After suffering twice, she learned to apply for funding. Now she could submit a report and apply for funding. However, Prime Minister Do, whom she had just gotten to know a few months ago, had already stepped down. Now the new Prime Minister Tan Dongbang was in power, so she still had to show her face. Having a good relationship with the new Prime Minister's cabinet would be very beneficial for the institute. Hua Xiaoheng quietly listened to Song Jining talk about the difficulties she had encountered in the past few months and how she had overcome them. She had gone from being the director of the Institute of High Energy Physics, which everyone looked up to out of nowhere. Now she was the director of the institute who had real power and was loyal to all the researchers. The past few months had been thrilling, but also busy and fulfilling. Hua Xiaoheng had also heard about Song Jining's difficulties and had asked a few friends in the cabinet to keep an eye on her, worried that there would be a situation that Song Jining couldn't handle. However, Song Jining was very capable. There hadn't been a situation that she couldn't handle in the past few months. She hadn't even used Hua Xiaoheng's connections. Therefore, Hua Xiaoheng only listened to Song Jining's complaints, with a smile and didn't interrupt her. That's why I have to go tonight. Your mother isn't a Frankenstein living in a vacuum. Song Jining beamed as she looked at the simulation experiment data on the computer. She was very excited. Xiaoheng, let me tell you, the simulation experiments I've done on the computer these past few months have been very successful. After running the simulation a few more times, I'll apply for an official experiment. Hua Xiaoheng's heart skipped a beat. He immediately sat up straight. Really? Congratulations then. But if you really want to restart the official experiment, please report to the military. Don't report to the cabinet. Oh, got it. Song Jining immediately understood what Hua Xiaoheng meant. I'll be careful to keep it a secret. You must remember not to tell anyone about this. Hua Xiaoheng reminded Song Jining as he turned on his computer to check the surveillance program at the Institute of High Energy Physics. The conversation just now had been completely erased by him. Even the surveillance equipment there didn't leave a trace. Song Jining didn't talk about this anymore. Instead, she asked Hua Xiaoheng, Xiaoheng, will you be going tonight? Hua Xiaoheng shook his head and said casually, I have a fever. I can't go. Song Jining was speechless. Fever? Then why are you talking so much to me? Go and rest. Remember to drink more hot water and don't stay up late. Song Jining's heart ached when she heard this. She didn't doubt the truth of Hua Xiaoheng's words at all. Hua Xiaoheng's lips curled into a smile. His voice softened. Yes, I will rest. Then he thought for a moment and asked, Have you prepared the dress for the Prime Minister's inauguration today? Dress? Song Jining frowned. I'll just wear a black dress. I have a few. Then she put on the big black-rimmed glasses that covered her face and put her hair in an old-fashioned bun. Finally, she pinned a white magnolia brooch on her lapel. It would make her look at least 10 years older. That was because Song Jining's appearance was like a bug compared to her real age. Although she was almost 50 years old, she had been ill for 16 years due to the injury she had sustained during the experiment. Those 16 years had been stagnant for her. She looked no different from 16 years ago. Her skin was still smooth and fair, and her features were bright and moving. However, the innocence and shyness in her expression had disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by cheerfulness and magnanimity. She was beautiful and dazzling, like a peony in full bloom. However, Song Jining loved to dress up like an old lady. For someone of her status, the older she looked, the easier it was to gain sympathy and respect from others. It could also avoid unnecessary entanglements and trouble. If Song Jining didn't want to go, it would be fine. Hua Xiaoheng wouldn't force his mother to do anything. However, Song Jining wanted to go excitedly and didn't want to be isolated from the real world. Therefore, Hua Xiaoheng changed his mind and wanted his mother to be in the limelight. He truly felt that if a tiger didn't show its might, the Hua family would be treated like a sick cat. Any Tom, Dick, or Harry could order them around. He had endured this ever since he went to the United States and realized he had fallen into a trap. He had to vent it now. Mom, don't wear that black dress. Hua Xiaoheng called her mom for the first time. Song Jinning's tears immediately fell. Her son called her mom. Of course, she would agree to anything her son said. Therefore, when Hua Xiaoheng suggested sending her a dress, Song Jinning immediately said, "Sure, I'm in the lab. Send it here." Hua Xiaoheng agreed and hung up the phone. He went to his room to pack the dress, jewelry, shoes, and matching handbag he had prepared for Song Jinning a while ago into a small suitcase. He carried it to the entrance of the official residence. The dress, jewelry, shoes, and handbag were originally prepared by Hua Xiaoheng for his wedding with Gu Nianji. There were several sets, and one of them was just right for today's occasion. Hua Xiaoheng personally drove a pearlescent blue Bentley with an expert agent from the Special Operations Forces who specialized in doing makeup and styling for field agents in the car. Fan Jian drove Hua Xiaoheng's silver Bentley SUV behind them. The two luxury cars arrived at the Institute of High-Energy Physics one after another and stopped in front of Song Jinning's office building. Hua Xiaoheng carried the small suitcase and went upstairs with the expert agent. This was the first update. It was still the fourth update today, that included 2 monthly votes plus updates. Reminders: don't forget your recommendation votes. Monthly votes at 1 p.m. 5,900 plus updates, third update at 7 p.m. and monthly votes at 11 p.m. 6,400 plus updates. Double monthly votes are continuing. Don't stop, dear. Chapter 740. Xiaoheng, are you going on a business trip? Song Jinning opened the office door and immediately saw the small suitcase in his hands. Then she saw a handsome and tall young man next to Hua Xiaoheng. He looked at Song Jinning and smiled. Director Song, hello. I'm Major General Hua's subordinate. In this suitcase are the gown and jewelry I prepared for you. Hua Xiaoheng put the suitcase on the floor and introduced her to them. Mother, this is Xiaoning. She specializes in styling. Then he said to his agent, Xiaoning, help my mother with a better style. Do your best. Xiaoning smiled. Don't worry, Hua Xiao. I can achieve whatever effect you want. I was waiting for you to say that. Hua Xiaoheng patted Xiaoning's shoulder and nodded encouragingly. Song Jinning glanced at them with a smile and carried her suitcase into the inner room to change. Hua Xiaoheng followed her in. There were some things he needed to say. Song Jinning entered the house and put down her suitcase. She turned around and saw Hua Xiaoheng following her in. What else do you have to say? Song Jinning closed the door and looked Hua Xiaoheng up and down. So you don't have a fever. That meant that he didn't intend to go. Hua Xiaoheng smiled and did not explain further. He opened his suitcase to reveal a gown, jewelry, shoes, and handbag. Mom, you'll be the most eye-catching guest at the Prime Minister's inauguration ceremony today. Song Jinning frowned slightly as she looked at the evening gown in the suitcase that was as smooth as the moon. What do you mean? Is there a need for me to steal the show on such an occasion? What are you trying to do? For Song Jinning, this was a matter of basic etiquette. For example, at someone else's wedding ceremony, deliberately dressing up to be more beautiful than the bride was the main characteristic and practice of a scheming B***tch. Song Jinning would never do such a thing and she disdained to do it. However, Hua Xiaoheng only said one sentence. Thanks to the Tan and Kai families, your son almost died in the United States. Song Jinning felt a buzzing sound in her head, and a surge of blood rose from her chest. Etiquette and rules were all thrown to the back of her mind at this moment. She immediately understood Hua Xiaoheng's intentions today. Why did he lie about having a fever and not attend the Prime Minister's inauguration? Why did they have to send her expensive gowns and jewelry just to dress her up? Tan and Kai, weren't they the main couple at the Prime Minister's inauguration today? She clutched her chest and asked nervously, What did you say? Are you serious? You taught me that it's impolite not to reciprocate. They schemed and schemed to weave such a big net to trap me. Of course I have to return it. Hua Xiaoheng's tone was very normal, as if he was talking about a trivial matter, but Song Jinning's eyes instantly reddened. Xiaoheng, what do you want me to do? I'll listen to you. Her voice trembled as she reached out to hold Hua Xiaoheng's arm. However, she dropped it weakly halfway. His son was almost 30 years old and was no longer the little boy he used to be. Mom, don't be sad. I told you they're not the only ones who can weave webs. I can too. Hua Xiaoheng's voice was slightly cold. Also, my net is bigger and denser. Once it's tightened, no one will escape. Song Jinning looked at Hua Xiaoheng with tears in her eyes. Once again she felt that she was not a good mother. Hua Xiaoheng had been raised by his grandmother, Xie Zian, ever since he was born. Later, something happened to her during an experiment and his grandmother, Xie Zian, passed away. Hua Xiaoheng had been completely on his own. It was God's blessing that he could grow up to this point. Hua Xiaoheng's lips twitched as he took a tissue from the table and passed it to Song Jining. Mom, don't be agitated. I'm fine. Go to the Prime Minister's inauguration today. I only hope that you can perform as well as you can. He wouldn't pressure Song Jining. He only hoped that she would stop hiding herself. Gold should shine and diamonds should be resplendent. Fish eyes should be as quiet as a chicken. Don't pretend to be a pearl and think that everyone is blind and can't see through it. After a while, Hua Xiaoheng walked out of the room and asked Xiaoning to go in and style Song Jining. Xiaoning nodded and walked in with a smile. As soon as he entered the door, he saw a beautiful woman standing in the middle of the room. She was wearing a red mermaid dress. Although she was not wearing any makeup, she was still dazzling. It was as if there was really light shooting out from where she was standing, dazzling people's eyes. Xiaoning shifted his gaze slightly. He was so shocked by the woman's appearance that his heart almost stopped beating. There was actually such a beautiful woman in the world. Was she really almost 50? With this kind of heaven-defying beauty, Xiaoning felt that if he dressed her up, he could even make her look like she was in her early 20s, let alone in her early 30s. As he walked closer to take a closer look, Xiaoning couldn't stop praising her. Director Song, how do you take care of your skin? Let me test your skin age. When he saw the data on the test paper, Xiaoning was completely speechless. It turned out that she had good genes and was resistant to aging. The data on the test paper showed that Song Jining's skin age was only 22 years old. Xiaoning didn't want to speak anymore. He pursed his lips and used his special skills to style Song Jining. First, he did her hair, then the makeup on her face. He also had to take care of her skin. Finally, he looked at her facial features. Originally, with Xiaoning's abilities, it was very normal for him to make makeup that could be described as plastic surgery, but Song Jining's facial features were impeccable. Xiaoning studied for a long time and finally only retouched Song Jining's eyebrows. So other than the usual things like foundation, blush, highlights, and trimming, the biggest change Xiaoning made to Song Jining's face was to fix her eyebrows ===. Hua Xiaoheng waited outside for more than an hour before Xiaoning came out. He said to Hua Xiaoheng excitedly, Hua Xiao, if Director Song is free in the future, can I come and ask Director Song for advice on the secret technique of maintaining health? Hua Xiaoheng was speechless. The door behind him opened from the inside and Song Jining walked out slowly. In that instant the air in the room seemed to stop flowing. Hua Xiaoheng's eyes flashed and he gave Xiaoning a thumbs up. Not bad, Xiaoning. The effect is better than I expected. Actually, Director Song has a good foundation. I only fixed her eyebrows. Xiaoning looked at Song Jining with a dreamy expression. That was the best work of his life. Hua Xiaoheng walked over to Song Jining and said, Mom, it's already past 6. I'll have Fan Jian and Xiaoning stay behind to take you to the National Center for the Performing Arts for the Prime Minister's inauguration. Go in my car. He left the pearlescent blue Bentley for Song Jining to use as her personal car and drove the silver Bentley Bentayga SUV away from the Institute of High Energy Physics. After Hua Xiaoheng left, Xiaoning followed him downstairs to find Fan Jian. Seeing him standing in front of the pearlescent blue Bentley in a daze, Xiaoning walked over and patted his shoulder. Xiao Fan, what are you spacing out for? He looked at the Bentley and praised, this car is really nice. Is it Hua Xiao's personal car? It's all Hua Xiao's own cars. Fan Jian gulped. I can also drive the Bentley today. Look at you. Don't embarrass Hua Xiao today. Xiaoning was making a guest appearance as Song Jining's assistant today and would follow her to the event. Fan Jian was the driver. Hua Xiaoheng drove away from the Institute of High Energy Physics and called Yin Shixiang on the way. Big Xiong, are you busy tonight? Yin Shixiang was bored at home alone and almost wanted to go online to play games. He was very happy to receive Hua Xiaoheng's call and asked, Hua Xiao, what's the fun? Hua Xiaoheng smiled slightly and his voice was relaxed. Do you want to go to Chi-Chi's house and have a look? Chi-Chi? Ma Chi-Chi? Yin Shixiang grinned. This girl is quite interesting. What? Does Hua Xiao want to go? Nianji is going to Ma Chi-Chi's house for dinner today. Hua Xiaoheng said meaningfully. Yin Shixiang understood instantly. Understood. I'll go ask Chi-Chi. He hung up and immediately sent a text to Ma Chi-Chi. He asked bluntly, Chi-Chi, I'm free today. Can I come over to your house for dinner? At that moment, Ma Chi-Chi, Gu Nianji, and Hijichu were playing poker in the game room on the second floor of her house. Her phone beeped as a text message came in. Ma Qiqi glanced at it and saw it was a text from Yin Shixiang. She quickly took the phone to read it. "Want to eat?" Ma Qiqi smiled and sent a big, "Okay." Yin Shixiang also smiled when he received the message. He asked Ma Qiqi for the address and agreed on a time before calling Huo Xiaoheng. "Huo Xiao, Qiqi invited me to dinner." He grinned and deliberately didn't mention Huo Xiaoheng. Huo Xiaoheng didn't care at all. "Okay, I have a car. I'll drive you there." He made it sound like Yin Shixiang didn't have a car. Yin Shixiang rolled his eyes at Huo Xiaoheng's words. He knew that every time he failed to trick Huo Xiaoheng, he would only humiliate himself. "Huo Xiao, hurry up and come pick me up." Yin Shixiang hung up listlessly. Ma Qiqi's house was in the suburbs of the imperial capital and wasn't far from the Institute of High-Energy Physics. Huo Xiaoheng and Yin Shixiang arrived at Ma Qiqi's house in half an hour. "Brother Xiong, you're here." Ma Qiqi rushed out of the house when she heard the car outside. A silver-gray Bentley SUV was parked on the side of the road in front of her house. Not only did Yin Shixiang get out of the car, but Huo Xiaoheng also got out. This is the second update. The monthly ticket is 5,900 plus updates. It's also the fourth update today. That includes 2 monthly tickets plus updates. Don't forget your recommendation tickets, dear ones. The third update at 7 p.m. and the fourth update at 11 p.m. The monthly ticket is 6,400 plus updates. The double monthly tickets are continuing. Don't stop, dear ones. Chapter 741. Huo Xiao. Ma Qiqi was so shocked she couldn't even close her mouth. You. Why are you here?" Yin Shixiang smirked and waved his hand in front of Ma Qiqi. "Qiqi, come back. Your brother Xiong is here." Ma Qiqi grabbed Yin Shixiang's waving hand and couldn't help whispering in his ear, "Why is Huo Xiao here too?" Yin Shixiang didn't mention Huo Xiao at all when he texted. Of course, Yin Shixiang wouldn't ruin his chief's reputation. He coughed and said, "When I left, Huo Xiao happened to come out for business, so I got in his car and came over." Ma Qiqi sighed in relief and patted her chest. So Huo Xiao was going to work. That's good. She had thought that Huo Xiaoheng would leave after dropping Yin Shixiang off. She hadn't expected Huo Xiaoheng to follow Yin Shixiang into her house and casually say, "It's done." Ma Qiqi was speechless. Huo Xiaoheng walked into Ma Qiqi's house and casually glanced around the living room but didn't see Gu Nianji. Ma Qiqi caught up to him and said, "Nianji and Professor He are here too. Do you want to see them?" Huo Xiaoheng's eyes flashed as he looked at Yin Shixiang without a word. Yin Shixiang quickly said, "Nianji is here too? What a coincidence. Of course we have to see them." This was too deliberate. Huo Xiaoheng looked at Yin Shixiang with displeasure and said politely to Ma Qiqi, "Let's meet Mr. and Mrs. Ma first." He wanted to greet Ma Qiqi's parents first since he was a guest at their home. Huo Xiaoheng's politeness scared Ma Qiqi. She nodded blankly and ran to the kitchen to pull out her busy parents. She introduced them. "Mom, Dad, this is Brother Xiong and this is Huo Xiao. They are Nianji's relatives and friends. I'm quite familiar with them." "Oh, you are Nianji's relatives and friends? Are you here to pick her up? Have you had dinner? If not, why don't you stay for a meal?" Ma Qiqi's parents greeted them warmly. Before Yin Shixiang could think of what to say, Huo Xiaoheng smiled faintly and said, "Thank you both. We won't stand on ceremony then." As he spoke, he turned to Yin Shixiang and said, "Big Xiong, there's a basket of crabs in the trunk of my car. Bring it over to Qiqi." "A basket of crabs?" Ma Qiqi's eyes almost popped out. Her family ate crabs by the number, but she didn't expect Huo Xiao to eat crabs by the basket. Yin Shixiang made a face at Ma Qiqi's shocked expression and chuckled. He took the car keys and went out to get the crabs. The basket of crabs was obviously bought by Huo Xiaoheng not long ago. They were still alive and kicking, crawling around in the bamboo basket. It was very crowded. Ma Qiqi's father looked at the basket of crabs and was overjoyed. "That's great. Steamed crabs with vinegar sauce are delicious." Huo Xiaoheng nodded and smiled. "Mr. Ma knows his stuff. You're too kind, Mr. Hua." Ma Qiqi's father was a businessman. His family wasn't considered wealthy, but they were above average. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to afford a villa with a backyard in the suburbs and an apartment on San Juan East Road in the city. It was planned to be Ma Qiqi's dowry. He took the crabs and went to the kitchen with Ma Qiqi's mother to clean up. Their family usually had hourly workers to cook and clean the house, but because Ma Chichi had solemnly instructed them to have a meal today, the couple decided to personally cook and make a table full of delicious dishes. Ma Chichi took Hua Xiaoheng and Yin Shixiang to the game room on the second floor. He Zichu and Gun Yanji sat at opposite ends of the chess table and were talking. There was a translucent lotus leaf lamp installed on the roof of the game room. The bright light was filtered and shone down softly. Everything in the room seemed to be filtered. Hijichu wore a white striped shirt with a light blue collared cashmere sweater. He stared at Gun Yanji, his gaze seemingly glued to her face as his slender fingers shuffled the cards over and over again. Gun Yanji sat with her back to the door and said something. Hijichu suddenly looked at Gun Yanji and pursed his lips into a smile. His shimmering peach blossom eyes were full of tenderness and sweetness. Hua Xiaoheng clasped his hands behind his back and secretly clenched his fists. However, he restrained himself and didn't say anything. Ma Chichi walked over with a smile. Nianji, Professor He, Hua Xiao and Brother Xiong are also here for dinner. Gun Yanji turned around and looked at Hua Xiaoheng and Yin Shixiang standing at the door with surprise. Brother Xiong, Hua Xiao, why are you here? Hua Xiaoheng glanced at Yin Shixiang and immediately said, Big Xiong wants to see Chichi. Yin Shixiang pursed his lips and was about to retort when he saw Ma Chichi's bright and pretty face suddenly blush from the corner of his eye. Under the soft light, Yin Shixiang could see the fine hair on Ma Chichi's white earlobe. It was like a small brush brushing it, causing Yin Shixiang's heart to tremble. He awkwardly swallowed the words he was about to say. He scratched his head and chuckled. He didn't retort, but he didn't say anything either. He moved closer to the table where Gun Yanji and Hijichu were sitting and asked, What are you playing? Texas Hold'em. Do you want to play? Hijichu put away his cards and smiled at Hua Xiaoheng. Sure, I haven't played in a long time. Hua Xiaoheng sat down next to Gun Yanji and pointed at the seat across from him. Big Xiong, Chichi, you guys sit too. The good thing about Texas Hold'em was that it didn't have a limit on the number of people. 2 to 12 people could play together. There were 5 of them now, so it was no problem at all. Yin Shixiang quickly sat next to Hijichu while Ma Chichi sat at the head of the table as the dealer. The real players were Yin Shixiang, Hijichu, Gun Yanji, and Hua Xiaoheng. What are we betting on? Yin Shixiang asked excitedly. Gun Yanji glanced at him. In our country, it's illegal to bet on Texas Hold'em. It's considered gambling. Yin Shixiang wasn't a lawyer and didn't understand the law at all. Wouldn't it be boring if there's no betting? Yes, why not? It's just not gambling. Ma Chichi smiled as she brought over a small bamboo basket from the other table. It was filled with small pecans. Here, use this as the bet. The loser will peel the pecans for the winner. Isn't that too easy? Yin Shixiang raised his eyebrows. He didn't think much of the bet. Easy? Ma Chichi raised her long brows. I haven't finished speaking yet. Don't always interrupt. Fine. Go on. The loser will peel the pecans for the winner. We can't use tools like hammers or scissors. Ma Chichi exchanged a triumphant look with Gun Yanji. We can't use tools? Yin Shixiang laughed. That's interesting. He picked up a pecan and weighed it in his hand before handing it to Gun Yanji. Yanji, if you lose to Brother Xiong doesn't need you to peel the pecans. Just write a small program for Brother Xiong. Brother Xiong is looking down on me? Gun Yanji smiled as she pointed at Yin Shixiang. Why don't we double the bet? Yin Shixiang was about to agree right away when he suddenly remembered that the biggest feature of Texas Hold'em was the variety of cards. If the person playing cards had a good memory and was good at math, he would be able to calculate his opponent's cards clearly, and Gun Yanji happened to have a photographic memory. She was a straight-A student who had self-studied the advanced math textbooks for undergraduate students at the age of 13. Haha, I wouldn't dare to look down on Miss Gu. Yin Shixiang closed his palms. Let's begin. Ma Chichi winked at him and began to deal the cards. After 5 rounds, Gun Yanji unexpectedly closed her cards and gave up in the 4th round. Yin Shixiang looked at his cards and considered it for a long time before also giving up. Only Hijichu and Hua Xiaoheng were left at the table facing off. Hua Xiaoheng put down his cards without batting an eyelid. Hijichu looked at him for a while before also saying, Call. Both of you show your cards. As the dealer, Ma Chichi directed the order on the table. Hua Xiaoheng curled his lips slightly and flipped his cards first. The first card was the Ace of Hearts. Gun Yanji didn't even look at the cards in his hand. She only wanted to laugh. Hijichu's face was expressionless. His shimmering, sultry eyes were completely silent. He sat motionless and only stared at the cards in Hua Xiaoheng's hand. Hua Xiaoheng smiled as he flipped his second card. It was the King of Hearts. Even Yin Shixiang was excited now. No way. Hua Xiao's luck was so good that it defied logic. Yijichu was still unmoved. He looked at Hua Xiaoheng quietly. Hua Xiaoheng stretched out his slender fingers and flipped the third card on the table. It was the Queen of Hearts. Immediately after, he flipped the fourth card. It was the Jack of Hearts. Just these 4 cards were enough to make them the best royal flush in a royal flush. As long as there was another 10 of hearts, it would be the best card on the table. Still call. Hua Xiaoheng looked at Yijichu inquiringly. Even Ma Qiqi wasn't sure now. Call. Yijichu gritted his teeth and flipped his cards. The first card was the King of Spades. The second card was the Queen of Spades. The third card was the Jack of Spades. The fourth card was the 10 of Spades. It was also the origin of a royal straight flush. As long as there was another 9 of Spades, it would be a straight flush. Of course, it was a few levels lower than Hua Xiaoheng's royal straight flush, but it was still very powerful. Both of them only had one last card left in front of them. Hua Xiaoheng was calm and collected. He asked Yijichu again, "Are you calling?" Yijichu's eyes darkened as he looked at Hua Xiaoheng. After a long time he shook his head. "I give up." As he spoke, Yijichu flipped the last card in his hand. It really was a 9 of Spades. Gunyanji couldn't help but sigh internally, but her eyes were fixed on Hua Xiaoheng's right hand to prevent him from playing any tricks. Professor, he was still too cautious. Actually, Hua Xiaoheng was tricking him. Gunyanji had a good memory and knew how to count cards. The cards in her hand were terrible. There was no flush, no straight, and not even a pair, so she gave up. However, she had already calculated that Yijichu had the only straight flush on the table. Hua Xiaoheng's first 4 cards were very good, but his last card was only the 2 of diamonds. It was nothing when combined with the other 4 cards on his hand. It was as bad as Gunyanji's hand. Even Yin Shixiang had a pair in his hand. Gunyanji smiled at Yijichu and shook her head. "Professor He, you're too cautious. Hua Xiao only has a 2 of diamonds left. It's completely incomparable to your straight flush." "No way. Hua Xiao, you really only have the 2 of diamonds." Ma Qiqi and Yin Shixiang cried out at the same time. Hua Xiaoheng looked at Gunyanji with a smile and flipped the last card in his hand. It was indeed the 2 of diamonds. He looked at Yijichu and said meaningfully, "Professor He, it was an unfair advantage. Thank you for letting me win." It was the 3rd watch. It was still the 4th watch today. It included 2 monthly votes and additional chapters. A reminder to my friends, don't forget your recommendation votes. There was a 4th watch at 11 p.m. And the monthly votes were 6,400 plus chapters. The double monthly votes were still going on. Don't stop, my friends. P.S. I made some changes. The rules were created with reference to asterisk 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 and stud. I might as well use the new term Texas Hold, M23333. All rights reserved. The right of interpretation belongs to Han 233333. Chapter 742. Yijichu's expression suddenly darkened, but it was only for a moment before he recovered his cool demeanor and said slowly, "Hua Xiao is indeed an expert at bluffing people. Although I'm not as good as him, I didn't lose." Therefore, he didn't have to embarrass himself by peeling walnuts for Hua Xiaoheng. According to the rules of Red State Poker, forfeiting in the middle of the game was not considered a loss. He was making reasonable use of the rules. This isn't just about bluffing. It involves the advanced theories of psychology, advanced mathematics, logic, and interpersonal relationships. Hua Xiaoheng pushed the cards forward. "If I want to, I can play a royal flush." It was just that Gunyanji had been staring at his hand, so he didn't want to mess around. According to Hua Xiaoheng's usual habits, as long as it was a gamble, he would definitely cheat. When the Special Operations Forces taught their agents how to gamble, they often said that gambling wasn't about cheating 9 times out of 10, but about cheating 10 times out of 10. There were no exceptions. The difference lay in the level of deception. Hua Xiaoheng had taught Gunyanji these tricks before, including how to play the card of 1,000. Thinking about it, it was really the Wheel of Fortune. Once the disciple was taught, the master would not be able to cheat. Hua Xiaoheng couldn't help but reveal a happy expression as he thought about it. The corners of Yin Shixiang's mouth twitched as he whispered, "Hua Xiao, be reserved, be reserved. It was just a game of deception. Do you have to be so smug?" Hua Xiaoheng composed himself and rubbed his chin with one hand. "I'm smiling. Do you need a mirror?" Yin Shixiang didn't stand on ceremony. Why don't I ask Chi-Chi for her makeup mirror for you? Hua Xiaoheng glanced at him coolly, and Yin Shixiang immediately deflated. He moved closer to Ma Chi-Chi to watch her shuffle the cards. Gun Yanji had already looked away and was no longer staring at Hua Xiaoheng. However, he was sitting next to her, so she couldn't completely ignore his interaction with Yin Shixiang. Gun Yanji smiled and said to He Jichu, Professor He, you're actually confused because you're too concerned. If I had calmed down and calculated the cards, I wouldn't have been cheated. He Jichu's face lit up instantly, and the tenderness in his shimmering almond-shaped eyes almost overflowed. He looked at Gun Yanji and smiled as he said slowly, Sure, but I'm not very good at counting cards. Yanji, teach me when you have time. Yes, no problem. I'll tell you about it when we get back to school. Gun Yanji agreed immediately. Hua Xiaoheng's expression darkened. He stood up and said, You guys play. I'm going out for a smoke. Gun Yanji didn't even look at him as she continued to explain to Ma Chi-Chi and He Jichu how to count the cards. Yin Shixiang was eavesdropping from the side. He was laughing so hard that his intestines were about to fall out. However, he didn't dare to go out and look at Hua Xiaoheng's expression. He could only take the remote control and turn on the TV in the chess room. No matter which channel he switched to, it was actually broadcasting today's Prime Minister's inauguration ceremony. Gun Yanji got up to pour tea and glanced at the TV. She happened to see the various groups of people entering the venue. The entrance of the National Center for the Performing Arts was covered with a large red carpet, winding down from the steps and extending far away. The streetlights on both sides of the sidewalk were as bright as day, illuminating the scene clearly. Next to the entrance of the Grand Theater was a piece of land reserved for the reporters. There were countless reporters there, some carrying video cameras, some holding cameras, and some holding recording pens, constantly asking for information about the guests. There were also some people squatting on the side counting the luxury cars. The crosswalk at the entrance of the National Center for the Performing Arts was blocked with railings, and a line of police officers stood in front to maintain order. On the other side, many ordinary citizens were allowed in to share the joy of the Prime Minister's inauguration and create a celebratory atmosphere. Of course, these onlookers didn't come in randomly. They had all obtained admission tickets through the lottery ceremony on the Prime Minister's office's official website. Then they were authenticated with their real names and were allowed in after a background check by the Secret Service. These people came from all over the Huaxia Empire. They covered a vast area and were very representative of sharing joy with the people. Gun Yanji poured tea and returned to see the doors of the luxury cars open on the TV. Important people from the Huaxia Empire's military, political, and business sectors stepped out one after another. She actually recognized a few of them. For example, the person who had just gotten out of a bulletproof military vehicle with a red flag was the white-haired General Ji. The silver-haired old man who was walking beside him and whispering to him was Speaker Long. The tall, voluptuous, and beautiful woman walking with the Minister of the Interior, by Jianqing, was his daughter, by Yueran. She was also the director of the Special Operations Force's legal department. Then she saw the Hua family. Hua Xiaoheng's father, Hua Guanchen, was dressed in a military uniform. He was in his 50s but had taken good care of himself. He looked like he was in his early 40s at most. Although he was old, time had treated him well. The accumulation of time had added a mature and steady aura to him. He had the unique toughness of a soldier amidst his elegance. Hua Guanchen and a young woman walked beside a hale and hearty old man. Gun Yanji recognized that the hale and hearty old man was Hua Xiaoheng's grandfather. The young woman was Hua Jialan. It turned out that they had returned from France to attend the Prime Minister's inauguration. Hua Jialan was wearing a Dior couture evening gown. She looked back with a smile on the red carpet. Her eyes were full of confidence and pride. The scene was quite interesting to watch. Gun Yanji simply held her tea and sat on the sofa to watch TV. Yanji, what are you watching? You're not playing anymore? Ma Chi-Chi called out to her from the card table. Gun Yanji replied without turning around, I'm watching the Prime Minister's inauguration today. You guys come watch too. This time it's like the entertainment industry. It looks more lively than before, but it's a bit low class. That's easy to understand. He Jichu walked over to sit beside her and said dryly, the new Prime Minister's wife has a good relationship with the media. She likes this kind of scene. Gun Yanji nodded. Is it Kai Songyin? She's been on the news feed for the past few days. Actually, Tan Dongbang and Kai Songyin's daughter, Tang Guorin, was also on the news feed. Gun Yanji didn't want to mention her name, so she pretended she didn't exist. Our new Prime Minister's wife is quite pretty. Ma Chichi also came over and sat on the carpet in front of the sofa with a teddy bear in her arms. She suddenly pointed at the TV and said, "Look, isn't that the new Prime Minister's family?" A black Cadillac limousine slowly drove over to the side of the red carpet under everyone's anticipation. Not only were the reporters excited, but the crowd behind the railings on both sides of the road was also in an uproar. The scene became a sea of cell phones. Everyone was holding up their phones to take pictures of the Cadillac limousine. Kai Songyin, Tan Dongbang and Tan Guiran sat in the car but didn't immediately open the door to leave. Tan Guiran asked Kai Songyin in confusion, "Mommy, we're already here. Aren't we getting out?" "There's no rush." Kai Songyin also wore a bright red fishtail dress that revealed half of her fair shoulders and arms. Because of the cold weather, she also wrapped a mink scarf around her neck. "We'll go out after the helicopter responsible for the live broadcast arrives. That way the camera angle will be the best. Our daughter will be the center of attention today, so we must have the best appearance." As Kai Songyin spoke, she adjusted the fox fur shawl around Tangairan's neck. "Little darling, are you cold?" Little darling was Tangairan's pet name. Oh. Tanguiran thought to herself that the car was so warm, so how could she be cold? After a while, Kai Songyin looked at her watch and felt it was about time. Just as she was about to open the door to leave, she suddenly noticed a commotion outside the car. This commotion was even louder than when their car appeared in front of the National Center for the Performing Arts. Could someone more important than them have arrived? Kai Songyin didn't believe it. Tonight was a night that belonged to the three of them. She wanted to see who would be so untactful. Kai Songyin looked behind the car with a cold expression. Not far from them, a pearlescent blue Bentley Mulsanne slowly drove over. The mysterious pearlescent blue color was as blue as the sea. It was eye-catching the moment it appeared and instantly outshone the standard Cadillac they were sitting in. This was a real luxury car. And looking at the nameplate on the door, it was probably custom-made. Kai Songyin's expression darkened. Just as she was about to open the door to get out, she saw the door of the Bentley open as well. A woman wearing a red fishtail dress leisurely walked out of the car. She stood on the red carpet just like that. The moon and stars in the sky seemed to be ashamed to compete with her beauty as they quietly snuck into the clouds. Even the bright streetlights dimmed because of the woman's beauty. The noisy entrance of the National Center for the Performing Arts fell silent just like that. Everyone's gazes were attracted by this beautiful woman who seemed to be able to shine. All the cameras were pointed at her, and all the phones and cameras only had her in their sights. After a while, she raised her hand and waved elegantly at everyone. Then she turned to look at the Cadillac that Kai Songyin and the others were sitting in. She revealed a faint smile. This smile broke the clouds and the moon appeared. The east wind blew through the thousands of flowers and trees. Looking for her in the crowd for thousands of times, they suddenly looked up and saw that the person was right there in the bright lights. Everyone's idea of a beauty was different, but at that moment, almost everyone present was thinking that this was the so-called beauty. Kai Songyin saw the woman's outfit clearly at that moment, and her entire face darkened. She realized that she was almost wearing the same outfit as the woman. The only difference was that her fishtail dress revealed half of her shoulder and one arm, while the woman was wrapped up tightly. Kai Songyin looked at her slightly plump and round arm and suddenly felt very uncomfortable. What was even more annoying was that the woman came out first. She came out later, giving the audience the impression that she was imitating someone else. This was the fourth update. It was still the fourth update today, including 2 monthly tickets and updates, reminding everyone not to forget your recommendation tickets. Monthly tickets of 6,400 plus updates will be delivered. Good night, everyone. P.S. The previous chapter has been edited. If anyone sees Texas Hold'em, don't think I wrote it wrong. Go to the previous chapter and read it again. Chapter 743. She couldn't let her family's most beautiful night be ruined by this woman who came out of nowhere. Kai Songyin immediately made a decision and called her assistant. She lowered her voice and said, "Go ask the head of the Secret Service who is in charge of security today. How do they do their job? Why are they letting just anyone in? Hurry up and get someone to take the woman who just got out of the Bentley away. You can't let her continue standing there." When Kai Songyin's assistant received her call, she had just woken up from her shock at Song Jinning's stunning beauty. "Mrs. Tan, you're talking about the beautiful woman who just got out of the Bentley? She can't be an ordinary person if she can come here in a car like that, right?" The assistant stammered. Most importantly, she couldn't bear to be rough with such a beautiful woman. Kai Songyin also knew that a woman who could sit in a car like that was probably rich, but money couldn't be the only thing that could be put on airs at an event like today. There were so many high-ranking government officials and military generals at the venue. It wasn't the place for a nouveau riche to steal the limelight. In Kai Songyin's heart, she had already classified Song Jinning's behavior as a nouveau riche who didn't know the severity of the situation. That was because no well-educated woman from an aristocratic family would do such a strenuous and unrewarding thing like stealing the limelight. However, Kai Songyin had forgotten that for a mother, she wouldn't hesitate to stab Kai Songyin a few times, much less steal the limelight. Don't worry so much. If you're afraid of offending someone, then ask her to leave with kind words. Otherwise, what would she look like standing here? Can the Prime Minister and I even get out of the car? Kai Songyin's voice became serious. Don't make excuses. Hurry up and go find him. The assistant's face turned red from Kai Songyin's yelling. He quickly bowed and said, Yes. Mrs. Tan, don't worry. I'll handle it right away. He hung up the phone and looked around. He found a few Secret Service security guards and walked over to where Song Jinning was standing. Hua Xiaoheng stood under a maple tree in the backyard of a 3-story villa in the suburbs of the imperial capital. He wore a Bluetooth headset, held a cigarette in his right hand, and held his phone in his left as he watched the live broadcast of the Prime Minister's inauguration. At 4 o'clock, someone is walking toward Director Song. Activate Plan A and let the media come forward. Hua Xiaoheng calmly directed the Prime Minister's inauguration. Although he didn't go there personally, his men were already stationed in every corner of that place. Zhao Liangzi was monitoring the Prime Minister's inauguration ceremony from the central control room of the Special Operations Forces headquarters. At the same time, he was relaying all the information from the scene to Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng compared the feedback from Zhao Liangzi with the feedback from the Prime Minister's inauguration. Only then could he grasp the most timely developments and make the most accurate decisions. When he discovered that Kai Songyin's assistant had sent a few Secret Service security guards over to Song Jinning's side, Hua Xiaoheng immediately arranged for the next round of operations. Xiao Ning, the stylist he had assigned to Song Jinning, also got out of the car. She was wearing sunglasses and a black suit, looking like a tough bodyguard. As soon as he came out, Kai Songyin's assistant, who was walking over to take Song Jinning away, stopped in his tracks. He looked at Song Jinning suspiciously and then at the bodyguard beside Song Jinning. His intuition told him that a woman who was so beautiful and could afford such a car and had such a capable bodyguard was definitely not an ordinary woman. Would he really dare to take her away? Just as he was hesitating for a few minutes, a group of media people carrying cameras, microphones, and all kinds of live streaming equipment suddenly rushed over from behind him and ran toward Song Jinning. Song Jinning was a little shocked. She didn't know what those reporters were doing. Xiao Ning was also wearing a Bluetooth headset to receive all kinds of instructions. At that moment he moved closer to Song Jinning's ear and whispered, "Don't be afraid. This is our arrangement. When the time comes, you just have to answer whatever they ask." Song Jinning breathed a sigh of relief. She maintained her smile and nodded slightly at the reporters who surrounded them. Microphones were extended in front of her one by one as the excited media reporters began interviewing her. "May I ask if you are Director Song Jinning of the Institute of High Energy Physics? May I ask if the Institute of High Energy Physics is going to build the Super Hadron Collider? May I ask if Director Song, I heard that the Large Hadron Collider in Europe can already produce a Higgs singlet. Does that mean that it is theoretically possible to travel through time?" A series of questions were thrown out and broadcast live on TV and the internet at the same time. The attention of the audience and the internet reached a climax when the reporters mentioned the theoretical feasibility of traveling through time. Countless people began to search online for what the Large Hadron Collider was and what the Higgs singlet was. Song Jinning was a little surprised, but the reporters' questions were not classified. At least, they had nothing to do with their actual experiments. Therefore, she still smiled and explained to them, "The Institute of High Energy Physics has always been committed to theoretical research. The Super Hadron Collider is still in the process of theoretical demonstration, so I can't say for now. As for whether or not the Large Hadron Collider in Europe can already produce a Higgs singlet, I can only say that wishes are beautiful but reality is cruel. But as scientific researchers, we have to realize the beautiful wishes of everyone from the cruel reality." Song Jinning's casual words were highly praised by the reporters. They raced against time and quickly sent out various live press releases to be the first to broadcast on TV and the internet. Even General Ji had noticed the commotion. When the reporters arranged by Hua Xiaoheng passed the microphone to General Ji said at the right time, Director Song's father, Song Haichuan, was our country's first generation of high-energy physicist. He laid a solid foundation for our country's high-energy theoretical physics. 17 years ago, Director Song Haichuan unfortunately died in an experiment. We must always remember the great contributions that scientists have made to our country. I propose that on this great day, everyone observe 3 minutes of silence for those scientists who have sacrificed themselves. General Ji's proposal was unanimously supported by the big shots present. Therefore, the entrance of the National Center for the Performing Arts, which had just been bustling with activity, fell into silence again. The silence this time was different from the silence when everyone was shocked speechless when Song Jining appeared. The silence this time was solemn and dignified. It was a silence that made many people sigh with emotion. Only Kai Songyin, who was still in the Cadillac, was so angry that her face was contorted. She almost had a heart attack. She clutched her chest and panted in the car. This woman is Mrs. Hua Song Jining? Why does she look like this? Did she get plastic surgery just for today's inauguration? Also, today is the Prime Minister's inauguration. What does General Ji mean by this? The lively inauguration had turned into a memorial service. Wasn't this purposely provoking her? The new Prime Minister, Tan Dongbang, frowned and thought about it. I can't take it anymore. I have to get out. You and little darling will do as you see fit. Tan Dongbang opened the car door and got out. Unfortunately, everyone was still in silence at this time. No one cheered for him. Tan Dongbang could only quietly mourn with everyone. After a while, the silence ended. Kai Songyin finally got out of the car with a smile. She stood next to Tan Dongbang, and Tan Guirin followed behind her with a sweet smile. The media reporters and the audience finally noticed that the Prime Minister's family had gotten out of the car. However, they missed the most exciting moment. Now that they saw the family smiling on the red carpet, many people instantly felt awkward. A media reporter carried a camera and rushed in front of the Tans. He said quickly, Prime Minister Tan, Mrs. Tan, you finally came out. Everyone has been waiting for you for a long time. Kai Songyin almost couldn't keep the smile on her face. Tan Dongbang was a bit more experienced. He smiled elegantly at the camera. Just now, everyone was mourning for the scientists who sacrificed their lives for our country. Although I am the Prime Minister, I can't disturb everyone at this time, so I only came out after everyone finished mourning. We will always remember the scientists who sacrificed their lives for our country. As he spoke, he bowed to Song Jining, who was standing diagonally in front of him. Kai Songyin looked at Song Jining with a complicated expression. She heard the reporter who had run over first exclaim again, Mrs. Tan, why are you wearing almost the same evening gown as Director Song? Wasn't this the same outfit? Kai Songyin raised her arm intentionally and said with a smile, No way? Look, my evening gown doesn't have sleeves, but Director Song's evening gown has long sleeves. How can this be the same outfit? Well, that's true. We didn't notice it just now. It was our oversight. The reporter aimed the camera at Kai Songyin's chubby arm and took a few shots before carrying the camera to interview someone else. Kai Songyin tilted her body uncomfortably. Tan Guirin followed behind her with her head lowered deeply. She seemed to be very embarrassed. After the Prime Minister's family got out of the car, the VIPs present began to enter the National Center for the Performing Arts in groups of 2s and 3s. The National Center for the Performing Arts had been renovated, and the stage in the middle was for the Prime Minister to take his oath. The Prime Minister's family of 3 and the Prime Minister's most capable assistant would stand on that stage. There were a few private rooms closest to the stage. One of the private rooms was for the Tans and the Kais. There were also a few members of the Hua family who had their own seats in this private room. The invitation Song Jining received was different from the other people in the Ministry of Education. The invitation she received was with the Hua family, which meant she was in a special private room. She didn't know who was there when she entered until she saw Hua Guanchen standing in front of the large window of the private room. Hua Guanchen almost couldn't take his eyes off her. His gaze was so intense that it was difficult to ignore him. Song Jining frowned and turned to leave the private room. However, before she could walk out the door, she saw Kai Songyin walk in with her daughter, Tan Guirin, who had been with her earlier. May I ask if you are Mrs. Hua? It's an honor to meet you. Kai Songyin extended her hand to greet Song Jining with a radiant smile. It was as if the discord outside had never happened. This is the first update. A reminder to everyone, don't forget your recommendation tickets. The monthly tickets are 6,900 plus updates at 1 p.m. and the third update at 7 p.m. Whether or not there will be a fourth update today depends on the monthly tickets. I don't think it will be that fast. The double monthly tickets are continuing. Don't stop, everyone. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.